This guy gets left behind by his party after they defeat a bunch of monsters and move forward in search of loot. Yet he isn't upset about it. Instead, he uses his unique recycling skill, turning every monster corpse into attribute points, and even gains a new skill as a bonus. But the other Awakeners clearly can't stand a guy with such OP powers. So when they encounter the dungeon boss, they run like rats and try to throw our guy back as a decoy. But that turns out to be their biggest mistake. He recycles those losers as well, gaining a few more useful skills, along with some well-deserved revenge on the ones who mocked and pushed him around like trash. Not long ago, he really was trash with no powers, no skills, just a piece of meat. He was forced to work as a scavenger, collecting leftovers after Awakeners cleared the dungeon. This went on for years until one day when a wolf monster jumped out of nowhere, and his party ran away, leaving him to die as they usually do. He scans the area for weapons and finds only a wooden shield and a wooden staff, both classified as level 1. The wolf is at critical health, and he realizes this is the exact opportunity he's been waiting for. He engages the wolf while the other scavengers shout that he's a fool for attempting to battle a creature that only job changers can handle. He responds that he knows that already, and that all his stats remain at level 1. He reflects bitterly that, with such weak attributes, he can't even pierce the defenses of the weakest monsters. Yet this, he insists, is something he understands better than anyone. He only needs to use more strength. And with that, he strikes the wolf. Meanwhile, Chen laughs, amused that the scavengers are panicking after seeing the demon wolf in critical condition. He remarks that while they could make a fortune just by killing a few monsters, scavengers become completely useless when facing demon beasts, proving they're nothing but low-life trash. Another job changer tells the group to collect only the valuable items and leave the rest for the scavengers to clean up. As scavengers continue shouting about the beast monster, a girl informs the boss that it seems one monster slipped through over there, but no one pays it any attention. Chen tells the others not to take the piece of purple clothing because he's already claimed it. On the other side, the protagonist continues fighting the wolf and finally drives his weapon into the demon's eye, landing a critical hit and earning 1 point. Chen walks over and mocks him, sneering that it looks like a lone wolf managed to kill a single low-level beast. He grabs him by the collar and yells at him, demanding to know why he's acting like a hero just for killing a wolf. He shouts that they don't waste money on trash corpses. All the while, the protagonist is thinking about becoming a job changer. A job changer's career path isn't fixed. Once someone accumulates enough experience to reach level 1, even a level 0 individual can switch jobs successfully. In some cases, they can even unlock hidden jobs. To achieve that, one must find ways to gain experience in order to level up. But for a level 0 who can't deal damage to demon beasts, it's a task harder than ascending to the heavens. Xing has spent years risking his life to land guaranteed critical hits, just enough to deal at least 1 point of damage. Eventually, through persistence, he managed to accumulate experience. Now after killing this demon wolf, all the conditions have finally aligned. His experience reaches 100 points, and he levels up. At the same time, Chen grows furious at the thought that someone he considers trash has managed to trigger a job shift. Qing transitions from scavenger to scavenger level 1, the maximum level for that class. Chen bursts out laughing, saying that even after a job change, he's still just a trash picker. He slaps his hand onto Qing's shoulder, chuckling that he can't help but laugh. He calls it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, only for Qing to choose another worthless role, which, he adds, suits him perfectly. He mockingly calls him a level 1 scavenger, and says that since all his acquaintances are gone, he'll have to handle the cleanup mission alone. Then Chen walks away, calling for his teammates, saying he has something to share with them. Meanwhile, the protagonist questions whether he's still weak, even after reaching the maximum level. He mutters that he can't use any of his level-up attributes because a scavenger caps at level 1. As he gazes at the wolf's corpse, he wonders what the scavenger's actual abilities are. Suddenly his eyes turn blue and all the details about the demon wolf flash before him. A message appears. Recyclable trash found, corpse of a low-level spirit wolf. Stunned, the main character watches as magical hands emerge from his back and begin dragging the demon wolf's corpse into them. He wonders aloud if this is the ability of a scavenger at maximum level. It seems a little frightening, but the hands successfully absorb the entire demon. Trash integration begins and after a moment completes. The hands present him with a spirit dash card and 3 attribute points, his reward for killing the demon wolf. Trying to make sense of it all, he realizes they can acquire cards and personal attribute points from corpses. He opens his attribute system to confirm whether it's true. The hands inform him he needs 3 agility points to activate the card. Without hesitation, the protagonist allocates all 3 of his attribute points into agility. Now meeting the requirements to use the Spirit Wolf card, which currently has 4 points and requires more than 3 agility points, he's asked whether he wants to activate it. He responds affirmatively, and his body begins absorbing the card's energy. He wonders what has changed in him, as nothing appears visibly different. The job changers yell at him to start working. As he attempts to walk, his feet suddenly surge with incredible speed, overwhelming him and sending him crashing to the ground. Realizing what just happened, he understands that this is the ability granted by the card. As he rises, his vision shifts. Corpses around him now display the message, "Recyclable trash found." he realizes that he can not only gain attributes, but also recycle the powers of demon beasts, and that this is the unique ability of an abyssal scavenger at level 1, its maximum potential. Once again, the hands stretch out from his back, reaching for the corpses. He declares in awe that this ability is immensely powerful. He continues accumulating attributes while our boy explains that from the moment he first made contact with the corpse of the spirit wolf, he acquired a new ability, Soul Dash. The ghostly hand then delivers an attribute point he earned, and the protagonist watches with curiosity, intrigued by the unfamiliar process of gaining attributes for the first time. He also realizes that corpses of the same type yield fewer new abilities. In fact, the rewards for consuming identical species steadily diminish. The hands commend him for obtaining an attribute point and outline the benefits of absorption. As they do, he wonders whether skills require fresh corpses for one-time rewards. His total attribute points have reached 111, and he contemplates where to invest them. Gazing at his attribute board, he notes it seems unlikely he'll face a shortage of points in the future. He begins assigning them evenly. Elsewhere, the job changers battle demonic monsters, and only 2 creatures remain. During the skirmish, Chen informs his boss that our boy has undergone a job change to a level 1 scavenger. The boss responds, admitting he's never encountered such a remarkable job change table. Another job changer chimes in, stating that while hidden jobs are occasionally added to the grand job change registry, the top-tier job rankings have remained unchanged for years. These so-called hidden jobs, he claims, are nothing more than a joke. Chen adds that his highest level has only increased to 1, placing him at F rank, slightly stronger than other 0-level scavengers, and not much else has improved. Their boss orders them to stop focusing on our boy and keep advancing. Soon, they discover a mound of withered bodies stacked together. The boss announces that they've located the mission target, the remains of the captain of the Falcon hunting group. One job hunter inspects the bodies, noting that the abyssal transformation likely occurred within the last 48 hours, yet the corpses are unnaturally dried out. It seems as though their essence was drained by some form of dark magic. A girl in the group observes that they had only encountered low-level zombified wolves, making it all the more bizarre that a B-rank team like the Falcon hunting group would perish here. Abruptly, the corpses begin shifting and advancing toward them. Meanwhile, a news anchor reports that abyssal transformation has broken out at the People's Mall in Shenfeng City. It has been initially classified as a B-level mutation, and the current count of missing persons has already reached 217. Back at the scene, their boss shouts for everyone to retreat. They've been deceived. As the bodies attack, Chen remarks that he had been wondering where all the corpses had gone. Now it's clear, they've been amassed into a grotesque mountain. The boss warns them again not to fall for the trap. They were used as bait to draw prey further inward. Suddenly, a high-level abyssal man-eating plant, ranked A, emerges. This is the true master of the abyss. The reanimated Falcon hunting group surges forward in attack. Elsewhere, the protagonist sits calmly, reviewing his stats. He has achieved the novice scavenger milestone during the city test by recycling 50 corpses. The system displays his reward, a heart necklace of ordinary quality and a basic dagger. However, the protagonist is visibly underwhelmed, dismissing the rewards as trash tier. Just then, a hostile voice reaches him. The animated corpse is upon him. Instantly, he triggers an agility check and evades the blow with a sharp fluid movement. Eyeing the creature, he mutters that he genuinely thought he might die just now. At the same time, he realizes his reflexes have quickened, likely due to the attribute points he recently assigned. His strength has risen as well, confirming he has grown significantly more powerful. The protagonist activates Spirit Dash and prepares to counterattack the animated corpse, declaring that he too is now a job changer, and this time, the damage won't be 0. He triggers a strength check of 20, breaking the target's defense and doubling his physical damage output. He feels a surge of satisfaction with this new version of himself. With 20 points allocated to intelligence, his heightened insight allows him to detect hidden traps set by the target. Studying the creature, a parasitized human at the essence level, he identifies its weakness, fire, and the junction of its neck. He strikes with the ordinary dagger, targeting the vulnerable spot, and successfully eliminates the parasitized human. This action triggers a constitution check of 20 and activates the corpse effect of poison resistance fruit. Meanwhile, Ching is ecstatic. This is the first time he's ever killed something entirely on his own. The system informs him that the parasitized human can now be recycled. He accepts. Upon recycling, the system grants him a passive skill called Toxic Evaluation, which allows him to convert poison effects into beneficial ones. He examines the skill card, realizing this means he can now treat spoiled potions like tonics. The system further reports that he has gained 5 allocatable attribute points. It then hands him a spoiled potion and instructs him to decompose it, indicating that even severe poison can become a positive force. He drinks it to test the claim, and all critical effects convert into healing effects. The system reveals that all his basic attribute values have now doubled, an effect that will last for 10 minutes. Ching feels a powerful energy welling up inside him. He reviews his attributes once more, but a noise behind him draws his attention. Turning around, he sees a horde of parasitized humans rushing toward him. Bracing himself, he launches into combat, declaring that he is Ye Qing, a scavenger, and he's about to prove to everyone who ever called him trash or useless just how wrong they were. On the other side, job changers are also battling these creatures, and one of them remarks that they've actually become stronger than before. The primary reason is that the man-eating plant is the one controlling them. The boss commands a retreat, but the parasitized humans begin slaughtering them one by one. Chen flees the scene, determined not to die here. He insists he's not going to lose his money since he's already acquired plenty of equipment. All he needs now is a believable excuse to explain the team's defeat. As he runs, he glances back at them. Suddenly, someone slams into him, knocking him to the ground, and he realizes it's that scavenger trash. Meanwhile, Qing confronts him, demanding to know if he really betrayed his team just to save his own life. But Chen stares past him, eyes fixed on the pile of parasitized humans behind Qing, and demands whether he truly killed them all. In his mind, Chen concludes that he can't let this guy leave. He might expose everything to the supervisors. Chen snarls at the protagonist, shouting that if he really wants to grow stronger, he should feed himself to the monsters. He lashes out with a kick, but Qing's body reacts automatically, triggering a strength check that causes a sudden jolt of pain to shoot through Chen's leg, sending him crashing to the ground. The protagonist stands over him and coldly declares that Chen is actually worse than trash. At that moment, the grotesque hands emerge again and drag Chen away, despite his frantic screams for help. Moments later, the hands toss him back out, declaring him non-recyclable trash. Meanwhile, the system notifies the protagonist that his recycling ability has been upgraded. It now targets useless abilities that can be recycled with the user's consent. He activates a card, Controller of All Flames. The system informs him that the Fireball skill requires 15 intelligence points, and with 50 points available, he can trigger both the Overcast effect and the Fireball skill, evolving it into Great Flame Explosion. A swarm of parasitized humans charges at him, so he unleashes the upgraded Fireball, reducing them to ashes in seconds. But he suddenly shouts in frustration. He wanted to recycle them. One parasitized human lunges at him from behind, but after a fierce struggle, he manages to kill it. The job changer's boss has also transformed into a monster, and the protagonist engages him in battle as well. After defeating him, he apologizes for recycling his corpse. Qing acquires a dagger mastery card, granting him the ability to wield a dagger like an assassin and unleash a flurry of stabbing attacks. As he activates the card, he feels the dagger grow more responsive and efficient in his grip. Our protagonist fends off parasitized humans as Chen sits before the supervisors in the interrogation room. They grill him about his mission to locate the bodies of the Falcon Group, reminding him that without those corpses, he won't earn any rewards. In the background, Qing's attributes are climbing dramatically. He now stands before a massive man-eating plant. The supervisors press Chen again about the missing corpses. He tells them the bodies were dragged into the abyss by that man, but they don't believe him. According to their records, Chen is the sole survivor of that dungeon, so the person he speaks of shouldn't exist. What makes them even more suspicious is the fact that his level dropped to 1 after returning. Chen shouts that the man not only took the corpses but recycled his abilities too. But the supervisors dismiss it as hallucination, scoffing at the idea of someone being recycled and spit out. Their disbelief leads them to brand the team as traitors. Still, Chen holds his ground, insisting he's telling the truth, that the trash man really did this to him. Meanwhile, our protagonist stands before the entrance to a B-rank abyss, reflecting on the past. He remembers selling magic crystals on the black market and receiving barely 30% of their worth. Private trading was illegal, as the crystal market was monopolized by the last enterprises, and the meager profit barely helped him pay off his debts. Now, if he uses the recycling ability too openly, someone might report him to the supervisors. With his strange hidden job, there's a real risk they'll detain him for over a year for research. He glances down at his hand, marked with the recycling emblem, a permanent reminder of the secret job. For now, his focus is on earning money. He's joined by a group of job changers preparing to enter the newly appeared abyss, which means the rewards this time will be doubled. The boss calls out for job changers to come forward and sign up, only those B rank and above. Qing steps up, declaring that he's a scavenger, level 1, and asks if he qualifies. The boss bursts out laughing, mocking him for even calling himself a job changer. He waves him off, telling him to stand in the back and stick to picking up trash. Qing forms a quiet plan. He'll stay at the rear, play the part of a weakling, and secretly gather corpses and scraps without being noticed. Just then, a man grips Qing's wrist when a girl arrives, the daughter of the Liu family, who has recently awakened her God-chosen job. She orders them to take Qing along, stating they already have enough people. This is Liu Xingran, the rising star of the hunting group, widely known as the God-chosen child. The man objects, pointing out that Qing is only level 1 and has no proof of qualifications. Liu dismisses it, saying it doesn't matter. Everyone there is just filler anyway, like trash. The man relents, agreeing that she has the final say, since the hunting group operates on her family's property and is responsible for her protection. As Ching reflects on nearly being kicked out, he resolves to seize this opportunity. He studies Lu's face, trying to remember where he's seen her before. It comes back to him. 2 years ago, when he killed his first demon, she had been there, staring at him in shock, asking how someone like him, a mere trash picker, could do such a thing. She admitted she'd only heard of people using that method to level up, but never imagined someone would actually go through with it. He had replied that he only wanted to make money, and then began collecting magic crystals. She had told him she couldn't believe he'd risk his life just for money. He snapped back that job changers like her had no idea how harsh and bitter life was for people like him. Furious, he had accused her of abandoning everyone, choosing to move forward alone, while he threw himself into battle against demon beasts, just to survive. She had shouted in return that she only did it to become stronger. She wanted to be the first to conquer that place. When he asked what place she meant, she deflected by questioning his reason for wanting to change jobs. He told her he wanted to become strong to protect his family. He remembers that after they introduced themselves, she had wished him good luck and said she looked forward to him becoming a job changer. She had even invited him to join her team once he changed jobs, proposing they conquer that place together. They had made a deal. At the time, she had already slain 30 demons, while he had only managed 1. She told him she'd meet him again after his job change. Then her father's men arrived. They'd been searching for her after she had sneaked away. They scolded Ching for standing near her and tried dragging her back. As she was pulled away, she tossed a crystal at him, saying it was his reward. Ching had gone his own way after that. Now standing beside her again, he recalls her name, Liu Xingran. Another man hears the remark and slaps him, declaring that she's definitely Liu Xingran and demanding to know what he's thinking. He then commands him to go retrieve the crystals. While the others move, he watches her from behind, muttering that he'll do his best not to let anyone down. Liu hears him and replies curtly that it's good, though her tone remains unfriendly. She then orders everyone to move into the abyss immediately. They begin entering the gate one by one while the boy silently vows to earn a fortune this time. In the last abyss, he had mastered the abilities of Shield Warrior, Assassin, and Berserker, and had even secured a boss-level skill, Super Regeneration from the man-eating plant. Additionally, by using his radar chart point allocation method, he had eliminated any weaknesses regardless of his chosen profession. Every attribute could now exceed 100 points, distributed evenly across 6 stats. He had been the one who recycled everything in the previous abyss. As they advance deeper into the abyss, he ponders which level truly corresponds to 100 attribute points. His observing eye scans the other's stats. He scoffs at one man whose strength is just 12 points, with a dismal 1 point in intelligence. He calculates that if a normal mortal's strength is 1 point, then someone with 12 points has 12 times that strength. By that logic, with his own strength at 100 points, he possesses a 100-fold advantage over a regular person. Suddenly, loud rumbling echoes through the cavern, but Ching dismisses it as the result of unstable structures. Moments later, someone shouts that he's found a chest, and the entire group rushes over. Without any assassins among them, they realize they can't open it. It's a rank A-level chest. But the protagonist raises his hand, and after a few seconds, successfully unlocks it. One man gasps in disbelief, pointing out that only assassins or those above level 5 can unlock such chests. He demands to know how the protagonist managed it. Calmly, he explains that he's a level 1 scavenger, and scavengers often stumble upon chests like this while combing through junk. The man nods and says they'll divide the loot after the mission, and should stay focused for now. As they continue forward, the protagonist suddenly halts and warns a man not to move. He senses something ahead. He throws a stone forward, and immediately the walls on both sides begin to close in, shocking everyone. They begin questioning whether he's truly just level 1. He explains that it's nothing special. Scavengers naturally develop trap perception skills through experience. Meanwhile, Liu listens silently from behind. His system displays a deception check. People are starting to believe in him, which confirms that his 100 intelligence points are working as intended. The boss hands him a card named Broken One-Handed Mace, a weapon usable at level 1. The protagonist accepts it but realizes his evaluation in their minds still isn't very high. They press on until reaching a spacious hall with a glowing object placed in the center. One man comments that it looks like the treasure at the end of the level, and reaching this point was surprisingly easy. He speculates that perhaps this abyss's reward room contains no monsters. The system confirms to the protagonist that this abyss is a special type. Its reward room holds only treasures and no enemies. At the center, a stone tablet floats above a goblet filled with red liquid. One man picks up the tablet, but Liu quickly warns everyone to stay alert, as monsters could appear at any moment. The man, pointing to the stone, claims they just need to retrieve the final treasure, and then they can leave. Meanwhile, the liquid in the goblet begins boiling uncontrollably. The system alerts the protagonist that the blood trial has begun, and suddenly, all the blood surges out of the goblet. They quickly realize this isn't a reward room, it's a trap. Liu identifies it as the Blood Nightmare and instructs everyone to prepare for battle. The protagonist decides to use only 25% of his strength to avoid revealing his full power. He puts on the Ring of Weakness, which reduces all attributes by a selected percentage. He recalls how furious he'd been when he first acquired it, questioning why he'd ever wear something that weakens him. But now he muses that what once seemed useless might turn out to be his most valuable tool. They begin fighting the blood spirits, which shatter instantly upon a single blow. But soon, they realize the spirits are condensing into humanoid forms. The blood nightmare starts off fragile but rapidly strengthens as it mimics and counters its human opponents. Though they keep attacking the creature as it takes on more human-like traits, it refuses to die. One of them finally exclaims, "It seems these things are unkillable." Liu is dispatching the blood nightmares with flawless technique, freezing them first, then smashing them into fragments. She frowns, puzzled as to why the others can't handle them the same way. As another one splinters beneath her strike, she mutters that trash remains trash no matter the form. But another girl counters, pointing out that the creatures are too fast, leaving no window to cast proper magic skills. Meanwhile, the protagonist considers vaporizing them on the spot, as his sword proves useless against these foes. He channels powerful incantations, unleashing a blazing explosion of flame. Around him, allies murmur in disbelief that someone at level 1 is wielding an S-grade evocation spell. Only a few blood nightmares remain now. Qing slays another, but the beast refuses to stay down and instead multiplies in front of them. This particular monster is no ordinary threat. It's a king-level blood nightmare. They're all rattled, struggling to understand how such a creature ended up in a B-rank abyss. The protagonist narrows his eyes, suspicion brewing. These monsters can mimic the forms of their targets and grow stronger when facing powerful enemies. He pieces it together. The nightmare must have absorbed his attributes and evolved into a king-level entity. Now the monster focuses its attacks on him. He weaves between the strikes, evading with precision, but realizes brute force won't be enough to overcome a creature enhanced with his own power. Liu steps forward, eyes sharp, and tells him to stand back. She's the one capable of handling an opponent of this magnitude. She charges in and slashes the nightmare, encasing it in crystalline ice. The protagonist's eyes widen as he realizes she's mastered the frost domain. Liu, however, quickly senses the truth. She can't defeat it alone. Her strength still falls short against something this powerful. A memory surfaces. Her subordinates had warned her about the abyss, noting the unstable energy levels and urging her not to venture alone. Back then, her body had been wrapped in bandages after a devastating accident. Now she peels them away, revealing the healed wounds, and declares that the time has come to challenge her ultimate goal, the dark uppermost level of the tower. She reflects bitterly that she may never reach the heights her brothers and sisters attained. But if she fails to conquer this abyss, she has no right to carry the Liu family name. Gritting her teeth, she surges forward and launches another powerful assault on the monster. As she strikes, a flag of frost materializes before her. The system chimes in, announcing that the speed of all allies within a 30-meter radius has increased by 50%. Determined, Liu thinks that while she might not be able to kill it outright, she can still freeze it completely, and when the time comes, strike again with full force. Nearby, Qing watches intently. He whispers that this legendary S-rank is truly a god-chosen job. But deep down, he's not just impressed, he's eager to see which force will prevail, the king-level blood nightmare, or the god-chosen knight, Liu Xingran. The monster refuses to die despite the relentless barrage of attacks. She realizes that even with her S-rank, her strength pales in comparison to her older brothers and sisters. Sharing the Liu surname brings her no comfort. Among her family, she feels like the weakest link. Memories flood in of her siblings mocking her, calling her trash. They had never allowed her to descend into the abyss, claiming it was too dangerous. Now she's desperate to grow stronger, even if that means starting from the novice abyss. She believes that as long as she pushes through every hardship, she can one day surpass her siblings and even rise beyond them. Steeling herself, she slams her weapon down with fury on the monster's head. But the beast retaliates, lashing out violently, and voices around her shout warnings to retreat. Panic spreads as they recall this creature even overpowered an S-rank hunter. None of them stand a chance alone. The monster prepares to strike again, but Qing rushes in, intercepting the blow. His eyes narrow, scanning the creature with precision, relying on his observing eye to identify its weakness. If this creature ascends to the king level, it will gain resistance to basic status effects, and as it evolves further, it could become immune to freezing, dizziness, paralysis, and slowness. Worst of all, its existing weaknesses would vanish entirely. He knows there's no time left for hesitation. He channels every attribute he possesses, preparing to go all out against the blood nightmare. Liu gulps down a healing potion, her eyes fixed on Qing as he challenges the monster head-on. Qing, fully focused, scours the beast for any vulnerability, aware that even if he damages it, the monster's body will regenerate. A sudden thought strikes him. What if the creature is being remotely controlled? He calls out to the others, urging them to give him the block. It had been removed right before the blood nightmare emerged, so the connection must exist. A man responds quickly, kicking the block toward Qing. Though the object is covered in ancient script, Qing deciphers it easily thanks to his intelligence. The glyph block holds the key. Only by unraveling the incantation can the blood nightmare be killed. Anxiety grips him as he realizes the solution had been within reach all along. He simply needed to use the observing eye from the beginning. Without hesitation, he hurls the block into the mouth of the King Blood Nightmare. The monster immediately enters its invincible mode, then freezes mid-motion. Liu steps forward, studying him closely, and asks if they've met before. Something about him feels familiar. Qing, surprised, questions how she didn't recognize him earlier. He reminds her they crossed paths 2 years ago. He was a scavenger then, and took her experience points. In fact, they were the very first experience points he ever earned. Her memory clicks into place. She recalls the boy who had scooped up the missing 0.5 points from a monster she had slain. She says she remembers now. His name is Yi King, which amusingly means one night stand. Qing's face turns red as he corrects her. His name is actually Ye Qing. She chuckles, admitting she never imagined he would manage to change his job. He responds proudly, announcing he's now a level 1 scavenger. She gazes at him thoughtfully, impressed that he risked everything and succeeded in altering his class. Meanwhile, Qing grows increasingly flustered under her persistent stare. She finally breaks the silence, informing the others that the glyph block will now circulate within the Blood Nightmare's body. However, her command over the Frost domain is temporarily disabled. She instructs Ye Qing to locate the block within the beast. Qing had expected this. No matter how strong a person is, there comes a time when they can't overcome every challenge alone. They'll need support. He looks at her and offers a fist bump, telling her to consider this her 0.5 reward, and suggests they face the monster together. She grins and returns the gesture, declaring that he'd better not slow her down during the fight. Around them, the other team members rally, voices rising in unison. They're determined to win, eager to contribute however they can. With renewed resolve, Qing addresses them all, urging everyone to advance as one. He promises they will make it out alive, together. Qing announces that only 5 seconds remain until invincibility wears off, and then the monster will enter its berserker stage. It will rampage uncontrollably for the next 30 seconds. He urges everyone to make use of this final 30-second window and return alive this time. Shouts erupt from the group, each one yelling their determination to survive. They surge toward the monster together. One member charges ahead to draw the creature's attention. Leo barks a command to a girl named Mage, instructing her to target the monster's tentacles and shield the scavenger. Mage unleashes her attacks now, magic flaring as she strikes at the flailing limbs. The protagonist declares that the glyph block is the key to ending the blood trial, and if it's destroyed by a fireball, the trial will never conclude. She anxiously demands to know what they're going to do. Qing considers retrieving it manually, intending to pull it out himself. She shouts in protest, insisting he can't just dive into the monster's stomach to extract it, but Qing retorts that he's going to pierce straight through its body. Without hesitation, Liu commands the archer to aim for the ceiling and shoot down the rocks to create makeshift steps for Qing. Arrows fly one after another, dislodging stones that crash to the ground below. Meanwhile, she focuses on weakening the Blood Nightmare's raging winds. She attempts to issue further orders to the rest, but Qing cuts her off, urging her to leave everything to him as he bolts toward the monster. As he sprints, he reasons that his super regeneration can rapidly heal wounds, rendering minor attacks ineffective. Across the battlefield, Liu attempts to freeze the creature's body again. She advises Qing to aim for the chest. It's the most penetrable spot. Knowing he lacks the speed for a direct assault, Qing activates his berserker mode, boosting his velocity by 20%. He downs a healing potion in one gulp. He also remembers the slowness potion he picked up at the abyss entrance, a trash item that might finally serve a purpose. Gathering his strength, he hurls himself at the monster, roaring that this is his finishing blow. But the monster lashes out with its tentacles, swatting him mid-air. He crashes to the ground, skidding far across the floor. Groaning, he mutters that his dramatic move flopped miserably, and that he really should have kept a low profile. Suddenly, his recycling ability kicks in, except this time, he's the one being targeted for recycle. Ethereal hands erupt around him, dragging him inward. Liu and the others recoil in shock, frantically trying to understand what's happening. But then, Qing bursts back out. He can't be recycled. Smirking, he commands the hands to hurl him with full force. This, after all, was part of his plan. The hands hurl him directly into the monster's stomach. As he tears through the inner flesh, he bursts out the other side, clutching the block in his grasp. The King Blood Nightmare crashes to the ground, signaling the completion of the blood trial. The others scramble to understand what just occurred, then slowly realize they've triumphed over the monster. Joy erupts among them as they shout in victory, and without warning, everyone begins leveling up. Everyone except the protagonist, who remains static, having already reached the maximum level. The monster's corpse ignites, burning away into ash and leaving behind a wooden box, the true treasure. They eagerly begin collecting the cards, and the protagonist also receives one, but its required level is 100. Fury wells up inside him as he questions why his maximum level is capped at just 1, rendering every card completely useless to him. In frustration, he flings the card away, but Liu urges him to distribute the cards among the others since he contributed the most. He turns toward her and insists he needs to tell her something. Meanwhile, A large group of men, servants of the Liu family, prepare to enter the abyss to rescue her and the team. But before they can proceed, she emerges, declaring there's no need for a rescue. Upon seeing her, the men burst into tears of relief. One man, holding a microphone, loudly announces that Liu Xingran has successfully cleared an abyssal on her own. She proudly boasts to the gathering that she's capable of anything on her own. After all, she's an S rank. The other team members begin to disperse, agreeing to keep everything a secret. Liu recalls the moment when Qing asked her for a favor inside the abyss. He had first remarked that since she was from the Liu family, money wouldn't be an issue, and he offered to sell her the items. He quoted her 500 magic crystals, throwing in a discount. She agreed to the deal. He then instructed her that once they exited the abyss, they must all act as though he was never there, and she had cleared the abyss entirely by herself. After that, he turned away, saying he would stay behind for a while and leave in secret. Liu, watching him walk off, tried to understand his motive, whether he sought to repay her or leave her indebted. With the others gone, the protagonist remains alone, seated within the abyss. The block lies motionless before him. As he prepares to cast magic upon it, a tiny blood nightmare, the entity that had been controlling the others, emerges from within. The protagonist demands that it become his strength, insisting it wouldn't want to remain trash, only to be crushed by others. In response, the hands reach out and recycle the blood nightmare. He gains the nightmare body ability, allowing him to consume life essence to summon a nightmare clone. The clone can imitate its host, endure or inflict a single instance of damage, and has a cooldown time of 30 seconds. He also obtains a card named Nightmare Body. The protagonist remarks that this will be a powerful asset in the battles to come. Elsewhere, Qing sits in a restaurant, sorting through all the equipment he has. Even though he gave Liu items that were useless due to their high-level requirements, he still has a large amount of gear left. He knows the supervisors will notice, but they won't care even if he sells them. While shifting through the inventory, he accidentally taps the recycle button, causing one piece of equipment to be processed and earning him a BP point in return. Perplexed, he tries to understand what just happened. The tutorial system explains that recycling is the process of sorting trash after preliminary classification, then crushing, smelting, and separating it into recyclable materials. BP, it clarifies, is a universal substance extracted from decomposing useless equipment. It can be used to upgrade, repair, and create new items. The system then assigns him a task: complete the repair of an ordinary dagger at a cost of 5 BP. He contemplates how to fulfill the task. The dagger, with a current durability of 0.33, was something he had already planned to discard after defeating the boss. With 1 BP already earned, he needs only 4 more, so he begins decomposing more items to gather the remaining points. The system not only repairs the dagger but also boosts its attack power and durability, confirming that other trash items can be enhanced too. It congratulates him on completing the tutorial and prompts him to choose a reward, either a novice blueprint or a random attribute value increase by 2. The protagonist selects the conventional magic blueprint. Our protagonist understands that attribute points aren't particularly important right now. What truly matters is discovering what lies inside the abyss, which remains wildly unpredictable. Everyone knows that many adventurers have entered the abyss, only to run out of magical energy long before reaching the king's room, forcing them to retreat. In such cases, magic bottles played a vital role in their survival. The system congratulates him on acquiring the item regeneration ability, but immediately adds that regenerating a magic bottle requires 6 BP and a random container. He considers what could count as a random container, then calls the waiter over and asks for one. After receiving it, he recycles the trash inside, preparing for the regeneration process. He watches the screen in front of him, playing a minigame while the waiter eyes him with growing suspicion. Eventually, he manages to regenerate the magical potion and drinks it. The taste nearly makes him gag. It's like rancid juice, but he forces it down. His magic stats begin to rise, and his fatigue drops significantly. Feeling recharged, he leaves the cafe, thinking he might be able to clear another abyss today. As he steps outside, a group of men standing nearby immediately confronts him, asking if he's Ye Qing. They remark how different he looks after just a few days. One of them places a hand on his shoulder, claiming they know he found some kind of treasure while picking through trash, and that they've been searching for him ever since. Qing calmly tells them to leave him alone. He's already repaid all his debts, with full interest. But the man sticks his hand into Qing's cup and sneers that even though the debt is settled, the contract hasn't expired. According to him, a trash picker should keep living like trash. He throws Qing's milk tea to the ground and starts mocking him. Their real intent to rough him up is becoming obvious. Qing glances around, searching for surveillance cameras. He knows that using abilities outside the abyss is strictly forbidden for job changers. Only law enforcers and certain armed personnel are permitted to use them, so if he's going to fight back, he needs to find a camera blind spot first. The thug orders him to eat the pearls from the ground and lick up the spilled milk tea, laughing that this is exactly what a trash picker is meant to do. Qing refuses to obey. Enraged, the man rears back to punch him, but just then, someone steps in. A man named Caesar, an S-rank member of the Blood Oath hunting group, suddenly appears and grabs the attacker by his tie, stopping him mid-swing. He asks if all the members have gathered. The thug quickly responds that one person is still missing. Meanwhile, Ching begins to walk away, but Caesar calls out to him, stating bluntly that he's hired. Ching responds that he's just a trash picker, he can't even defend himself, and says Caesar should look for someone better suited. But Caesar explains that they're about to enter the abyss during a red moon phase, when all the monsters go berserk. He says he needs someone to act as bait, and strength doesn't concern him. As Ching listens to the conversation, his mind drifts to thoughts of the red moon. During that phase, every monster in the abyss enters a berserk state. Rare monsters appear, the rewards double, and the quality of magic crystals becomes far purer. The opportunity is tempting. Ching decides to accept the offer and join the team. Caesar then gestures to the man behind him and calls the others over. When Ching turns to look, he recognizes the man. It's Lao Chen. As soon as Chen sees him, he starts yelling, but Ching shuts him up by placing a hand over his face. They begin to scuffle, and after a brief tussle, Ching drags him aside to talk privately. Chen exclaims that he still can't believe Ching is alive. Ching tells him he should be grateful. He's only alive today because Ching saved him in the abyss. Otherwise, he would have died there that day. Caesar asks if the two know each other, but Ching brushes it off and denies any connection. He walks away, adding coldly that it should be obvious. No one calls someone a friend after they murdered their own teammates. Ching then turns back to Chen and asks if he managed to escape the hands of the supervisors. Chen begins explaining that he was originally sentenced to 15 years, but managed to get out by giving up all his assets and paying a 1.5 million fine. He then starts blaming Ching, saying everything that happened to him is Ching's fault. Ching's expression hardens. He warns that if Chen utters one more word, he'll grind him into scraps and recycle him without a second thought. They're inside the Sea City subway, standing at the threshold of the abyss. Zhou Tang, a level 3, welcomes them to the cannon fodder team and casually asks about their roles. The protagonist introduces himself as Ye Qing, a level 1 scavenger, and Chen follows up by stating he's a level 1 mage. Shu reassures them that no one looks down on anyone here, because every last one of them is trash, risking their lives for money. Quietly, Ching reflects that this so-called trash group might actually stick together till the end. Zhou gestures toward his own 2 cannon fodder members and brings up the need for a team leader. He claims the position, arguing that being the highest level makes him the best choice. Lao Zhu, a level 2 healer, agrees to follow Zhou, and Lao Zhang, a level 3 warrior, supports the idea as well. Caesar addresses the group, letting them know that 5 temporary participants will also be joining. He bluntly explains they're meant to be bait in the abyss, expendable. Ching listens silently. Caesar then reveals a key to the newcomers and explains the abyss is like a maze, riddled with hidden traps in every room. Their task is to map out a safe path to the boss chamber and report everything back to the main team. He tells them to run the moment they spot a monster, since none of them can fight. At least one must survive if they want the money, or any reward at all. Zhu suddenly starts coughing due to his age. Jang checks on him and asks if he's all right. Zhu responds that he can't afford to stop now. He's got 4 daughters waiting at home for dinner, and he needs to earn some cash today. Jang nods, adding that he's gambling with his life too, for his wife, who's in the hospital with a serious illness. They stand just steps away from the abyss. Ching takes the lead while the others talk about him behind his back. Jang observes that Ching looks unfamiliar, prompting Zhu to comment that every face is new in the cannon fodder trade. Zhang shakes his head, saying this is the first time he's seen someone look that relaxed. They begin their descent into the abyss. Zhu grows suspicious. It's been too long without encountering a single monster. Chen loses patience and yells at him to stop jinxing them. Suddenly, the air turns icy and Zhou shivers from the cold. Without warning, he triggers a hidden trap. Blades shoot up toward him, but he manages to dodge at the last second. Chen scolds him furiously for stepping on it, while Ching quietly thinks to himself that Zhou somehow made it out alive. They keep moving. Zhou, still shaken, says luck must be on his side or he'd be dead by now. Then without warning, he bolts ahead. Ching and Chen exchange looks, visibly annoyed with his behavior. Something begins falling from above. They glance upward, trying to figure out what it is, until the shapes suddenly shift into spiders. Demonized ones, in fact. And they're level 5. These are elite monsters that spit poison. Zhou screams, overwhelmed by his fear of bugs. Chen retaliates immediately, casting fire at the creatures. Zhu and Zhang leap in as well, joining the battle. Elsewhere, one of the spiders lunges at Ching and sinks its fangs into his leg, but due to a magical potion in his system, the spider dies on contact. Chen witnesses the scene and scowls with jealousy, envious of Ching's recycling ability. Ching quickly commands the system to recycle the demonized spider and gains an additional attribute point. Along with it, he obtains a card called Arcana, this one containing quenching poison. When applied, it causes 60% of the weapon's damage as poison over 6 seconds, and if the strike is critical, the damage climbs to 120%. It requires an agility stat of 25. Arcanas are a unique type of ability. Once used, they disappear, but the item they're used on retains the effect until it breaks. Kin realizes he can acquire not only skill and job cards through recycling, but Arcana cards as well. Since Arcana can be fused with other cards, he considers combining this one with his dagger and possibly adding another. Zhang shouts at him, accusing him of standing around instead of helping. But Qing has already infused his regular dagger with the quenching poison, and now stands ready to confront the spiders. Meanwhile, Zhou is sprinting away from the fight, grumbling that being level 3 doesn't count for much when all his abilities are non-combative, only useful for buffing allies. He quickly dons a mask and mutters that things are getting too dangerous. He needs to activate a life-saving buff for himself. He starts singing, claiming the monsters are ghosts that must be captured without mercy. King watches from a distance, puzzled, trying to understand what he's doing. But instead of weakening the creatures, Zhou's song seems to empower them. Confused and panicking, Zhou turns and flees again. Just as a spider leaps at him, Qing slashes it from behind with his dagger, killing it instantly. The demonized spiders are getting out of hand, prompting Zhang to suggest they treat the situation more seriously, as it's becoming increasingly difficult to manage. Since Qing was the one who killed the spider behind them, the group mistakenly believes Zhou was responsible and starts praising him for his supposed bravery. While they continue talking about Zhou, the protagonist focuses on the demonized spiders, analyzing their behavior and thinking about effective ways to eliminate them. On the other side, the team keeps discussing how courageous Zhou is. King reflects on the nature of the abyssal monsters, believing they possess intelligence. Once they lock onto a target, they often won't attack immediately, but instead retreat. As if confirming his thoughts, the spiders suddenly begin to scatter and flee, just as the protagonist had predicted moments earlier. Chen, looking unsettled, remarks that this is only the first room, yet it's already horrifying. He adds that they have no idea what might appear next. The protagonist notes that all his arcanas have already been recycled. He kept only one card as a spare and converted the remaining 27 into basic points, earning 54 BP as a result. Zhu then orders everyone to advance since the monsters are gone, warning them to stay alert for traps. The protagonist eyes him with frustration, thinking Zhou is actually referring to himself with that warning. He then spots a door, recognizing it as the entrance to a hidden berserk area. Thanks to the influence of the red moon, new branches are beginning to form throughout the dungeon, and he considers stepping inside. He summons the Blood Nightmare and instructs it to follow the rest of the team. While his clone dashes off to rejoin the others, the real him slips quietly into the hidden room. Without warning, a demonized spider ambushes him. He retaliates with a strike from his dagger but quickly realizes the creature is immune to it. This spider is a Broodmother variant, a level 20 rare elite. The protagonist calculates that defeating it could yield rare level recyclables. The spider attacks again. In response, he unleashes a massive fire explosion, but the creature proves resistant even to fire. That leaves him with only one option: finish it off through direct combat. With no hesitation, he charges straight at the monster, dagger in hand. He lands a critical hit on the spider's weak point. Our protagonist explains that although level 5 spiders have venomous bites, it seems level 20 broodmothers have lost that trait, along with their resistance to poison, now, ironically, their greatest weakness. He suspects the shift is due to changes in their defenses and breeding capabilities. Since they no longer depend on hunting, they rely on secondary demonized spiders to do it for them. Ironically, the venom those spiders produce has become the broodmother's most dangerous vulnerability. The broodmother lunges and hurls its web at him, trapping him in a sticky mass. To break free, he triggers berserk mode and smashes the spider with such brute force that it's torn apart. The system notifies him that his berserk card has leveled up and prompts him to choose between two upgrades. The first, Splattering Gore, enhances berserk mode by allowing physical attacks to bypass a portion of enemy resistance, but at a cost. His health will steadily drain until either the mode ends or he dies. The second option, Unyielding Rage, extends the duration of berserk mode and reduces its cooldown by half. He weighs his options. Unyielding Rage is the safer and more commonly chosen route, but against monsters with high resistance, Splattering Gore offers a significant edge. Still, the constant health drain is a serious drawback. Then a plan comes to mind. He can activate Splattering Gore while simultaneously using regeneration mode to counteract the side effects. That way, he can damage physically resistant monsters without the fatal trade-off. He then gathers every card in the area that he's allowed to bring back from the Abyss as an official member. He plans to sell them for a solid profit and recycle the rest. Afterward, he receives 20 attribute points and begins to wonder what kinds of new skills he'll gain. He obtains a rare Broodmother card that grants him the ability to summon up to 4 demonized broodlings to fight at his side, and even evolve them over time. Meanwhile, the other team members discover a crystal mine. Zhu wonders aloud whether this is also a result of the Red Moon state, as the crystals are identified as S-rank magic crystals, extremely valuable. Zhu activates the Eye of Arhos, which scans a 60-meter radius and marks the surrounding area, displaying it on the map for everyone to see. Chen erupts in frustration, shouting at Zhu for marking the location, warning that they could have lived comfortably for life with that kind of money. Zhu dismisses the idea of wealth, reminding him that if Caesar discovers they're hiding something, he'll kill them without hesitation. Even Zhang agrees, stating that as cannon fodder, Their only role is to pave the way for others. Whether they die or survive, no one cares. They're considered disposable. Chen falls silent, recalling how he used to look down on others just like this. But now, after losing all his levels because of Qing, he's in the same pit, just another piece of trash. All he wants now is to scrape together enough money to rejoin the main force of one of the scavenger groups. He grabs a crystal, muttering that he only needs to sneak a few out. But the moment he does, a trap is triggered. A powerful strike slams directly into Joe's forehead, knocking him flat. Elsewhere, our protagonist examines a level 1 broodling. It appears weak, but has the potential to grow into a level 5 demonized spider using basic points. If he wants to keep it alive, he must raise its level quickly. He spends his points on it, and the creature evolves into a silk spider. Zhang seizes Chen by the collar and roars at him, his face contorted with fury. He blames Chen's greed for Lao Zu's death, the man who had labored relentlessly just to support his family. Chen snaps back, insisting that if he hadn't lost all his levels, he wouldn't be doing any of this. He adds coldly that he has no intention of staying with idiots like them. Zhang draws his sword and thrusts it toward him, calling him a team killer, reminding everyone that Chen murdered his own comrades. Chen scoffs, claiming he would do it again, because in this world, power and wealth come before anything else. But then, a slow clap echoes behind them, and a mocking voice adds that luck matters too. The clapping figure steps forward. It's Caesar, now standing just a few feet away. He grins and praises Chen's perspective, then casually invites him to join his team. At the same moment, one of Caesar's men gestures at Lao Zu's body and notes that it's still warm. Caesar shrugs and says that death is a routine occurrence here. Everyone trades their lives for money, he explains, so craving more wealth isn't shameful, and neither is dying for it. Wrapping an arm around Chen's shoulders, he tells him these magic crystals are worth an entire city, appearing only under the red moon, and a single one has the power to completely transform a life. But obtaining them comes at the cost of a life he calls worthless. Turning to the expendables, Caesar orders them to gather every magic crystal and toss them into the basket. He warns them that if anyone tries to escape, he'll kill them on the spot. Zhang cries out that collecting the crystals is suicide. Caesar eyes him and reminds him of his earlier words, that he'd do anything to earn money for his wife's treatment. He tells Zhang again that exchanging a useless life for money is nothing to be ashamed of. Caesar reaches out to grab a crystal but then suddenly pulls back. Tears streaking down his face, Zhang mutters that he doesn't want to die like this. He says he only came to clear the gambling debt that ruined him. Chen, watching all of this, realizes he could never rival Caesar, even at full power. Resigned, he asks to join Caesar's team, accepting the earlier offer, even if he's just a fire mage. Caesar turns to his team and asks if he really said that. When they confirm, he motions Chen over. Chen drops to his knees before him and vows to lay down his life in service. Without warning, Caesar kicks him hard, knocking him to the ground. He spits that he'll never allow garbage to enter his elite team. Then he declares that he's going to kill all of them now. As tensions rise, the protagonist silently appears from behind and transforms his clone back into a blood nightmare. Joe prepares to leap into battle, but the protagonist advises him to stay calm and wait. He'll handle it himself. King readies himself to collect the crystals. One of Caesar's men shouts at him to give a warning before touching anything. Ignoring him, Qing picks up a crystal. Everyone sprints behind the cliff for cover, but nothing happens to the protagonist. They try to figure out whether the traps are ineffective against him, or if they deactivate after a single use. Thanks to the protagonist's unique abilities, he meets all the hidden requirements. While he can still get injured, death isn't a risk for him while collecting crystals. Qing picks up another one, but again, the trap fails to trigger. Caesar stares in disbelief, muttering that Qing's luck must be over 60 points, an impossibility for a mere scavenger. He adds that most job changers can't even increase their luck stat naturally. It can only mean that the death trap has failed. His teammates nod in agreement, and one of them boldly picks up a crystal. Instantly, a laser beam pierces his forehead, and he collapses to the ground. Caesar narrows his eyes and concludes that Ye Qing must possess a rare trait tied to his job class, one that grants him extraordinary luck. He asks if Qing poured all his stat points into luck, but the protagonist calmly replies that he distributed his points evenly across all his attributes. Now Caesar admits his original plan had been to use all of their corpses, but after witnessing Qing's abilities, he's changed his mind. He only wants the corpse of someone blessed with high luck. The others, he says, are disposable. Caesar commands his men to capture every last one of them. Zhang tenses up, visibly nervous. After all, their opponents are members of Blood Oath, and there's no way they can stand a chance against a group like that. Chu immediately suggests retreat. Meanwhile, Chen has already taken off, sprinting ahead with 10 magic crystals clenched tightly in his hand. Our boy protests. They can't just run like this. They have to stand and fight. Zhang objects, reminding him they're severely outnumbered. But Qing flashes a confident smile and counters that they're not lacking in numbers. Without hesitation, he summons demonized spiders, which charge toward the Blood Oath group with terrifying speed. Joe starts freaking out, overwhelmed by the realization that they now have to deal not only with enemies but monsters too. Our boy quickly calms him, explaining that the creatures are on their side. Joe stares at him in disbelief. stunned by the revelation that he can actually control monsters. Meanwhile, the protagonist studies the Blood Oath members and notes that all of them are above level 15. While he still isn't certain about the exact power gap between monsters and humans, he's confident it won't become a major problem. Across the battlefield, Caesar observes the monster control and immediately realizes what it means. This guy must have one of the hidden jobs. At the same time, our boy attempts to check Caesar's level but fails to identify it, which can only mean one thing. Caesar is either equal to or stronger than him. Caesar doesn't waste time. He instructs his men to take down the monsters first, then wipe out the rest of the cannon fodder. Our boy turns to his team and urges them to follow the path Chen took. If they want any chance at survival, that's the only option. Sheng remarks that, dumb as he may be, our boy is clearly doing his best to help them all. Something about it gives him hope, and he takes off running. But Joe remains rooted in place, still unsure. The protagonist tells him bluntly, if he wants to live and keep exploring other abysses, now's the time to run. He sprints off as well, shouting that he won't forget Joe's sacrifice. But just as they near the exit, a sudden crash sends a cascade of stones tumbling down, sealing off the way out. Jang turns to our boy, yelling in frustration, demanding to know what kind of mess he's gotten them into this time. Joe quickly apologizes, blaming himself. Ever since he entered the abyss, nothing has gone his way, one misfortune after another. Meanwhile, the Blood Oath members engage in a brutal clash with our boy and the demonized spiders. The creatures are strong enough to hold their own against most foes, but fighting a disciplined, organized group like Blood Oath proves far more difficult. Amid the chaos, Ching slices through one member's legs with his dagger and prepares to strike again. Just then, the hunters retaliate, loosing arrows at him, but Ching evades them with sharp reflexes. The hunters exchange surprised looks, clearly not expecting him to dodge that. One urges the other to adjust his aim and fire again. This time, our boy reacts. He slices the arrow mid-flight and unleashes a great flame explosion at them. The force of the spell sends a wave of fear through the enemy. Realizing just how strong he truly is, they abandon the fight and flee. Another Oath member charges toward Zhou, but Zhang steps in to intercept the attack. Zhou collapses to the floor, and Zhang urges him to stand and fight, reminding him that he's the reason they're trapped here. Blood covers Zhang's mouth and face. His opponent clearly overpowers him. Breathing heavily, Zhang mutters that he never should have come to the abyss. But for now, he might as well die once he's gone. So are all his debts. As he braces for the final blow, Zhou suddenly casts a buff on the enemy. This time, the spell lands successfully, even though it paralyzes Zhang as well. Meanwhile, the protagonist watches in confusion, trying to make sense of their plan. The opponent he's locked in combat with remarks that, despite his impressive strength, even he has limits, and right now, he's pushing past them. Qing summons his clone, then unleashes a swarm of spiders, draining his mana rapidly. To keep up, he downs a magic potion to restore his energy, but his opponent, a necromancer, scoffs and tells him there's no point. It's already too late. He explains that necromancy is a formidable craft, and the undead under his control will fight without end. Realization hits the protagonist. This man commands corpses. With firm resolve, he announces he'll bring peace to the dead. In response, glowing magical hands begin absorbing the reanimated corpses, disassembling them one by one. The necromancer demands to know where they've been taken. Without answering, the protagonist strikes. Caesar, watching from a distance, begins to look impressed. After slaying the necromancer, Qing approaches Caesar. He admits he would have let them all take the money and leave. But what truly infuriated him was hearing human lives weighed against magic crystals and being treated like disposable tools. Caesar smirks and warns Qing not to get cocky just because he's grown a bit stronger. He reminds him that this world devours the weak and only the ruthless rise to the top. Suddenly, someone nearby pleads for mercy. It's Zhou. Caesar bursts out laughing, convinced these so-called cannon fodder won't be leaving the abyss alive. Zhou agrees with him calmly, but Zhang shouts furiously at Zhou, ordering him not to engage with the enemy and to kill them instead. From the moment they rebelled, Zhang declares it was certain he'd eliminate them. Zhou, however, responds that he can't even kill a monster. His role has always been support. On the other side, Caesar outlines the stakes of this battle. One of them is bound to die. But the protagonist cuts in, admitting he doesn't fully grasp Caesar's reasoning, yet firmly believes everyone deserves a chance to enter the abyss and to leave it alive. Without warning, Caesar launches a ferocious attack, slamming the protagonist into a wall. Dazed, he realizes he's never faced someone this powerful. Caesar strikes again, but this time the protagonist narrowly evades the blow. Caesar sneers, declaring that in comparison to his power, everyone else is nothing but trash. Meanwhile, the Blood Oath member relentlessly hammers away at Zhou, while Zhang shouts at him to fight back, reminding him that he's their leader. Zhou flashes back to the moment he volunteered to take that role, regretting how naively he assumed leadership wouldn't involve fighting monsters. What he hadn't admitted to anyone was that he's so weak, he can't even stand on equal footing with the rest. He begs the attacker to spare him, confessing that he's genuinely powerless. Xiao remembers how even his former teammates abandoned him, not just because he couldn't hold his own against monsters, but because he failed at the only thing he was supposed to do. buffing. That had been his one contribution, and even that wasn't good enough. It was during this low point that Caesar approached him with an offer to join his team. Caesar, who has been locked in combat with the protagonist throughout this battle, continues pressing forward. Qing, already wounded, suffers further as Caesar draws upon a martial technique passed down from a fighter named Kang Longjin. The move targets internal organs and causes severe physical trauma. If the victim casts magic afterward, the injury deepens so drastically it can become fatal. It's a signature combat skill capable of killing even a master magician. The protagonist retreats from Caesar, thoughts racing about the blood loss debuff steadily draining his strength. Then a sudden realization hits. He shouts for Joe. In that moment, Caesar strikes again, launching an attack that sends the protagonist sprawling to the ground right in front of Joe. Qing, bleeding and weakened, speaks up. He shares the weight of knowing what it feels like to be useless, how it gnaws at you to depend on someone else's charity for survival because you're just weak, disposable trash. He admits he once dreamed of having more power than anyone else, and that unfulfilled desire left him constantly disappointed in himself. He says he used to be just like Joe, helpless, but he never tried to run from danger. Weakness alone wasn't a reason to cower. The protagonist reflects on his own early battles with monsters, back when he had no powers at all and felt utterly worthless. But what he's come to fear more than physical danger is the slow erosion of his will, his weakening heart. Joe, confused, asks if he really means his heart, and the protagonist confirms he's talking about Joe himself. Still deep in thought, the protagonist recalls his fight against that towering monster, a brutal battle he eventually won. He tells Joe that it was only by summoning all his courage that he managed to kill it. He then declares that he's been preparing his whole life to become a king. One of the Blood Oath members, clearly moved, remarks that the protagonist used to be nothing more than a garbage picker, implying his rise is all the more impressive. Shu remains fixated on the word king. He mutters to himself that he has to become strong, otherwise he'll die far too easily. Living behind a mask, avoiding confrontation, had always been the simpler path. But now, for the first time, he feels the desire to grow stronger too. His opponent, however, bursts into laughter, mocking him. A mere level 3 like Joe couldn't even scratch level 17 armor. With a sneer, the enemy dares him to come forward and fight. Undeterred, Joe begins buffing into his mic. Caesar pauses, puzzled, trying to piece together what's happening. That's when the protagonist grins and declares he's just discovered the best sport in the world. He's gained the inspiration status, a powerful state that boosts his damage, defense, speed, and resistance by 15%. Seizing the moment, the protagonist summons the Blood Nightmare, which charges forward and strikes their enemy. The man bound by the Blood Oath fights desperately for his life against the Blood Nightmare, while Qing clashes fiercely with Caesar. At the same time, he reflects on his regeneration speed, remarkably fast, thanks to the immense reservoir of magic within his body. He triggers Berserk mode, gore spraying in all directions as he sprints towards Caesar, dagger poised to kill. Caesar quickly realizes his armor has failed, pierced clean through by the blade. The protagonist acknowledges the splattered blood around him is providing a significant advantage, though the blood loss debuff continues to take its toll. Without wasting another second, he bolts forward, determined to finish the fight, and lashes out at Caesar once more. Caesar intercepts the attack with his arm and growls that there's no way he'll lose to someone who's only trained for 20 hours. He demands to know if his opponent can now feel the overwhelming difference in their strength. Then he hammers a brutal punch into the protagonist, slamming him to the floor. Towering over him, Caesar sneers that he has no patience for weak, skill-based combat styles. Instead, he channels raw force, unleashing a heaven-breaking punch designed to kill instantly. But Qing refuses to yield. Caesar, irritated by his persistence, calls him a fool and declares that he'll have to suffer the consequences, promising once again that he will never lose to someone like him. Meanwhile, the protagonist reallocates all his remaining points into strength, boosting it to a formidable 176 FP. Caesar stands in momentary confusion, trying to process what he just heard, as the protagonist steps toward him with steady confidence. He notes that with his strength stat rising so dramatically, his muscle mass has visibly increased as well. With that, he hurls a punch and says that while he knows little about martial artists or their techniques for channeling destructive power, amassing 300 FP all at once should be more than enough to land a decisive strike. The two surge forward, fists drawn, and collide mid-charge. The impact is devastating. Our protagonist's strength proves overwhelming. Caesar's fingers snap under the pressure, and he's launched backward, skidding a great distance. Without hesitation, the protagonist dashes after him and begins pummeling him relentlessly, eager to bring the fight to a swift conclusion. He tells Caesar that starting today, he's officially part of the cannon fodder squad. The words sting, and Caesar's mind drifts back 8 years, to a time when he was nothing more than a grunt cleaning other people's equipment. They had treated him like worthless trash. In the present, the protagonist presses further, declaring that Caesar was always meant to be cannon fodder, and will remain so for the rest of his life. The words trigger another memory, the time Caesar fought a colossal monster to prove his worth. During that brutal battle, his mandible shattered, 8 of his ribs broke, and even his heart was pierced. His liver, spleen, and kidneys suffered critical damage, and an enormous number of magic crystals were needed just to keep him alive. By then, abyssal technology had advanced enough to extract cells from abyssal creatures and fuse them with human biology. A doctor informed him that his DNA matched the monster's, meaning he would survive, but there was a catch. The procedure would turn him into a hybrid. He officially became a member of Lionheart by proving his worth. The boss handed him a badge and commanded him to become his dog. He agreed without hesitation, even asking about his teammates. The leader informed him that all his comrades were already dead. This was a world that devoured people whole, and unless he continued proving his value, he'd be discarded like trash, just like them. Meanwhile, in the present, Caesar rises to his feet, mustering every ounce of strength, and launches an attack on the protagonist. His boss had once explained the essence of magic crystals, emphasizing that their power increases during the blood moon. Because of the transplanted monster organs within him, Caesar can absorb the energy of these crystals. This also grants him the ability to temporarily exceed even the boss-level threshold of the abyss. The protagonist's system notifies him, Caesar, the boss, has emerged, and his berserk mode has ended. The protagonist studies Caesar's body, trying to make sense of the transformation as his system categorizes him as a boss-level monster. Caesar snarls that all it takes is surrendering human dignity, and anyone can become a monster, free of limits. He lunges at the protagonist once more. This time, convinced he's killed him, Caesar stands over the unmoving figure. He mutters that while trash can't challenge powerful players, Qing's hidden strength is unexpectedly potent. Still, he's sure he can kill him with a single punch. He notes that Qing has already exhausted much of his strength, making him just another weak player before him, an undeniable truth. Caesar presses a hand to his own face and declares that to gain true strength, one must reveal their ugliness. A mad laugh escapes him, but then something nags at his memory. He turns and begins striding toward Joe. Joe, paralyzed by fear, blurts out that he's not ugly, not even a little. But Caesar doesn't care. Zhu had already failed the crystal harvesting mission, and now he would be the final cannon fodder to witness this tragedy. Caesar strikes at him, declaring he'll grant him a heroic death. Joe quickly raises a hand to stop him, saying he has something to say before he dies. Annoyed by what he sees as nonsense, Caesar grabs him by the collar, demanding to know if he has any last wishes. Zhu responds that he wants to leave the abyss alive. He then points behind Caesar, stating that he isn't the final cannon fodder to witness the tragedy. Behind them, Qing stands upright, having already consumed the magic potion. His exhaustion has vanished completely. King reveals that observing Caesar's body again with his observing eye had proven ineffective. Instead, he used Blood Nightmare to access hidden information by making direct contact with Caesar's body. Realization hits Caesar. He hadn't killed the real Qing, only a clone. The protagonist states that the cost of these powers is far greater than Caesar imagined. Though Berserker mode significantly boosted his strength, it also drained him severely, as he had forced himself to wield power beyond his limits. He tells Caesar he will now pay the price for his greedy desire to become a monster, even if the abyss itself wills it. Caesar bursts into laughter, claiming that all his powers belong solely to him and have nothing to do with the abyss. He turns back toward Joe, preparing to strike again, but the protagonist intercepts him, giving Joe a chance to flee. Furious, Caesar charges at the protagonist, but Qing meets him head-on, landing a solid punch to the top of Caesar's head. He notes that Caesar's speed has declined, his body already affected by the transformation. The two clash once more, and the protagonist thinks to himself, if only he had the right weapon right now. At that moment, Joe shouts his name and hurls a dagger toward him. He slashes at Caesar's arm with the dagger, and Caesar realizes every strike from Qing is registering as a critical hit. Our protagonist reminds him that even now, he's still stronger. Caesar shouts back not to humiliate him, or he'll ensure he dies a more miserable death. After all, he claims to be of a higher existence. In the same breath, he delivers a punch. Qing counters with a hit of his own, declaring he's nothing more than a monster. At that moment, Caesar's condition worsens. His body continues shifting further into something inhuman. Our protagonist tells him there's nothing left to be done. He's fully mutated. He asks if Caesar can hear the call of the abyss, but Caesar howls back not to drag him down and hurls a curse at him to die. In desperation, he insists he's already proven his worth, that he's no longer mere cannon fodder but something beyond it. Joe suggests it's time for them to strike, but Qing informs him his body is being overtaken by a blood nightmare. King then receives a challenge: win the battle without killing Caesar if he wants rare rewards. Though it seems impossible, Caesar likely won't survive. Our protagonist acknowledges that if rare rewards are on the line, it's still worth attempting. Qing transforms into a blood nightmare and tells Joe to draw Caesar's attention for just 5 seconds. but then he realizes he doesn't actually need to kill him. Monsters are of the abyss, live in the abyss, and the abyss welcomes those who abandon their humanity to become monsters. That's the nature of the abyss. Even more so, all monsters enter a berserk state during the red moon. If he can survive this challenge, the fortune he'll gain will be immense, and our protagonist feels driven to see it through. Meanwhile, on the other side, Chen discovers a treasure and beams with joy, convinced he's about to become incredibly rich and take on a whole new identity. Behind him, however, Caesar looms. Chu and Ching are now sitting in a bar, and Joe is pleading with him to become his boss. He says ever since hearing him talk about preparing all his life to become a king, he felt inspired and committed himself to following him. But Ching turns him down, saying he was just trying to sound cool back then, spouting nonsense. Joe, still addressing him as boss, insists it wasn't nonsense at all. Thanks to him, he finally realized his true worth. Ching asks about his future plans. Joe replies that he's staying with him. Just like he said, he's good support. Ching tries to recall when he ever said that. Joe then stands up and declares he's going to become the king of support. Meanwhile, our boy reflects that with agility 2 and luck 1, it's kind of impressive Joe even has a place on the battlefield. Still, for now, encouraging him to fight on the front lines would be reckless and dangerous. Joe starts talking excitedly about how they'll fight as a team, but our boy cuts him off, saying he doesn't think he should enter the abyss anymore. He explains that while Joe supports others with his powers, he also depends on others for protection, so it can't truly be called support. He apologizes and admits he doesn't want to see him risking his life again. Then he hands him 1,000 magic crystals, saying they'll sustain him for a long time, on one condition: he must promise never to enter the abyss again. Joe says he appreciates Ching's concern, but he refuses to live like trash. He doesn't fear death, he just doesn't want to be looked down on. Our protagonist asks how he plans to protect himself then. Ching pulls out Lao Li's sword and asks whether his microphone only occupies one hand. As far as he knows, a bard's role is split between half magic and half physical. He plants the sword firmly on the table in front of him and tells Joe that he can use magic weapons to cast spells while mastering offensive techniques at the same time. It's his chance to repay Lao Li by wielding his sword. Chu says he doesn't need the magic crystals anyway, so Ching suggests giving them to the Lao Li and Lao Ju families, because they're bound to earn much more in the future. A team stands in front of the Gate of Abyss as a girl delivers a report. Following the Blood Red Moon incident, a squad of S-ranked job changers was dispatched to eliminate the monsters. Inside the Abyss, they discovered 8 corpses, members of the Blood Oath group, including Caesar, whose body had transformed into a monster. Alongside them, they uncovered another corpse, identified as Chen Xingdian, the one previously accused of murdering his own teammates. High-quality equipment was found beside him, and it appears he was killed by the mutated remains of former squad leader Caesar. The outcome is unexpected, yet the two remain undeniably linked. Her boss asks if that's the only factor involved, and she confirms that it must be just him. Another member remarks that this means their plan has failed, but the boss reassures them they can still find someone else, insisting that Caesar was nothing more than a worthless small fry. Inside Shenfeng's People Hospital, a patient sits on the floor, sobbing as he pleads for forgiveness. Clutching a key in his hand, he vows he's going to follow through this time. Suddenly the key emits a brilliant glow, as if cursed, and its effect spreads beyond the hospital, blanketing the entire city. An abyssal gate materializes inside the hospital, and people scream for someone to notify the authorities. A monster chases after little Joe and his sister. As it lunges at them, little Joe collapses to the ground, and the creature devours his sister. Suddenly, our protagonist jolts awake and realizes it was all a dream. Still groggy, he senses he's forgetting something important about today. He heads to a flower shop and asks the florist, Ms. Zhang, for a bouquet like usual. She asks if he's going to visit his little sister, Ye. He nods, explaining that they were involved in a tragic accident here. Miss Zhang responds that his sister is lucky to have a brother like him, and then asks about his new haircut. He explains that on his way here, he ran into a military enthusiast who insisted on trying out a new cutting technique on him. He picks up some flowers and offers to help Ms. Zhang arrange them outside. She thanks him warmly for the gesture. King watches as a line of vehicles heads off in the distance. Ms. Zhang comments that she's seen many vehicles belonging to job changers traveling toward the hospital lately, and asks if he knows what's going on. The moment he hears the word hospital, he bolts, leaping from rooftop to rooftop. When he arrives and learns that an abyssal gate has opened inside, he immediately searches for answers. A policeman confronts him and tells him to leave, explaining the area is restricted. But then the officer freezes. He's recognized who he's speaking to. Allowing him to pass, the officer waves him through. Another cop yells, demanding to know why he let a civilian into the gate. The first officer replies that they shouldn't interfere, because he was among the ones who came last time. As he moves forward, our protagonist thinks of his sister and swears he won't fail again. Due to the abyssification, the hospital has warped into an abyssal dimension, much like the one he encountered in the shopping mall. He finds himself in a room that appears relatively clean, indicating the squad that arrived earlier already swept through. He spots a bottle and notes that the squad must be wealthy. Not every job changer can afford something like this. It's a large high-grade magic bottle that restores 85% of MP, and he can absorb half of it within the next 30 seconds. He tells himself he needs to be fully prepared, as mana consumption will spike if he plans to tackle the abyss alone and rescue Little Joe. Scanning the area with his observing eye, the system informs him that both visible paths lead to a point of no return. He must choose one direction. Examining the marks left on the floor by the previous squad, he decides to head the opposite way to increase the chance of finding Little Joe. The space is massive, and though time is limited, he has no choice but to search the entire area. He urges himself to move quickly. An average person wouldn't survive in this place for long. He sprints along the path he committed to, noticing the untouched condition of the carpet. So pristine it's clear no one has stepped through this place before. As he pushes ahead, he becomes aware that the passage behind him is being devoured by darkness, forming a solid barrier that seals off any route of return. Still, he recalls a useful trick. In a maze, marking explored areas on a map can keep you oriented. He instructs the Eye of Argos to project the map, but it responds that it's unable to do so here. It's a law of the abyss, one that explains why others resorted to carving markings into the surfaces with their blades. Without warning, tentacles begin slithering from the chamber ahead, one that resembles a trap room. Yet, there's no sound of mechanisms at work. The atmosphere hangs in silence, far too still, an unnatural quiet that unsettles him. A presence moves behind him. Before the attacker can strike, Ching whirls around and slashes clean through the figure, slicing the body in half. But the victory is short-lived. The severed parts reconnect. His opponent possesses a physical immunity. The man retaliates with a deafening status effect that assaults Ching's senses. He clamps his hands over his ears, trying to muffle the piercing scream. In that moment, he admits he severely underestimated the abyss. This place isn't just dangerous, it can rob him of something as vital as his hearing. Blood now trickles from his mouth and nose. He mutters that he's confronting a monster governed by the rule itself, but it's not unfamiliar. He remembers facing this same threat 3 years ago. Back then, he had been collecting crystals and stumbled upon what appeared to be statues. But they weren't ornaments, they were monsters in disguise. As he turned to flee, a man warned him to keep his eyes fixed on them without blinking. They were weeping stone statues. Even hearing about them sent a chill through him. He admits the man's presence alone had terrified him. But the stranger yelled not to look at him, only the statues. Every creature in the abyss operates by a specific logic or rule, and the stronger the monster, the more rigid and dangerous that logic becomes. The man explained that the weeping stone statues, classified as S-class entities, don't typically attack job changers. But once someone begins looking at them, the rule binds the statues to that person. And the moment the target averts their gaze, the statues charge and kill without hesitation. He remembered asking the man what they were supposed to do. The answer was simple but terrifying. Slowly retreat from the room without blinking. Step by step, they backed away, maintaining unbroken eye contact. But just as they were nearly out, Ching stumbled over something and collapsed. The statues sprang into motion. In a split second, the other man reached a lever and slammed the door shut. He told Ching that luck had favored him this time. Otherwise, he'd have ended up like the rest of the job changers. They were just scavengers, unable to fight. But when it came to survival experience, even job changers lagged behind. Back in the present, Ching weighs his options for defeating the current attacker. If the creature's rule grants physical immunity, perhaps magic could bypass it. He unleashes a massive burst of flame, but the fire fizzles harmlessly, leaving the enemy untouched. It stings, he realizes with some embarrassment, that fire is the only spell he's truly mastered. Time is pressing. He still needs to track down the boat and can't afford to linger in this chamber much longer. More importantly, although the demon is immune to physical attacks, all its strikes have also been purely physical. That contradiction raises doubts. It's a suspicious rule. He activates the observing eye. With a clearer view of the creature's mechanics, a plan crystallizes. He sees it now. He knows exactly how to bring him down. Our protagonist grasps the rules and mechanics. The demon spirit materializes only when an attack is executed. Since the scythe remains drawn, the spirit has lost the protective benefits granted by those rules, making its physical form vulnerable. However, the demon is now transforming into its second form. His vision blurs under the overwhelming screech, and he considers deactivating the blood clone to preserve his life. But he quickly dismisses the thought. He just activated it, and the skill requires at least 30 seconds to cool down. On top of that, his remaining magic power can't sustain the drain of constant summons. For now, he simply needs to avoid any fatal blows. He realizes that the demon he's fighting is, in essence, an assassin, one he can't overpower through attributes alone. Activating the man-eating plant regeneration, he begins to heal his wounds and cure the deafness. He needs to recover fully if he doesn't want a single strike to finish him. In its new form, the demon spirit begins shrinking back from anything luminous, hesitating even to approach him due to the faint glow of healing magic. At last, he's discovered a way to fight back. Once more, he unleashes the great flame explosion and presses his hand against his chest. Instantly, flames engulf his entire body. The spirit recoils and begins fleeing in panic. Fire is its life force, and this demon, at its core, is the soul of an innocent being burned alive. If he can't hurl a fireball, he'll become one. Again, he casts the great flame explosion, hurling it toward the spirit. The blast flings him backward from the sheer force. The demon burns violently, unable to escape. At last, our protagonist has defeated it. But the system alerts him. His arm is severely burned, making him incapable of wielding weapons or casting spells. Despite the pain, he laughs. Victory came at a steep price. Now he must wait for the regeneration ability to finish so he can heal. He also worries the demon spirit might turn to ashes. He needs it intact to recycle. Fortunately, he manages to recycle it and receives an artifact called Soul Reaper. With this artifact, he can summon a demon spirit to charge forward and unleash a massive scythe harvest, inflicting 5 times the base damage. If any target dies as a result, he recovers 15% of both health and mana. Trigger the despair harvest more than 5 times, and he enters an incorporeal state for 1 second, during which he becomes immune to physical attacks. However, artifacts are soulbound and can't be traded. He realizes this card differs greatly from previous ones. It's a soulbound artifact. Moreover, the soul harvesting blade transforms any slain target into health and mana, allowing him to annihilate a group in a single blow. But there's a cost. If the attack fails to kill, the damage reflects back on him, and it could be fatal. Precision is essential. Glancing back, he sees the sealed door unlocking. Meanwhile, his regeneration cooldown finishes. He's ready to descend deeper into the abyss, to rescue his sister. Far below, humans hang upside down from the ceiling, their bodies mutilated by monsters. Torture fills the dark chamber. His sister Jo hides behind a pile of sacks. Her teddy bear lies just behind a monster engrossed in cutting apart human limbs. She throws a bottle across the chamber, creating a distraction. The monster shifts its gaze toward the noise. Taking the chance, Jo leaps from behind the sacks and hits the ground. As the monster's focus remains elsewhere, she reaches for the teddy bear. But just before she can grab it, the creature slams its foot onto the toy and growls menacingly at her. She calls out to her brother, pleading for help as the monster closes in, ready to kill her. In a sudden flash, someone leaps onto the monster from behind and slices its body cleanly in half with a single swing of his sword. The man is Wu Ming, a dual swordsman. Without sparing her a glance, Ming turns and begins walking away while Jo remains on the floor, stunned and trembling. She quickly grabs hold of his leg and begs him to take her with him. He tells her to stay hidden for now. There aren't many monsters left in this area. Besides, she'll end up dead if she keeps chasing after him. Ju insists she must stay alive, for the sake of the promise she made with her brother. 7 years ago, her spinal nerve had been severely damaged by a monster from the abyss, so badly that she was told she might never walk normally again. The doctor had informed their family that the only possible cure could lie within the mysterious powers of the abyss. Her brother had considered venturing into the abyss himself, but the doctor had warned him it was far too dangerous for someone of his low level. He hadn't listened. To make matters worse, the cost of treatment was extremely high. With both of their parents already gone, all responsibility had fallen onto him. Determined to support them, he made the decision to enter the abyss, not just to earn money, but to search for a cure. He promised his sister he would avoid danger and return safely. On the other hand, Jo had made a promise of her own, that one day she would walk again. Now, in the present, she tells Ming she can't die here, not when her brother is out there, trying to find a way into the abyss to reach her. Ming picks her up, but warns her clearly that he won't be protecting her from the monsters. Whether she lives or dies means nothing to him. She quickly assures him she won't interfere or slow him down. All she wants is to follow. After a moment of silence, he finally introduces himself. Meanwhile, the main character walks deeper into the abyss, his thoughts drifting to its grim rules. One of them forbids healing beyond the physical condition a person had upon entry. Otherwise, he would have found a cure for his sister long ago. He suddenly halts when he comes across dozens of corpses strewn across the ground. It's obvious a battle occurred here, one far beyond the scale of a typical fight between job changers. Strangely, no monsters remain in sight, which suggests survivors might be nearby. His eyes narrow as he focuses on the body of a gigantic beast lying dead ahead, its massive form sliced in half. Yet even with his observing eye, he detects no traces of magic. This implies that the one who did this possessed incredibly high agility and intelligence. He ponders whether the attacker relied on brute force alone. A faint smirk crosses his lips as he mutters to himself, "It seems this individual operates at a bone-crushing level." Ming moves steadily through the abyss with Jo trailing behind him when, all of a sudden, gunfire rings out. Bullets tear through Ming's body. Jo panics, crying out in alarm and asking if he's all right. 4 years ago, an A-class abyss known as the King of the Ancient Tomb had existed. Back then, a man had shouted at Ming and the other members of their group, demanding obedience. After all, he had paid a hefty sum for their service. As a criminal with no legal identity, Ming's only chance for survival had been to join a private hunting group as a mercenary. This group was made up of people who viewed life and death differently, individuals assigned to suicide missions. They had been ordered to assassinate that king, with the promise of 2,050,000 yuan as a reward. Ming succeeded in slaying the Demon King, but when the time came to pay, the man who made the offer backed out. Among the remains, they discovered a box and a locket left behind by the demon. The man who opened the box found it empty. Suddenly, he disintegrated into sand, an instant curse triggered by the artifact. The cursed sand even invaded his eyes. On top of that, he couldn't make use of the locket either, as it responded only to one person. That locket was no ordinary item. It was an immortal relic artifact capable of turning its bearer into an undead creature. However, the transformation came at a steep cost: the loss of the ability to feel pain or any emotional shifts. Only sacred or healing spells could deal fatal damage to such beings, as ordinary spells had no effect on the undead. In the present, Ming tells Joe all of this, how these events shaped him into what he is now, someone who can't die. Joe listens, intrigued, and asks what kind of curse could turn blood into sand. Ming says nothing and simply turns away. Frustrated, Joe yells at him for ignoring her. Our protagonist battles a swarm of demons, his mind racing. Despite limited time, he managed to allocate all his stat points, every attribute now surpassing 200. Yet uncertainty gnaws at him. He has no clue what kind of monster lurks beyond the next door. A miscalculation in stat distribution could have already cost him his life. Though the current enemies aren't particularly strong, their sheer numbers are wearing him down. Then the system flashes a warning. His mana has dropped below 5%. With that, all skills become unusable. For now, he must rely entirely on raw stats to stay in the fight. But the clashes seem endless. Fatigue builds in his limbs, his stamina slowly deteriorating. Even his mana, once fully charged, now lingers at half. Only large mana potions remain in his inventory, but he's reserving those for true emergencies. Fortunately, he's wielding the Soul Reaper artifact, which might recover his health over time. Eventually, the system notifies him the artifact has activated. His health and mana restore to full. That's when he senses another presence in the room, one that doesn't match the monsters. As he steps forward, his foot accidentally lands on a pair of glasses, shattering one of the lenses. From beneath a barrel, a man erupts in panic, yelling not to be killed. He's human too. He crawls out and gestures toward the broken glasses, asking the protagonist to hand them over. The man introduces himself as Song Qingshan, a doctor and researcher working at the hospital. He explains how monsters stormed into his ward and began slaughtering people. With no other option, he hid, eventually squeezing into the barrel to avoid detection. The protagonist asks if he's seen any survivors. Shan shakes his head, saying even the healthy don't stand a chance in this place, let alone those without limbs. Qing's expression hardens. Anger flares in his voice. How could a doctor speak so coldly about his patients? Shan counters without flinching. He insists there's nothing strange about it. Survival comes first, and without any combat abilities, he's powerless to protect anyone. He adds that if the protagonist truly came to save him, then he should cut the chatter and focus on keeping him safe. Shan presses further, asking whether Lionheart offered him a handsome reward to extract him from this place. As the protagonist hears the name Lionheart, his thoughts drift to Caesar, the man from whom they recovered a badge. Ju had explained that it belonged to the Lionheart Hunter group, known for admitting only the elite, but to Qing their standards seem absurdly high. Back in the present, as the protagonist continues deeper into the abyss, Shan shouts that he's heading in the wrong direction. The exit lies the other way. Qing asks if Shan came from the ward area. Shan scoffs, telling him not to bother rescuing the disabled. They're penniless and worthless. The protagonist replies that he's going to the ward for his sister. Shan suddenly tenses, realizing Qing isn't here on Lionheart's orders. The protagonist confirms it. And as for garbage, he clarifies, he only collects it. He never intended to save it. The protagonist approaches another door when Shan, trailing behind, warns him that the area ahead has transformed into a deep labyrinth. Inside, countless branching paths await, practically designed to get explorers lost. Shan offers to show the correct route. They can find his sister together, then make their way back. Receiving no response, Shan interprets the silence as consent and steps into the teleportation gate. Qing follows. Inside, Shan refers to him as Master and inquires about his party. The protagonist replies curtly, he's alone, a solo hunter. Shan starts rambling about elite groups like Tartarus, Lionheart, and Cloud Top, all of which pay high salaries to skilled hunters. He offers to introduce Qing to one of them after they escape. The protagonist's patience snaps. He tells Shan to shut up and just guide him to his sister. Her name is Ye Xiaozhou. The name visibly shakes Shan. Memories surface. He recalls a man who had convinced Xiaozhou and another girl, Lin Shugu, to become test subjects. Shan had asked how he persuaded them. The man explained he merely questioned if they wanted to remain burdens on their families that struggled to pay their bills. He'd asked Shugu if she wished to keep being a burden to her father, recently released from prison, a man who never visited because he saw her as dead weight. To Zhou, he'd posed a similar question. Was she comfortable making her brother risk his life daily just to cover her medical expenses? Both girls had agreed. Desperate for a cure, they accepted his offer. He presented a so-called solution to their illnesses. They signed the contracts without hesitation. They were deceived with ease. Shan and the man had stood before a machine where a girl's body floated in suspended animation. Sean remarked that even this trash had become useful. They were experimenting on girls to accelerate job changer development. These embryos, he explained, could be sold for billions, a supposed contribution to society. Inside the chamber, Shugu remained submerged. On Shan's command, another doctor injected a substance into her, an abyssal stem cell solution. But the procedure failed. Panic broke out. Sean silenced the room, reminding them that only one experiment had failed. They had contingencies in place. Then a girl burst in, reporting that a man, father of the first subject, was outside causing a commotion. Sean ordered his men to bring him in. 2 guards dragged the man forward, stating that his daughter was with the director. The father confronted Shan, eyes locked on the machine holding his daughter's corpse. He said she'd signed the contract willingly, but the experiment had killed her. Sean assured him compensation would be issued according to the agreement. They would also retain the body for further research. The father lashed out, landing a punch on Shan's nose. He accused him of being heartless, of exploiting innocent lives in the name of science. Sean snapped back, calling him a cripple who couldn't even walk, claiming society would benefit more from their bodies than their survival. His men held the father down as Sean coldly told him to take the compensation and leave. Tears streamed down the man's face. He called Sean a murderer, someone who tricked a minor into signing a death contract. He didn't want money, just his daughter back. Sean responded with a nod, and the guards dragged the father away while he shouted curses at them. Sean turned to another machine, this one containing Xiaozhou. He asked the researcher for an update. The man reported that no energy had been detected so far. She required more observation. The director asked Sean if Xiaozhou's brother might also make a scene like the other father. Sean dismissed the concern. Her brother, he claimed, was just a scavenger. He wouldn't pose a threat. Back in the present, Shan stiffens at the mention of her name. The protagonist notices and questions him. Shan dodges, saying he isn't sure and that maybe she's on the next floor. Internally, he wonders how a mere scavenger became this strong, and whether that earlier massacre of the beast had even been real. The doctor mutters under his breath that if the protagonist really threw his sister into a monster's den to die, he'll kill him for it. They keep walking, but Shan's uneasy expression doesn't fade. The protagonist glances at him and asks if he's forgotten the route. Sean shakes his head, mumbling that he's just worried about his sister. His voice trembles as he explains that a horde of monsters has appeared at the hospital, and he fears she might be in danger. Fear steadily takes over him, and he mutters under his breath that he'll blame everything on the monsters. He knows he can't afford to admit the truth, that he's the one responsible for her death. Suddenly, a noise echoes from up ahead. The protagonist reacts immediately, yanking the doctor back and striking him from behind just as a sword whips through the air in front of them. Narrowing his eyes, the protagonist mutters that this doesn't feel like a monster's attack. A figure emerges, Ming. He steps into view and quickly apologizes for mistaking them for monsters. Turning to Dr. Sean, he announces that he was sent by Lionheart and has come to rescue him. Sean erupts in frustration, shouting at Ming, asking if he's truly here to rescue him, because just a few seconds ago, he nearly got killed. The protagonist narrows his gaze, recognizing Ming as the one who left his traces near the labyrinth's entrance. Ching looks utterly shocked. He stares at Ming, stunned that while his entire team was wiped out, Ming somehow survived. Ming responds flatly that he's a double-paid mercenary, and losing teammates during a mission is nothing new to him. The protagonist already knows about mercenaries like Ming. They operate in the abyss, take on double-risk missions for double pay, and if their entire team dies, they keep all the rewards for themselves. Ming turns and begins walking away without another word. Sean stares at him in disbelief and calls out, demanding to know why he's leaving without him if he's here to rescue him. He hurries after him, but the protagonist grabs Shan by the collar, pulling him back sharply. He growls that Ming doesn't look like someone here to rescue anyone. The way he holds his sword, there's no hesitation in it. It's the posture of someone prepared to kill. Sean blinks, confused and overwhelmed, unable to process what the protagonist just told him. The protagonist turns to Shan and says he's only using him to locate the room where his sister is trapped. Ming suddenly speaks up, casually mentioning that he saw a girl in that area. The protagonist instantly stiffens, anxiety flooding his voice as he demands to know what happened to her. Sean begins to panic inwardly. If she's still alive, then his own life is in serious danger. Without warning, Ming tosses a teddy bear toward them and says that while the girl was cute, she didn't make it. The revelation stuns the protagonist into silence, his body frozen in disbelief. Shan, on the other hand, feels an inward surge of relief. If she's dead, then he might survive. Ming calmly continues. He says he had already told her that he didn't care about her fate and wouldn't protect her if monsters attacked, but he'd made a promise to deliver her words to her brother if they ever crossed paths. He explains that she hoped she could wait at the hospital entrance until her brother came, just so he'd know she was still okay. The protagonist's shock turns into rage. He charges at Ming, shouting that he just stood there and watched while she was in danger. But Ming meets the accusation with indifference. He responds that his only job is to complete the mission and collect his pay. Beyond that, nothing else matters. Then he reveals something darker. He's cursed. Everyone who follows him ends up dead. They begin fighting. The protagonist attacks relentlessly, but Ming tries to speak through the chaos. His voice barely cuts through the fury. Ming urges him to release Dr. Shan and promises to guide him down the correct path in return. He raises his sword high, declaring that he won't show mercy. He even claims that he's already sent his own comrades to hell. Qing lunges forward, slamming into Ming's arm. The impact sends the sword flying out of his hand. Qing sneers, asking how Ming plans to kill him now without a weapon. The protagonist pulls out a new weapon and launches it at Ming, but Ming dodges effortlessly. Suddenly, the system alerts the protagonist. Disarm activated. All his weapons will be disabled for the next 8 seconds. Ming seizes the opportunity. He jerks forward and hurls the protagonist away from him. Qing watches and remarks that he had thought Ming was just a skilled swordsman, but now it's clear he's deadly even without a blade. He explains that double-paid swordsmen are trained to face monsters as sacrificial pawns, even without weapons. Then he adds that Ming hasn't even shown his full strength yet. Ming retrieves his sword and warns them he's done holding back. With a shift in posture, he activates the power of rock-breaking slash. The air trembles with energy, but the protagonist analyzes the attack. Even though the sword is powerful, its sheer weight slows it down. If he moves before the attack lands, he's confident he can win. Our boy clashes with Ming and immediately notices just how fast he is. Qing asks if he's planning to take him on using his monsters. Without answering, our boy hurtles through the air toward Ming, channeling the rock-shattering strike. But before he can land the blow, Ming counters, scoffing that useless skills like that won't help him win, and drives a powerful punch into our boy. He explains that under normal circumstances, this punch would tear his opponent's body apart, but the weight of our boy's sword is suppressing his strength. Still, he acknowledges that our boy isn't like the other O-levelers he's encountered. He admits our boy's power stands apart, but insists his own abilities are still far superior. Our boy responds bluntly, telling him not to brag about his combat skills. He's not as far ahead as he thinks. Qing, growing more agitated, warns that this is the last chance for our boy to tell him what he knows about his sister. Meanwhile, Ming recalls a past conversation with Zhou about Qing. She had spoken of her brother with admiration, saying that even though he's just a scavenger, he fights hard every day to become stronger and change his fate. She dreams of becoming powerful like him. But Ming dismissed her words, explaining that scavengers are just low-level class changers with no real strength. Zhu had snapped at him then, shouting that he was wrong. Her brother is a true warrior. She insisted Ming would understand only if he met him in person. Someday, she said, she'd make sure they crossed paths so Ming could see for himself that her brother is nothing short of brave. In the present, Ming studies our boy with sharpened focus, recalling Zhou's words. He begins to realize that this man might truly be strong, someone who's endured countless brushes with death before arriving here. Meanwhile, our boy downs his last potion, wanting to gauge Ming's base stats more accurately. He needs to confirm if his berserk damage buffs will be enough to bring Ming down. This opponent feels different from the other human class changers he's faced. Ming isn't even wearing armor. His only equipment is a greatsword. His fighting style gives our boy no time to defend or counter properly. Determined, our boy triggers berserk mode and lunges again with full force. But Ming evades it effortlessly once more, leaving Qing stunned at just how strong he is. At last, our boy plays the Soul Dash card and re-engages in battle. This time though, he notices something strange. He can't dodge Ming's attacks like before. Suddenly, Ming bursts into laughter, shouting wildly. Our boy stares at him puzzled. Undeterred, he launches another attack, but as always, Ming slips away unharmed. Ming declares he possesses a trait that renders him immune to ordinary attacks, which makes our boy suspect he might be immortal. He adds that the abyss is filled with such beings, creatures that surpass the limits of modern technology, skills, and equipment, and even includes unique entities known as curses. Ming goes on to explain that a curse is a form of divine punishment he must endure in exchange for immense strength, and that he must embrace death without fear. The gods granted him the undead trait, but to earn it, he slaughtered countless people and claimed their possessions as his own. The gods were aware of his actions, yet still bestowed the trait upon him, one he had desperately sought. However, in return, they took the most precious thing from him. Our boy launches an attack to kill him, driving Ming into the ground, all while his thoughts circle around the concept of the undead trait. From a distance, Shang shouts that this confirms the rumor from the abyss, that monsters can transfer traits when changing professions. He explains that the undead trait is overwhelmingly powerful, granting infinite regeneration, as long as the user doesn't run out of energy. Suddenly, Ming's hand bursts through the ground, and he pulls himself upward. He tells our boy that just before death, his hand brushed against eternity, allowing him to rise again. Since then, he's become a lone star of misfortune. After that moment, his teammates began to die one after another. Whether they perished naturally or were killed by him remains uncertain, but it's hard to believe he wasn't responsible. His reputation became so tainted that many game changers refused any mission involving him. Ming remarks that this was the price he paid for touching eternity. Although technically dead, this is how he continues to exist. He then activates his Wish of Death skill, a move that can only be triggered under certain conditions, and charges at the protagonist with everything he's got. Fear tightens around our boy as Ming unleashes a ferocious blend of combat technique and curse-infused power. In response, the protagonist activates the Blood Nightmare card. Ming strikes relentlessly with his sword, again and again. As Yeqing watches the onslaught, doubt creeps in, wondering if the undead trait is truly unbeatable. Ming, seemingly confident in his upper hand, claims victory upon witnessing the protagonist's abilities. At that moment, our boy deploys a green card, his divine artifact, and a spectral reaper lunges at Ming. To Ming, the weapon doesn't appear to be physical. It feels more like the manifestation of a skill effect. Our boy explains that it's a despair trait. If a target dies from it, the trait is triggered. Additionally, both HP and mana gradually regenerate under its influence. Since Ming's body is already technically dead, the skill activates with each hit. Our boy adds that Ming survives solely through mana. For someone undead, a health bar is nothing more than a meaningless display. His actual vitality lies in his mana pool. Ming acknowledges this, impressed that the protagonist uncovered such information so quickly, far better than most. Our boy proclaims that the Abyss operates on the power of rules and that every puzzle has a solution. A mighty foe might be a reckless brute. A glass cannon could deal devastating damage yet fall easily, and even someone with an invincible body likely harbors a vulnerability outside it. Likewise, he lures enemies into life-for-life exchanges using sacrificial tactics, making them believe they can match him blow for blow. But few dare to challenge him in such exchanges, assuming he can't be killed that way. That false belief, he says, is the deliberate weakness he projects. Ming agrees, admitting that survival in the Abyss hinges on mastering these rules, and that even our boy bears such a flaw. He suggests that among the 6 core attributes, there must be one the protagonist can't fully compensate for. Our boy counters that he's different from other professional changers, boasting an abundance of excess points, evenly distributed across all stats because his profession is that of a hexagonal warrior. As he watches Ming's wound trying to mend, he thinks it's best to end the fight before recovery kicks in. He launches another full-force assault, pushing every stat to its limit. Ming realizes our boy hadn't been bluffing about his strength. Qing affirms that he's mastered every technique, regardless of category. He knows physical attacks alone can't kill Ming, but constant aggression will drain his mana, halting his regeneration. Once depleted, even Ming will fall. Our boy continues his relentless barrage, forcing Ming to burn through his remaining energy. He once again uses Harvest Despair, and during the clash, asks if Ming's mana is dropping. This time, it appears our boy holds the upper hand, but Ming, calm and observant, reminds him that even seemingly unsolvable puzzles must have an answer. He then glances at a teddy bear that has fallen. Catching our boy's attention, he wonders when it slipped from his grip. Meanwhile, Ming's arm begins to crack and crumble into pieces. He strikes our protagonist with his other hand, hurling him from the mouth straight to the floor. He asserts his dislike for anyone who dares to interfere, implying that even if they were teammates, he wouldn't hesitate to fight them without a second thought. But to him, our protagonist feels different. Someone who still holds the morals of a living person, as shown by his attempt to save someone Qing considers nothing but worthless trash. At the same time, Qing clutches the protagonist's hand firmly in his own. Qing demands he choose between the life of his sister and Shan. The words leave the protagonist stunned. He's being forced to pick between his sister, whom he already told Qing was dead. Ming pulls his hand back and questions when exactly he claimed she was dead. He admits he was merely trying to manipulate him using the bear, and then reveals he actually knows where she is right now. Qing breaks into laughter, explaining that his sister is just as stubborn to die as he is. The protagonist, thoroughly confused, presses him to explain what he means. A few hours earlier, Qing had been battling enormous monsters. One of them had Zhou clutched in its grasp while she sobbed helplessly. She believed Ming wouldn't come to save her, just as he had warned her before, and her thoughts drifted to her brother, who had worked so hard just to afford treatment for her injured leg. She had never wanted to become a burden to him. Through her tears, she pleaded with the heavens to grant her the strength to fight back. Then, suddenly, her eyes gleamed with an unnatural light. She had unlocked a new skill, shapeshifting. In the blink of an eye, she transformed into a massive bear and slaughtered the monsters around her in seconds. The reason behind her sudden transformation was clear. Those seduced by the Abyss are far more likely to awaken their hidden powers. Ming quickly recognized Zhou as one of those affected. He nearly attacked her on the spot, having heard how the Abyss's temptation could rob victims of their sanity and turn them into actual monsters. Meanwhile, the bear-shaped Zhou stood there in tears, asking what had happened to her. She noticed she'd grown significantly taller and was suddenly able to walk, something that struck her as suspicious. Ming demanded to know if she had lost her mind and asked her to state her name. When she answered correctly, he realized she hadn't fallen completely under the Abyss's influence. He told her to look into a mirror, and only then did she comprehend her monstrous form. Panic overtook her as she fretted over how she would ever face her brother again. How could she possibly meet him like this? She begged Ming for a way to return to her human form, but he admitted he had no answers. It was her skill after all, not his. Then he turned away, saying he would try to find her brother while continuing his mission. If she didn't want to go with him anymore, that was fine too. Before he left, she handed him the teddy bear and asked that if he ever did meet her brother, to please tell him she just needed time to prepare herself mentally. Ming accepted the bear and gave his word. Back in the present, Ming asserts that he now holds the upper hand in this battle, but insists there's no point in continuing to fight. Sean grows visibly anxious upon hearing that Joe is still alive. Ming then reveals the real reason behind Joe's current condition. It's Dr. Sean's fault. The Abyss's emergence, too, traces back to him. During one of Sean's experiments, he caused the death of Lin Shuyan. Her grieving father sought revenge and used a special key to open a gate to the Abyss inside the hospital, intending to destroy Shan's lab and all his research. The man anticipated that a rescue team would come searching for Shan, so he laid the groundwork to trap the doctor inside the Abyss forever. Ming had confronted the father, asking if he understood the consequences of what he had done, but the man replied that such outcomes were nothing new to him. In the present, Dr. Sean insists he already arranged a compensation plan for Shuyan and even handled matters concerning her father. He adds that she was essentially a lost cause. Her treatment was far too expensive for what she was worth. The protagonist, now deeply unsettled, questions if Sean had used Joe in a similar way. Panicked, the doctor swears he did nothing to her. He explains that she fell into the Abyss before he even arrived and that he was powerless to help her. Furthermore, everyone who participated in the experiments had done so willingly, and he compensated them regardless of whether they survived or not. Hearing the word compensation sends a jolt of fury through the protagonist. He lunges forward and punches the doctor square in the face. Dr. Sean bleeds from the mouth as he lies on the ground, scoffing that she couldn't even walk. So why is he fighting for someone so useless? He insists he was merely trying to maximize her value as a person. If she had sacrificed herself for scientific research to aid job changers, she would have been honored. The protagonist seizes the doctor with his recycled hands, stating Shan would never understand. She's the only family he has left, the sole survivor after the disaster. Sean stammers that he didn't mean it that way. Before he can say more, gigantic hands slam him to the floor. The protagonist yanks him up by the collar, growling that Shan is the one so worthless even hell wouldn't accept him. He hurls him toward Ming, turning away with a cold remark that Shan belongs to him now. Ming pauses, wondering if that means they've reached an agreement. The protagonist says the only thing that matters to him now is his sister's safety. As he walks away, Ming steps toward the doctor and declares he's going to kill him, fulfilling both his mercenary duty and his father's final wish. The doctor, panicked, asks what commission Ming is talking about, offering to pay double whatever the old man gave. Ming replies that a person only has one life. How does he expect to give double of that? Shan, confused, asks what he's even talking about. Ming glances at the protagonist approaching the door and calls out that he'd like a proper fight with him next time. The protagonist arrives at the place Ming mentioned, where his sister is supposedly kept. Joe steps out from behind a wall, tears streaming down her face, and asks if he's really her brother. The protagonist apologizes for arriving late. She shakes her head, saying she should be the one apologizing, for always dragging him into danger, for being a burden. Yeqing gently tells her no monsters remain now, and she's safe. But Joe insists he's wrong. There is still one monster standing right in front of him. She sinks to the ground, crying as she points at herself, confessing she's become a monster. She admits she always wanted to rise from her chair to help her brother. Relying on him for everything had made her feel ashamed, and she wanted to protect him instead. But now she feels strange. To comfort her, the protagonist explains that many people who look human are no better than monsters. But people like her, even if transformed into something monstrous, still possess a kind heart. She asks if he truly believes that. He nods, assuring her that his job is to deal with monsters. He knows how to tell the difference. Qing glances at the corpses scattered around the room and asks if she's the one who killed them. He notes she seems much stronger now. Joe shakes her head, saying she didn't kill all the beastmen. She points to one, explaining that this was the only monster she took down right after she transformed. The protagonist cheers for her, saying it looks like she's already reached a high level. Suddenly, her body begins to glow once more. Moments later, she reverts to her human form and collapses to the ground. Confused, she wonders how she turned back. Her brother explains that the transformation uses mana. Once her mana is depleted, she returns to her original form. It means she's not a monster. It's simply her shape-shifting ability. After transforming into a bear, she can walk freely. He lifts her up, congratulating her on becoming a job changer. She can stand on her own now. Joy floods her face as she realizes she can finally fight like him. Qing sets her in the wheelchair, firmly vowing he'll never let her enter a dangerous place like the Abyss again. She asks if he met someone on his way here. He frowns, asking who she means. Chu describes a man who looked a bit like him. When she told the stranger about her brother, he expressed a desire to meet him, thinking they shared similarities. The man also claimed that killing her brother would be as difficult as killing himself. As the protagonist wheels her toward the door, listening to her story, he mutters that it doesn't sound like someone he'll get along with. Our protagonist is sleeping peacefully in his room when his phone suddenly rings. He answers the call, and the voice on the other end immediately confronts him, saying he hasn't shown up for days, not since their job at the city public market. The man's tone turns sharp as he begins yelling, demanding how he dares to even think about going solo with the Blood Oath guy. The protagonist apologizes to his uncle, explaining that he urgently needed money and found a job that offers quick cash. The man asks if he's still working as a scavenger. The protagonist assures him that he hasn't changed paths. He's still a scavenger. His uncle's voice rises again, filled with frustration and concern. He argues that the protagonist is still young and inexperienced, and he's worried something might happen to him. He also reminds him to be careful, emphasizing that he has a sister to look after as well. The call ends with the protagonist quietly appreciating his uncle's concern for them. Right after, he receives a text message. 2.4 million yuan has been transferred to his account by Xingran. Along with it, she leaves a message. She sold all the items under her name, just as he instructed, and reminds him not to forget to thank her. The sight of all those zeros lights up his face with joy. It had been his plan all along to sell his loot through Xingran, knowing her fame would keep others from questioning the legitimacy of the items. Last night, he had brought back a significant haul from the abyss. When Xingran asked about it, he casually claimed he was just scavenging junk and happened upon the loot. Unconvinced, she pressed for the truth. He explained that he couldn't use those high-class items anymore, which technically made them scavenged goods. Xingran mocked him, saying it was kind of pathetic. He was still a level 1 scavenger, yet he looked far more physically developed now. The protagonist replied that he had been through a lot lately and had grown more mature because of it. Xingran realized that the scavenger job still wasn't listed in the Great Job Change table, meaning he couldn't level up through normal channels. But she pointed out that there might be another way to grow stronger. He explained that he only picks up trash, and in a weird way, it made sense that someone could get stronger just by doing that. She then asked if he seriously intended to approach the World Committee and take the Hunter exam, but to do that, he would need a legal explanation for all the items he brought back from the Abyss. The protagonist asked if passing the Hunter exam would actually allow him to enter the Abyss legally. She replied that he had been trespassing all this time and risked prison if he were ever caught. The exam, she explained, is designed to test whether a person can convince the instructor they deserve to enter the Abyss as an official hunter. He'd also need a referee for the exam. Since she trusted his abilities, she offered to vouch for him and promised to help him succeed. He asked her if she truly believed he could pull it off. In response, she had her people sell everything under her name and reaffirmed her support, saying he had helped her in the past, and now it was her turn. Now, in the present, the protagonist steps out of bed, muttering that he really owes her one this time. Suddenly, he notices a delivery box on the floor. Joe explains that she ordered a bento for him, pointing out he doesn't even have a kitchen in his house. He remarks that she's up really early. Zhu responds that it's her first day back from the Abyss, and she has no intention of just lying in bed. As the protagonist eats his breakfast, he asks his sister how her legs are doing. She rises slightly from the wheelchair and proudly declares that since yesterday, she started regaining some movement in them, just like this. Curious, he asks how she managed that overnight. Cho explains that she was afraid her transformation into a bear might damage the house, so she focused all her magic on her knees instead. But he urges her not to push herself too hard, reminding her that she's not a burden to him. She assures him that she's not forcing anything. She truly believes she's on the path to recovery. The protagonist throws on his jacket and heads toward the door. Joe, concerned, asks where he's going so early. He tells her he has something important to take care of and promises to return soon. She looks surprised. Even on the weekend? He steps outside, calling back that he has work on weekends too, and shuts the door behind him. Meanwhile, Zhou watches him go and wonders if he's off to see his girlfriend. He now stands in front of the building where the exam is set to take place, nerves visibly building. Dozens of other job changers are gathered there as well. The protagonist overhears someone asking the group if they're here for the hunter exam and which hunting team they're hoping to join. That man is Zhou Tang, who has also arrived to take the exam. He approaches the protagonist and asks if he's here for the test as well, which clearly implies he never had a certificate before. The protagonist responds that he's taking the exam now because he finally has the money for it. This exam isn't cheap. He then asks what Tang is doing here, since, as far as he knows, Tang already has a certificate, and he continues walking down the stairs. Tang explains that he's been training in close combat, following the protagonist's advice. However, no hunting team has accepted him yet because they think he's only dabbling for the sake of experience. That's why he's here, to prove he's genuinely skilled in combat. Joe adds that if the protagonist manages to get the hunter certificate, he'll undoubtedly become the main DPS. The protagonist replies that's exactly what he's planning. Just then, a group of thugs begins shouting at the other game changers, also gathered for the exam, to move aside. Their boss scoffs and questions whether they really need to stand in line for such a ridiculous certificate. His men start forcing their way through, pushing people aside and issuing threats as they carve out a path. They loudly declare that their boss has been granted a god-chosen job. Hearing this, the protagonist begins thinking about Xingran, who also possesses a god-chosen class as a knight. In addition to her standard skill set, she can use ice magic, summon defensive shields, and even heal wounds. Moreover, her growth potential far exceeds that of others. This is exactly why individuals like her are rated S-class. These roles are referred to as God-chosen jobs because beyond their base abilities, they receive random stat boosts and have their inherent weaknesses erased, almost like divine blessings. The protagonist mentions he'll register after that man. Zhao remarks that there's nothing special about the guy. He just got luckier than most. Meanwhile, the man starts pressuring the exam officials to hand him a certificate. When the official asks which type he wants, he declares that he's a god chosen. So naturally, he wants the all-in-one certificate, not any of the ordinary ones. Upon hearing this, murmurs ripple through the crowd as people speculate whether he's truly going for that card. Someone comments that it's obvious he has a god-chosen class, so it makes sense. His underlings begin boasting about his talent and strength, warning everyone to stay away because their boss is the top talent among them. Suddenly, a girl with striking purple hair steps forward and asks if they're talking about the top talent. The moment he sees her, the man becomes visibly dazed by her beauty and immediately invites her to join his team. But the girl rejects his offer outright. The man advises her not to turn him down so quickly, bragging that he's not only a god chosen, but also great in bed. Enraged, the girl conjures a fire attack that blasts him across the room into a corner. His men scramble to extinguish the flames, insisting she didn't need to hit him that hard, and warning that she has no idea what kind of fury their boss is capable of. The attack she unleashed was an instantaneous explosion, something few can manage. The man, now smoldering and furious, glares at her and becomes determined to learn who she is. While Joe tries to make sense of the chaos unfolding, bystanders begin laughing at the self-proclaimed God-chosen man. He's seething now, humiliated because of the girl's retaliation and everyone mocking him. He swears she's going to pay for this. But just then, someone places a firm hand on his shoulder. The man turns sharply, ready to lash out, and demands to know if the person has a death wish, only to freeze the moment he recognizes the aura. It's the protagonist, and the sheer pressure radiating from him makes the man flinch in fear. Xing steps in and advises the protagonist not to use his powers so casually, reminding him that there are plenty of examiners around, and stirring trouble could backfire. The thug immediately goes quiet. A female examiner approaches with 2 towering guards and states that using skills in public spaces is strictly forbidden. The protagonist assures her that everyone is just on edge because of the sweltering heat. The purple-haired girl also offers an apology. The examiner warns them that another violation will lead to immediate arrest. She then asks the purple-haired girl about her class and the type of certificate she intends to apply for. The girl replies that she's a fire elementalist and wants to apply for the magical damage dealer certificate. Due to the earlier disturbance, the examiner instructs her to place her hand on a magical crystal. The girl complies while the examiner observes with a hint of intrigue, eventually revealing that her readings are off the charts, an abnormal index score. The examiner explains that numerous high-skill, unregistered hunters continue to emerge from the abyss, and these precautions are necessary for public safety. But the girl asks her to repeat the test, believing it may have been a malfunction. She then gestures toward the crystal, which now responds properly, indicating that she's passed the evaluation. Seeing her cheer like that, the protagonist remarks that she seems like a completely different person. Joe assures the protagonist that with his strength, he's definitely going to pass the test. Then the examiner calls for the next person. It's the protagonist. She asks which certificate he intends to apply for. He responds firmly, stating he wants the all-in-one certificate. She immediately questions his occupation, pointing out that only the God-chosen dare to apply for that one. The protagonist calmly tells her he's a scavenger and that his current level is 1. Laughter erupts from the surrounding job changers, ridiculing him. Joe steps in sharply, warning them to stay quiet, reminding them that his brother Qing could crush them all with a single hand. Meanwhile, the protagonist explains that he's just aiming for a role that fits into any team, as that's the only way he can manage the situation. The examiner admits that he's technically allowed to apply, but he must understand how applicants for the all-in-one certificate are tested. This revelation stuns him. He asks her to repeat it, shocked. A purple-haired girl nearby squints, trying to grasp what scavenging even involves and what kind of job it actually is. The examiner breaks it down. While the other applicants are allowed to enter the abyss together, those applying for the all-in-one certificate must face the task alone. She adds that although the test may seem easy, completing it solo makes it significantly harder. The protagonist asks if he'll really earn the certificate after clearing the abyss. She advises him against attempting it, saying only experienced candidates take that route and implying that doing so at his level is basically suicide. Then she studies him and adds that he must either be a complete fool or some hidden master. She instructs him to place his hand on the crystal stone. He lifts the stone, but nothing happens. The room bursts into laughter again. The others mock Joe, sneering that his brother doesn't even possess magic and yet wants to dive into the abyss. Joe growls at them to shut up. The protagonist grabs the key, and the examiner informs him that if he really wants to throw his life away, they won't be held responsible. She then explains about the teleport restricting tool and the specific location where he can use the key. He begins walking toward that place as Joe calls out, urging him to be careful and return safely. Suddenly, the man who earlier declared himself a God-chosen candidate shouts at the examiner, demanding the same key that she gave the trash scavenger because he wants to take on the same challenge. She apologizes and tells him there's only one key per difficulty level, so if he wants to participate, he'll need to wait until next time. The man scoffs and says he'll go in anyway, not as the protagonist's teammate, but alone. She narrows her eyes and asks if he means to challenge the protagonist as a competitor. Her guard leans in and whispers that while teams are banned, there's no rule against competition. She considers it and agrees, announcing that only the one who emerges from the abyss with loot will be declared the victor. She warns them not to secretly team up, as the dungeon's difficulty automatically rises when multiple people enter. If they attempt to cooperate, the challenge will escalate to nightmare level. That's the main reason only one person is usually allowed inside. However, since two are now going in, the difficulty has already increased. She further explains that such unusual circumstances in the abyss may trigger unpredictable elements, like special enchantments and buffs on the monsters. She asks once more if they still wish to proceed after hearing all this. The protagonist reflects that he's already encountered monsters with special enchantments. Elite monsters, as they're often called, can be handled with HP-draining attacks or by exploiting specific mechanics. The arrogant man pulls out a collection of artifacts, boasting that his loot is so powerful, the dungeon doesn't stand a chance. The protagonist quietly checks the stats and acknowledges the claim. Nothing provides such strong buffs except properly enchanted equipment. With the right gear, even a novice could boost their potential significantly. The examiner notices him observing and asks what's on his mind. He shrugs, saying it's nothing. He's only here to get the hunter certificate. Besides, if this nightmare-level dungeon includes rare monsters, he might just stumble upon some interesting corpses. Joe advises him not to push his luck, reminding him that no one can predict how difficult the dungeon will be. The protagonist glances at the other guy's armor and says he plans to use that overconfident fool when the time comes, so Joe doesn't need to worry about him. The rival scoffs, declaring that they'll enter the abyss as enemies, and he won't care if the protagonist dies in there. After all, only one of them can pass the test. The protagonist tosses him the key, saying he should open the door. Since he's supposedly the God-chosen one, maybe his luck will do them both a favor. The man catches the key and approaches the door, smirking. He inserts it into the keyhole and declares that people call him the Hand of God for a reason. As the door creaks open, the system's voice booms, announcing that the abyss has shifted to nightmare level and all the monsters' energy levels are rising dramatically. Seeing the debuffs activate, the man panics and rummages through his potion box, hoping they'll still work. But the protagonist knows nothing will function as reliably as before, not even his man-eating plant or soul-reaping skill. He reminds himself that going berserk now would cause more harm than good, so he must use that ability with caution. The rival mutters that he brought his largest backpack just for these potions, but it looks like he'll have to abandon it. Then, donning his armor, he insists the potions don't matter. His armor alone is enough to slaughter every monster inside. He strides into the dungeon first. When the protagonist steps in, the system chimes again, confirming that the dungeon's difficulty has increased to nightmare level due to the presence of a second entrant. It announces their first legendary challenge. They must defeat a legendary monster, which does not occupy its own designated room. Overcoming it will reward them with legendary items. The examiner, hearing the notification, remarks that a legendary mutation requires a luck score of at least 300 points, which has only a 0.01% chance of occurring. She watches the screen carefully, trying to determine just how lucky the protagonist truly is. Then she orders her staff to alert the higher-ups. Reinforcements must be dispatched immediately, as a legendary mutation is now unfolding during the hunter exam. On the other side, Joe steps into the easy-level abyss gate, silently wishing for the protagonist's safety. Meanwhile, Ching and that villain stride deeper into the abyss. As they pass through the entrance, the man comments that they've been transported directly into a massive house, probably around 18,000 square feet, more like a mansion. They come across a group of towering statues standing solemnly before them. Annoyed, the man sneers at the sight, mocking the statues as lame and bragging that even his front garden looks better. The protagonist clarifies that this is actually a boss room. The man furrows his brows, confused, and asks if they've seriously landed straight into a boss room upon entering the abyss. Suddenly the statues begin to move, and the system announces that these are immortal statues, highly aggressive and incredibly strong. Their attacks cause severe blood loss. The protagonist quickly realizes that these creatures embody 4 attributes and resemble those from a nightmare-level dungeon. In short, they're going to be a serious challenge. He considers summoning the spiders to draw their attention, intending to use his speed to circle behind them. He knows their fronts are covered in thick armor, but their backs remain vulnerable. Since he can't activate Berserk right now, he has to exploit their weak points first. Just as he prepares to summon the spiders, his competitor charges in from behind, declaring that he'll slay the monsters and claim the loot from the boss. He lunges at them, shouting that it's time to witness the true Crusher King. The protagonist grows uneasy, realizing that the man is in grave danger. One of the statues swings its colossal sword at the man, slamming him into the ground and leaving a gaping hole. Miraculously, his armor holds up under the brutal strike from the Knight of Purity. Without warning, the knight redirects its focus toward the protagonist, shattering his original plan. It launches a relentless barrage of attacks, forcing the protagonist to dodge again and again. Each strike from the knight inflicts irreversible blood loss, and given that they're inside the abyss, even a single blow could prove fatal. Though the knight is locked onto him, the man continues to take collateral damage from stray strikes. The protagonist warns him to take cover if he wants to avoid getting hit, but the man retorts that he's not scared, he just slipped. He insists the protagonist stop treating him like a burden. As the battle rages, the protagonist notes how easily the knight shatters their defenses. It feels like these enemies are designed specifically to counter tanks. He activates his Spirit Dash artifact, but once again, his competitor intervenes, charging the knight and claiming that since the protagonist is struggling, he'll handle the statues himself. Despite his arrogance, he's proving useful, and the protagonist considers utilizing him properly. They might be able to fight the bosses together as a coordinated hunting team. The knight grows even more aggressive, hammering the man with heavier blows, confirming that he truly is a tank. Ching prepares to activate his taunt skill, prompting the system to issue a warning. If the taunt fails, the aggro will bounce back onto the initiator. The protagonist observes that they can't afford to focus only on one knight. They need to act against the second one, which is larger and appears even stronger. He strikes the knight with his dagger, but the hit has no effect. The man shouts in frustration, yelling that these monsters are completely different from the usual abyss creatures, which normally drop after 1 or 2 hits. Another knight begins to move now, prompting the protagonist to ask if the man dumped all his skill points into defense, and how he even reached this level without actual combat. Offended, the man snaps back, claiming it's because of his unique skills. Meanwhile, the second knight begins advancing toward him. The protagonist calls him an idiot and urges him to stay alert during the fight. As the knight closes in, the man tries to retreat but trips, crashing to the ground right in front of the protagonist. The protagonist advises him to fight in line with his heavy armor, pointing out how restricted his movements are due to its weight. The man admits he knows nothing about real combat. He usually relies on others to finish the fight for him. It turns out this man is Wu Sangxi, a conglomerate boss who hires people to help him level up. He doesn't even know how to fight. He simply keeps pumping points into defense while others do the dirty work. As they're talking, the knight charges again, swinging its sword. Ching quickly shoves Sangxi aside, warning him that the abyss isn't some playground. People here shed blood and sweat just to provide for their families. Conventional attacks seem useless against these knights, so he considers switching to blunt force. This is his most reliable and personal tactic, fighting with his bare hands. Sangxi shouts at him in frustration as Ching repeatedly pounds the knight with his fists. After the barrage, the system notifies him of a critical hit and confirms he struck a weak point. Even then, Ching finds it hard to believe his blow caused a status effect. He's certain luck played a role in it as well. Without warning, the knight retaliates and slices Ching's body in two with a clean strike. Sangxi screams, horrified at the sight of Ching being cut down, until he realizes it was only the clone created earlier through Blood Nightmare. Meanwhile, Ching calmly devises a strategy to eliminate the knights. Sangxi's DPS isn't high enough, and as a tanker, he lacks the durability to absorb their attacks for long. Ching didn't expect much from him, but he still needs to manage the rhythm of the battle. He tells Sangxi to find a place to hide, prompting him to take off running. Ching continues landing precise critical hits on their weak points. Sangxi can hardly believe it. Each strike avoids the knight's heavily armored areas, landing with near-perfect accuracy. He's stunned that Ching's techniques outshine those of all the seasoned experts he's hired before. He shouts, demanding to know how Ching, still a newbie in this field, has mastered such refined tactics. Ching explains that while he's a novice as a job changer, he spent years on a scavenging team fighting monsters. That experience has sharpened his instincts and taught him how to battle effectively. On top of that, he's using several skills simultaneously. What's more, his growth is now accelerated, amplified hundreds of times by his own blood and sweat. But Sangxi waves it off, accusing him of overcomplicating things. In his opinion, growing stronger simply requires better equipment. King disagrees. To him, gear is something you swap in and out just to boost stats. His true weapon is his own body, which grows stronger with every fight. At that moment, his Thorn skill activates. With this ability, any melee attacker receives damage equal to what they deal to him. Sangxi cheers, announcing that it's finally his time to shine. He tells Ching that he's a dual sword wielder, meaning he can't use magic. That's why he now has to rely on him. Ranged attacks are the only way to take down these monsters. Besides, Sangxi has some magic spells in his arsenal, and Ching should start learning from him. With that, Sangxi charges the knight, unleashing his lightning arrow spell and daring the creature to withstand its force. At the same time, Ching strikes as well. Critical hits come easier with thorns active. He casts a great flame explosion near the knight's head. The blast severs the head from its body, sending it tumbling to the floor at Sanxi's feet. Sanxi stares in disbelief. He can't wrap his head around the fact that Ching just used a tier 3 magic spell. Most job changers struggle to master such abilities, making this completely unexpected. Even more surprising is how they're now able to mount a counterattack using the effects of Courage's thorns. Ching's Spirit Dash remains on cooldown, so he braces himself and raises a shield to absorb the next strike. The impact shatters it instantly. The knight's attacks are far too unpredictable. Despite constantly targeting their weak points, they're still stronger than any monsters he's faced before. Without his enhanced attributes, even a single blow would have killed him. For now, their speed will keep increasing, slowing only after he lands a successful hit. On top of that, he's unable to dodge the knight's hidden mechanic, making it even easier to get hit. These knights truly live up to their status as high-rank mechanics. Sanxi shouts at Ching not to land a direct hit on the monster, warning that he could die, and this isn't the moment for such a fate. But the protagonist firmly assures him he won't die. He understands that to defeat the monster, he must outmatch it in both speed and strength. He plans to use his recycling skill, but the system immediately notifies him that salvaging living beings isn't allowed. To boost his power, he activates Berserk mode, knowing it will make him immensely strong, but at the cost of continuously draining his health. Ching unleashes a full-force blow on the knight, delivering an armor-shattering strike right at its weak point. The system alerts him that his HP will only last 30 more seconds, just enough time to finish the mission. However, the boss monster is regenerating, stacking its traits one over the other. If the fight drags on even slightly, the boss will become significantly stronger. And in that scenario, the chances of the protagonist's death increase drastically. He reactivates the Berserk skill, burning through all remaining HP, leaving himself with only 7 seconds. He's determined to make every one of them count. He needs a single decisive strike to end the monster. The protagonist charges at the boss, launching a fierce kick directly at its face with every ounce of strength left in his body. Sanxi watches in disbelief, stunned that Ching has actually overpowered the boss. On the other end, the protagonist emerges victorious, and the system congratulates him for defeating the dual gatekeeper knights. The Abyss difficulty has now been lifted. With his HP reduced to just 10%, he quickly downs several health potions. Once fully restored, he commands the salvage operation to begin. Mysterious hands emerge to retrieve the knights' corpses as he instructs them to collect every piece one by one. Sanxi, watching the scene unfold, questions whether these monstrous hands are truly dragging the corpses into the void. He becomes convinced that this tentacle-based corpse devouring is a class skill, an ability no one else likely knows about. Fear begins to creep in as he wonders if Ching might be more terrifying than the monsters themselves. With the knights fully scavenged, the protagonist acquires a multi-blade strike card. It requires a sword-type weapon capable of executing a rapid series of slashes. If the first blow connects, each subsequent strike intensifies, eventually triggering a critical hit. The card also grants access to a sword technique once used by the Knight of Purity, along with a Courageous Roar artifact. This artifact taunts nearby monsters, forcing them to lock onto the attacker, particularly effective when applying debuffs. Additionally, a random monster may be drawn into the taunt effect, but only if a shield is equipped. Although the protagonist rarely uses shields, the strength of the new skill compels him to reconsider. He knows he'll have to start equipping shields from now on. Sanxi, still processing everything, remains puzzled by how Ching earlier eliminated the statues so precisely, making them vanish without a trace. They now stand before the Forge Master's altar, where the system instructs them to insert a piece of equipment. The knight's souls will then fuse with it, creating a new, random item. This is a legendary event, something the protagonist has heard about before, triggered once when an abyss room was cleared. This event carries the same unmistakable aura. Sanxi turns to Ching, questioning how he managed to trigger such unbelievable luck, since this is one of the rarest reward events in the abyss. The protagonist silently ponders the cause, unable to accept that sheer luck brought it about. Eventually, he credits his relentless effort, believing that the harder someone works, the more unexpected rewards they'll receive. He considers using his old dagger as a test. Sanxi immediately calls him a fool for wasting a weak dagger, urging him to use purple-grade weapons or armor pieces instead. But Ching explains that due to his current level, he can only wield starter-tier equipment, and he always sells anything beyond level 1. Sanxi is left stunned, realizing that the protagonist has been fighting all this time without any high-level gear. With no better options, Ching tosses the dagger forward, resigned to the fact that it's the only weapon he can afford to strengthen. The system explains that enchantments carry a chance of failure, but the outcome depends on the user's luck stat and the weapon's base level. Due to the protagonist's high luck, the success rate increases to 200%. The system asks whether he wants to execute the morph command, which will transform the dagger into a longsword. Our boy confirms the enchantment without hesitation. After a moment, a notification appears. His weapon has transformed into a legendary grade item, but it's labeled a trash sword. Despite its name, the upgraded dagger's appearance and quality look legendary to the protagonist. The trash sword comes with a durability of 50. Although the result is somewhat disappointing, its uniqueness lies in being a one-of-a-kind legendary trash item. Since he receives 2 swords, the second turns out to be another trash item, a replica of the first. Despite the odd designation, the protagonist seems satisfied with the enhanced version of his old dagger. Sanxi immediately mocks him, pointing out that even with the luck stat in his favor, he still ended up with trash weapons. Our boy responds that while others may view them as worthless, to him, they're exactly what he needs. Sanxi presses on, claiming our boy clearly hasn't seen real god-tier gear before. To prove a point, he orders the sword to be salvaged, and it disintegrates instantly. Qing then declares the equipment to be top tier, usable only by him, because it can be salvaged infinitely. Sanxi, half serious and half amused, dubs him the god of trash, believing he has no regard for conventional top-tier gear and possesses the rare ability to turn discarded weapons into power. Our boy says he can even claim the Forge Master's altar now, as it has become trash after use. Once again, he commands the recycling hands, his so-called minions, to salvage it. He receives an artifact that allows him to summon the altar anytime, anywhere. The protagonist is thoroughly pleased with this outcome, knowing he now owns the altar and can use it to enhance any material. Moreover, even if his weapons break, he can salvage them and forge new ones. This, to him, is the greatest feature of the trash swords. He had grown tired of daggers anyway and was eager to try something new. Sanxi, confused, questions whether our boy is actually considering dual-wielding the 2 longswords. Using 2 unfamiliar weapons simultaneously, he warns, will lead to major drawbacks. Not only reduced speed, but also a significant drop in both accuracy and damage. This is exactly why job changers specialize in one class from the moment their role changes. He adds that our boy's grade is too low for such experimentation, and dual swords would drag it down even further. In contrast, someone like him, a C grader, can wield dual swords with precision. Even the system chimes in, stating that dual sword proficiency must be mastered first. Otherwise, attack speed and accuracy can drop by up to 50%. Our boy considers using BP to speed up learning. The system asks if he wants to spend 10 BP to raise his dual-wielding proficiency to grade D. He's surprised that BP isn't limited to repairing equipment, it can also be used to improve skill proficiency. He quickly calculates, if 10 BP gets him to grade D, then 40 BP should take him all the way to grade A. But rather than stopping there, he decides to go all in and pushes the proficiency to the maximum level. The system confirms the upgrade, he's now at grade S. With S-grade dual sword proficiency unlocked, he can begin real practice. They continue moving deeper into the abyss in search of the next gate, as all the challenges in the first room have been completed. Sanxi abruptly says he's giving up the next round. He never expected things to get this intense. Besides, he has enough money and sees no reason to risk his life. He walks toward the door through which they entered the abyss. Before he can leave, the system issues a warning. Combat mode is about to initiate. Fog begins to spill out, dense and unnerving, which Qing immediately finds suspicious. Suddenly, Qing shouts at Sanxi to move aside, sensing imminent danger. A red light bursts from the gate, and our boy lunges to pull Sanxi away, but not fast enough. Sanxi's arm gets sliced by the beam. The protagonist is stunned. The armor Sanxi wears, resilient enough to withstand night attacks, is cut through like paper. That strike was merely a preview of what lies ahead. He now realizes the 2 knights weren't the true bosses. They were only the gatekeepers. The real threat is yet to come. He tries dodging the creeping fog using his dual swords and abruptly senses something emerging from the gate. It is the Dark Elf King Damaster, the true boss, radiating menace and armed with terrifying abilities. Gravity and immunity control, death drain, anti-magic, fearsome hunt, and tidal lock. Sanxi sprints toward the exit, the elf chasing closely behind, intent on killing him. Meanwhile, the protagonist rushes after them, convinced he can wield dual swords with S-grade proficiency more effectively. He believes this setup will boost his attack speed far beyond what his old dagger allowed. Closing the gap, he darts between Sanxi and the elf to shield him from a fatal blow. He unleashes a multi-blade strike on the elf, but the system flags the attack as ineffective. Damaster is in a tidal lock state and can only take damage from its aggro target. Confused, the protagonist fails to grasp why the attack had no effect. Damaster lunges at Sanxi again, cleaving his body into 2 pieces. Outside the gate, the guards monitoring the abyss detect only one remaining life signal, meaning the other is dead. One guard mutters that it must be the level 1 noob who had been acting overconfident. This abyss is meant for those at level 30 or higher. No one seriously believes a level 1 newcomer could survive here on luck alone. He adds that even so, the noob's death wasn't in vain. He discovered a legendary creature in the depths of the abyss. He mentions that the hunter team from HQ will handle the creature from this point on, and if the survivor makes it out alive, they could demand a hefty payout, especially since he appeared quite wealthy. The other guard nods, pointing out that only legendary creatures drop legendary runes, and everyone wants them. Since these runes are essential for anyone hoping to break into the circle, nobody is willing to let them go easily. Suddenly, a notification flashes. Damaster's power has increased after killing Sanxi. Now the boss redirects its aggro toward the protagonist. He finds a bit of satisfaction in this. It means Damaster has fully locked onto him, but the situation has grown even more dangerous. He mutters a quiet apology to Sanxi, then prepares to use the corpse. Activating Salvage, he absorbs all of Sanxi's techniques: Dual Sword, Whirlwind Slash, Disarm, and Meteor Strike. With S-grade proficiency, he's confident he can now master them. Fully equipped, he braces for battle and challenges Damaster to attack. The boss slashes him as well, but his nightmare artifact triggers instantly. He opens with a Meteor Strike, but the system notifies him that Damaster is immune to sneak attacks from its current aggro target. Undeterred, he follows up with Whirlwind Slash, only to be struck again. He quickly realizes Damaster can even track his clones with ease. As the fight drags on, Ching grows frustrated. His physical capabilities are dropping along with his HP, and at this rate, he could end up dead too. Damaster prepares to unleash Gravity Vortex to finish him off, but the protagonist narrowly evades most of the damage. For now, he needs time to recover. Scanning the area, he focuses on where Damaster had been standing, but the boss has vanished. Tension rising, he searches anxiously, only for Damaster to ambush him from behind. The boss casts Gravity Vortex once more, then follows up with an anti-magic strike that disrupts the protagonist's super regeneration. Our boy's condition has deteriorated further. He's now stuck at just 1 HP, and any contact could lead to instant death. He's finally learned a harsh lesson. No matter how well a battle appears to be going, the next moment can change everything. This is the true nature of the Abyss, unpredictable and unforgiving. He silently thanks Damaster for delivering such a vital life lesson. Clutching both swords, he charges toward Damaster once more. The system notifies him that his Meteor Stab and Emergency Evasion proficiencies have increased. In fact, every skill proficiency is rising, one after another. His body too begins to toughen and regenerate strength. Before long, he feels renewed, his frame becoming nearly indestructible. Seizing the moment, he lunges at Damaster and slashes at its face with his dual swords. One blade shatters upon impact, clear proof that these weapons can't keep up with the intensity of the battle. Still, he doesn't mind. They're salvaged junk to begin with, and he can always reforge them. Without hesitation, he reconstructs the broken sword through salvage and readies himself for another clash with the boss. But suddenly, Damaster drops to its knees. Its HP bar appears, it's nearly depleted. Our boy smirks and mocks the creature, claiming he has nothing left to lose. His words only stoke Damaster's fury, and the beast rises again, enraged. Meanwhile, Zhou and the other job changers begin emerging from the abyss, having completed their assigned tasks. One of them thanks Zhou for saving their lives and praises his ability to fight in close quarters while casting spells simultaneously. But Zhou gestures toward the purple-haired girl, crediting her instead. According to him, she delivered 90% of the damage in their battle. She tosses her hair and scoffs, bragging that the rest of them were completely useless. As they glance toward the boss's abyss gate, Zhou notices a crowd gathered in front of it and questions why everyone's standing there. The female examiner approaches a guard to get an update on the situation. He reports that there's no sign of the final life signal, implying both fighters inside are dead. She calmly declares it an ordinary incident within the boss abyss, nothing more. Then she orders her team to clear the area and collect all drops from the legendary monster before nightfall to prevent any complications. When Zhou hears there are supposedly no survivors left inside, he immediately protests and tries to push through, desperate to help. A guard blocks his path, warning him to stay back. Zhou pleads for them to at least attempt a rescue, but the examiner brushes him off, stating they won't bother saving the penniless one. However, if the wealthy one ends up being chosen and manages to send a rescue signal, they'll consider saving him. After all, his gear appeared quite valuable. Zhou clenches his fists and snaps that his boss isn't garbage. He made a promise to come out of the abyss alive, and he always keeps his promises. The examiner instructs the guards to leave her alone and simply enter the abyss to bury both bodies where they were found. She also warns them to proceed with caution. Just as they're about to step into the abyss, Ching emerges from within, stating there's no need for them to go any further. He then asks if retrieving the items counts as passing the test. Zhou, visibly thrilled, responds that he knew Ching would make it. Everyone else stares in disbelief. Ching is in terrible shape. Despite his condition, he hands the examiner a token, claiming it as his item. She stares in shock, unable to believe that a level 1 scavenger actually survived the boss abyss. Then, her eyes catch the token. It's a golden rune stone. She demands to know how he got his hands on it. Ching casually hands it over, saying his mission is now complete. She presses further, asking if he truly defeated the legendary monster, since the golden token only drops from that specific creature. Ching answers that he's wiped out every monster inside the abyss. There's no one left. the examiner remains skeptical. She thinks to herself there's no way someone like him could have done it. Maybe the legendary monster spawned in its weakest form, but even then, it's impossible for a level 1 scavenger to survive, let alone kill it. Accusations follow. She brands him a team killer, convinced he must have murdered the real victor, the chosen one, and is now trying to claim the victory for himself. Joe snaps, yelling at her to stop calling Ching a team killer. He believes in the main character's strength and knows what he's capable of, but she insists that someone like Ching couldn't possibly have all that power. According to her, Sanxi must have protected him until the end, only to be betrayed. Joe fires back again, telling her to examine Sanxi's corpse for signs of human-inflicted injuries. Ching interrupts, stating that no corpses will be found. One of the guards emerges from the abyss shortly after, reporting that there are no signs of any bodies inside. The examiner wonders aloud if some kind of bug inside the abyss wiped everything out. Ching questions her next move. With no evidence left inside, how does she plan to prove whether he's guilty or not? Then he challenges her logic. Why is she even talking about teams and betrayals when she herself made them competitors? He reminds her that he had no obligation toward any of the others, whether they lived or died. It dawns on her that he's right. She's the one who set those rules. So Ching calmly asks if he's passed the test or not. Reluctantly, she admits that although she doesn't like it, yes, he has officially earned the hunter certification awarded by the World Committee. She adds that his certification level is an all-rounder license. She congratulates him for qualifying to join the mainstream hunting groups and asks if he's satisfied with the outcome. Standing a short distance away, Xingran listens in. She steps forward, stating that the examiner hasn't told Ching everything yet. As the examiner and the guards rush toward her, they plead that someone of her status shouldn't be here. Ignoring them, she walks directly to Ching and turns to the examiner, asking if those who discover the golden rune stone are eligible to apply for an independent hunting group. When the examiner confirms, Xingran explains that this means Ching doesn't need to join anyone. He can create his own group. She then turns to Ching and asks if he mentioned her name when he arrived. He admits he didn't. He simply forgot. She calls him dumb, then addresses the examiner, reminding her that the World Committee's registration for hunting groups has officially begun. That means, with the golden token, Ching is now eligible to apply. The examiner accuses her of trying to sabotage the process. Xingran retorts, but the examiner denies it, saying she simply thought the token should go to someone more powerful, since it would be wasted in the hands of a level 1 scavenger. Shu erupts in anger again, demanding to know why she thinks it would be a waste in his brother's hands. He points out that she's the one who made the rules, and now she's trying to cheat them. Members of the hunter team speak up too, revealing they came here because they believed the assessment had been unfair from the start. Otherwise, they wouldn't have shown up at all. Another guard voices frustration as well. Not only do they not want to work with her, but she also withholds their food and equipment. The examiner screams for everyone to stay quiet, and then turns to Ching. She warns him that even if he takes the rune today, people will still label him as third-rate. She adds that the leader of a hunting group must have at least an A rank, and Ching's score before entering the stone was still low. The energy stone doesn't lie. She claims if he tries to present himself before the World Committee like this, they'll only laugh at him. Suddenly, a guard reports that the energy stone is detecting massive fluctuations. The values are rising fast, nearing the limit. It looks like the stone is about to explode. Meanwhile, Ching steps closer to the examiner. Alarmed, she tells him to keep his distance. She admits she can't understand what's causing the readings. No one's even touching the stone, so maybe it's malfunctioning. But purple energy surges from Ching's body. He states plainly that he doesn't care what anyone thinks. He only came to earn the certificate. Now that the competition is over, he has no interest in arguing with them anymore. The examiner can't believe what she's seeing. She asks if he's seriously planning to attack the overseers. King responds calmly. He has no intention of doing that. He's only here to take what rightfully belongs to him. Our boy takes the golden rune from the examiner's hands. The guards, still skeptical, prepare to test the device with a measuring crystal, suspecting it had malfunctioned earlier. But as they bring it closer to our boy, it grows increasingly unstable, its energy fluctuating wildly, as if on the verge of explosion. In response, our boy releases a powerful surge of energy to demonstrate his true strength. The output overwhelms the crystal, causing the energy stone to shatter into pieces. The final reading flashes, S+. He remarks that if they want to avoid further humiliation, they should consider using a better measuring instrument. The examiner attempts to explain, suggesting perhaps he had been hiding his full power all along, though the claim seems difficult to believe. As our boy turns to leave, Xingran tells him he should have used her name from the start, so no one would have dared cause him trouble. Our boy replies that earning their trust with his own strength was easier than relying on her name. Xingran nods, agreeing with his reasoning. Watching their interaction, the examiner mutters that maybe he really is the scavenger he claims to be, judging by how close he appears to be with the heiress of the Liu family. Xin introduces Zhu Tang to her, and Zhu lights up with excitement at the sight of Xingran. She curiously asks how and when they've met before. Joe explains he once performed as an artist at her birthday party. She immediately recalls and coldly states that he must have been part of the group that performed horribly and ruined her celebration. The comment stuns Joe, leaving him speechless with shock. Suddenly, Jingran gets the idea to throw a party to celebrate our boy receiving his hunter certification and asks if they could host it at his home. Her suggestion instantly makes our boy anxious. His apartment is a rented unit on the ground floor, and he fears she might laugh at him if she finds out. Zhu remains quiet, still disheartened by Xingran's harsh criticism of his performance. Noticing their uneasy expressions, Xingran says they don't have to celebrate if it's too much trouble. Our boy quickly agrees to hosting the celebration at his place, but begins devising a plan to prevent her from discovering that it's a rental. He also invites Joe and teases him, promising to hold such a grand event that he absolutely must attend. Xingran asks if tomorrow night works for the celebration and also wonders aloud why they're both acting so strangely. Still, she looks forward to the event with excitement. After bidding them farewell, she drives off in her car. The moment she's out of sight, our boy begins to panic about his appearance and, more importantly, his apartment. He knows he'll have to change it now. He arrives at his apartment building and opens the main door to his room. His sister immediately yells at him, accusing him of claiming to go on a date. As he takes off his jacket, he quips that she can go ahead and count it as one. Furious, she fires back, clearly convinced he went to the abyss again under the pretense of a date, and sarcastically asks if his companions were goblins or ogres. He reassures her that nothing went wrong, all his body parts are intact, and there's nothing to worry about. As he darts toward his room, Joe notes he needs medical attention and should go to the hospital. Our boy insists they're just minor scratches and tells her not to worry. Hearing this, his sister falls silent. Our boy soaks in the bath, letting the water wash over his injuries, while blood spreads across the floor. He's relieved that his sister didn't realize how badly he's actually hurt. His body is in worse condition than it appears, and his HP is dangerously low. The fresh and lingering wounds from the abyss have drained him more than he expected, and recovery may take months. As he rests, he opens his system and notices the term reincarnation appearing after his battle with King Damaster. In the abyss, upon killing Damaster, he acquired the king's signature skill, Gravity Vortex, and earned a substantial amount of attribute points, which he distributed evenly across all stats. Now, all his abilities have reached 512 plus points, and the system prevents him from adding any more, indicating he's hit the current limit. Then, the system notifies him that he's met all the conditions required for reincarnation. Reincarnation will reset his level to 0, allowing him to awaken a second time. From that point on, his levels can climb again, and the attribute point limits will increase as well. For now, all he has to do is press yes. It means starting over from scratch if he wants to push past the current restrictions on his stats. Our boy reflects on the risks of resetting his level in the abyss. He already possesses a vast number of attribute points, so the idea of reincarnation doesn't seem immediately necessary. But then he recalls the examiner's words. Everyone would assume he stole the golden token, and no one would believe he earned it on his own. Even the committee elders would laugh at him. He remembers how she called him a TK, accusing him of killing Sanxi when no one believed a scavenger like him could possess such power. Our boy reminds himself that he's worked tirelessly to grow stronger and protect his family. He refuses to let anything stand in the way of that goal. Whatever the cost, he must break through. He yells that he'll do whatever it takes to become stronger than he was before. Slamming the reincarnation button, he watches the process complete. The system then declares his rank has been reset, but his growth has been elevated to rank 5, meaning he doesn't have to begin entirely from 0. Inspecting his body, he realizes all his wounds have healed as well, prompting him to shout with excitement. His sister, seated just outside the bathroom, flares with anger. Enraged, she pushes the door open and, with her gaze fixed on the floor, demands to know why he's claiming he has no injuries when the floor is clearly stained with blood. Catching sight of her brother's naked body, she recoils in embarrassment and abruptly transforms back into the deer. Tears stream down her face as she breaks into sobs, having accidentally smashed the bathroom wall during her sudden transformation. This incident gives our boy a new reason to finally change his house. King stands before the Shenfeng City Equipment Auction House, preparing to sell items retrieved from the abyss. Since such gear must be formally appraised before any transaction, he figures it's wiser to sell them here than on the black market. Auction houses often put high-quality equipment up for bidding, attracting wealthy clients who might pay handsomely for his gear. Just as he's about to step inside, a guard blocks his way, declaring he's not permitted to enter. Qing calmly states that he's a collector here for an equipment appraisal, but the guard eyes him with suspicion, unconvinced, and demands to know his rank. The protagonist responds that he's rank 1, internally wishing he had reached rank 5 by now. His impression on others would be far stronger. Upon hearing his rank, the guard scoffs and kicks him out, insisting this place isn't meant for nobodies like him. He explains that only the wealthiest clients shop here, seeking top-tier equipment, and someone like Qing simply doesn't belong. In response, Qing presents his upgraded dagger, urging the guard to appraise it. The guard scoffs, claiming there's no need to appraise such junk, but agrees anyway just to get rid of him. However, the appraisal machine fails to register any data, showing the weapon's value as 0 yuan. The guard tells him to toss the dagger into a trash bin and adds that he won't even bother charging him for appraising such worthless gear. Then, something catches the guard's attention: the dagger's unusually sharp edge. A growing sense of suspicion prompts him to take a second look. He grabs an appraisal glass and re-examines it, quickly realizing the weapon isn't trash at all, but an incredibly rare item. Its name appears: Void Rift, a blade darker than the abyss itself, with faint starlight shimmering through its void-born form. Rumor has it, an assassin once pursued a woman with a massive bounty. On the brink of death, the killer cornered her, but she vanished into thin air, leaving behind this very dagger that glowed with an eerie light. The blade reportedly creates a portal behind the user, allowing teleportation within a 30-meter radius, though it requires the wielder to be at least rank 3. The guard realizes the dagger is worth more than anything he's seen. That's why the appraisal machine glitched, and his mood lifts instantly, knowing he nearly dismissed a priceless artifact. Just half an hour earlier, our boy had been in their landlord's basement. He had rented a hotel room for his sister to stay in temporarily while he spent a night in the basement, having no funds left to repair the apartment again. After paying the landlord 2 million yuan for renovations, he's down to just 200 yuan. He now needs to sell some equipment, urgently, but he knows the market is already saturated with items similar to his. While his gear is high in quality, it's not top tier. Job changers typically purchase a full set once they switch classes and rarely upgrade afterward. To the wealthy, such equipment holds little value. They see it all as trash. That means he won't get a good price unless he carefully selects only the best pieces to sell. As he scrolls through his system, he spots the altar and wonders whether it can be used outside the abyss. Curious, he taps the button to summon it. Within a second, the altar materializes midair and crashes downward. He narrowly dodges it. Had he moved a moment later, it would have smashed into his face. Now he knows he can enhance equipment up to the legendary level, which would significantly raise their market value. He selects a rare one-handed weapon called Hunter's Longsword for the upgrade. There's a well-known tale associated with this sword. A girl once used it to track and intimidate countless beasts, but in the end, both she and the monsters were devoured by a dragon. The sword requires level 17 to wield. He tosses it aside, believing it's only worth about 10,000 on the black market, basically junk. The altar consumes 30 points to begin forging, but after some time, the system notifies him the upgrade failed. He suspects the sword's grade was too low or the altar didn't channel enough attribute points. Frustrated but not deterred, he selects another item: the Titan Glove, an epic-grade handpiece crafted from a titan's fingertip, imbued with the colossal strength of a giant. Whoever wears it feels compelled to wield the largest, heaviest weapon they can find. He prays the item won't go to waste and hopes for a successful forge. But the process fails again, and this time, the Titan Glove disintegrates into ashes. The loss stings. Another valuable piece gone. Determined to find out what's wrong, he activates Observing Eyes to analyze the altar. The system reveals the truth. It's a junk forge altar, with a unique trait called waste reforging. Worse still, the forging success rate drops as the material quality increases, meaning high-grade crafting only works on low-quality gear. He finally understands this altar was specifically designed for trash equipment. He groans, half-jokingly wondering if he's been cursed by some god of trash, since every reward he's received so far has somehow revolved around garbage. Since the altar appears to specialize in forging trash, our boy decides to experiment by tossing in a discarded longsword, just to see what might happen. The sword is worthless junk, its blade marred with scars from time, lying quietly on a deserted battlefield, surrounded by the endless echoes of long-forgotten wars. Its damage level is 5. After the forging process completes, the weapon transforms into a unique Eclipse longsword. Named Night Sky, this blade is said to have been forged from lost stars. It emits a faint glow in darkness and a subtle shadow in light. Its damage level jumps to 422, and it requires level 32 to wield. A one-of-a-kind piece, the sword stuns Ching, who can hardly believe such a magnificent item was created from scrap. Staggered by the outcome, he realizes he has stumbled upon an extraordinary artifact, the Junk Forge Altar. Eager to test its limits, he begins feeding it all the trash items he owns, thrilled by the potential profits. One by one, discarded equipment becomes rare treasures. He obtains Night Song, a unique longbow shaped like a graceful harp. Its bowstring, soft as silk, can produce a haunting melody under the night sky. It requires level 29. Next comes Mantra, a unique staff crafted from ancient tree roots, crowned with a tough crystal. Its wooden handle is inscribed with the wisdom and prophecies of ogre ancestors. This item requires level 30. He also forges Thunder, a one-of-a-kind hammer created by the Abyss Dwarves. It carries the raw essence of thunder and lightning, capable of summoning storms mid-battle. This powerful weapon requires level 41. Many more items follow. Every piece of junk turns into a unique artifact, while the non-junk items are converted into attribute points. Eventually, the system notifies him that he has reached level 1, not by killing monsters, but purely through forging. For now, our boy has bypassed the most grueling stage of becoming a job holder. He starts considering how to turn all this equipment into cash, planning to use his new hunter's license for that purpose. The scene shifts to the present, where the protagonist is seated face first inside the auction house. The man had allowed him entry due to the unique dagger and now asks where he acquired such equipment. Our boy responds as he did before, he's a collector. Despite being only level 1, he claims the ability to gather high-quality gear. He can't reveal that he forged these pieces himself. Doing so would bring unnecessary trouble. The man, eager to win his favor and access more equipment, goes along with everything Ching says. He explains that collectors aren't judged by level but by taste, and since our boy brought such high-level items, it proves his refined eye and capability. King mentions he has a lot more gear. If the auction house can meet his demands, he's willing to consign it all, which would also generate a significant commission for them. He then uses magic to summon the equipment. When the man runs the appraisal device over the gear, he realizes every single piece is unique. In shock, he rushes out of the room, instructing others to prepare the highest-class VIP room and to initiate the platinum-level VIP induction. As our boy walks toward the VIP section, he accidentally bumps into a man who immediately starts shouting, demanding he watch where he's going. Our boy apologizes, but the man notices his plain clothes and wonders what someone so ordinary is doing in such a high-end venue. He demands to know what hunter group our boy belongs to. Our boy introduces himself as a free hunter and gives his name. The man scoffs, saying that explains the poor appearance. Only a free hunter would look like that. He then introduces himself as Lang Xiaofeng, a member of the A+ hunter group Tattoos, nicknamed Mad Blade, and flashes his badge. Our boy recognizes the name. Tattoos is notorious for their warlike nature, known among everyone as battle maniacs. They only recruit simple-minded berserkers focused solely on brute strength. Back when our boy was a scavenger, he cleaned up their battlefields often. None of them ended well. It's best not to provoke such a group. He apologizes again and tries to walk away. But Xiaofeng isn't satisfied. He yells that an apology isn't enough. He draws his sword and places it against our boy's neck, accusing him of sneaking into the auction house. He explains that only high-level job changers are allowed inside, and that trash like our boy should be waiting in line outside. Jing calmly responds that the auction house falls under the World Guild's jurisdiction, and Xiaofeng could land himself in serious trouble for his actions. But Xiaofeng declares that someone like our boy doesn't deserve to walk the same halls as him. He orders the guards to throw him out and check his credentials. The guards move to escort him out, until the man who appraised the equipment reappears. He steps in and asks Xiaofeng why he's standing at the members' entrance, clarifying that our boy was meant to enter through the Platinum VIP entrance. Another guard questions whether he's referring to the right person, but then they move in and pin Xiaofeng against the wall. Xiaofeng protests, insisting it's impossible for a free hunter to hold a platinum card without backing from a major group. The man apologizes to our boy for the incident. Xiaofeng continues bragging about being in tattoos, warning the guards not to touch him. One replies that the auction house operates under the World Guild's authority, and if he causes more trouble, his membership could be revoked. The man then turns to Ching and says he's free to explore the lower-level venue as well, but doubts anything there would meet his standards. Ching, glancing briefly at Xiaofeng, replies that he doesn't judge like others do. After all, no one can truly know where treasure might be hiding among what others call trash. The man nods in agreement and proceeds to show him the way. A group of high-class affluent men sit around a polished table deep in conversation. One of them leans forward and shares that the auction house has recently released a batch of unique equipment into the market. The moment the items were listed, wealthy individuals rushed in and snapped them up, each piece selling for millions. He continues, noting that a particular item, a pair of boots named Yun Ding, was sold for tens of millions. Another man scoffs, pointing out it had taken him months just to find a single decent piece of equipment. He wonders aloud how the auction house managed to acquire such a large batch. The first man explains that a collector showed up and handed over his entire stockpile. The second man shakes his head and mutters that when faced with elite hunter groups backed by immense financial power, they can only hope to pick through the scraps left behind. Meanwhile, the main character is steadily selling his equipment, one piece at a time, each fetching a remarkably high price. As expected, every item becomes a highlight at the auction. He remarks to himself that if he's ever strapped for cash, he can simply forge new equipment and sell it at the auction to make quick money. On stage, a man steps up to explain the rules of the upcoming blind auction. He announces that all equipment will be presented in an unidentified state. Among the junk, there could also be top-tier treasures. Since none of the items will be appraised beforehand, all purchases are final, no returns or exchanges. Whatever price is paid, it must be honored, regardless of the outcome. The blind auction officially begins, and the first item is unveiled, a stunningly beautiful ring. The auctioneer sets the starting price at 500,000 yuan. Our boy narrows his eyes, using his observation skill. Something about the ring intrigues him. The crowd remains silent. No one places a bid. It's standard practice for the organizers to present junk items first, saving the high-quality ones for later. With that in mind, our boy raises his hand and places a bold bid of 1 million yuan. The bid sparks outrage in Xiaofeng, who is also present. He snarls that there's no way a broken ring could be worth that much. The auctioneer calls out, asking if anyone wants to bid higher than 1 million. Whispers ripple through the room. Some speculate whether this ring might be a hidden gem. One man points out that the bidder holds a platinum VIP membership, meaning he's likely encountered countless treasures before. His judgment shouldn't be taken lightly. Encouraged by the suspicion, someone bids 1.1 million. Another follows with 1.2 million. Soon after, the price rises to 1.3 million. Our boy confidently counters with 2.5 million, and the crowd gasps, now fully convinced the ring must be some kind of treasure. Seething with jealousy, Xiaofeng declares that he won't sit idly by. Determined to reassert his presence, he jumps into the bidding war, offering 3 million yuan, convinced no one would dare outbid him. However, our boy, with a bank balance of 79 million yuan, calmly raises the bid to 4 million. Xiaofeng's face darkens. He believes our boy is mocking him. A teammate warns him not to act recklessly. 4 million is an astronomical amount for an unidentified ring, but Xiaofeng insists that our boy wouldn't be this persistent unless the item held real value. Convinced, he pushes the bid to 5 million yuan. Across the room, other job changers shake their heads. One comments that 5 million is typically reserved for rare, unique equipment. Spending that much on a mystery item could bankrupt an entire small-sized hunting group. Xiaofeng sneers at our boy, calling him a mere free hunter with a few million in his account, while boasting about being backed by a powerful hunting group. But our boy responds with an earth-shattering bid, 10 million yuan for the gorgeous ring. The hall falls into stunned silence. Xiaofeng can't believe what he's hearing. A free hunter bidding 10 million? That amount is more than enough to establish an average-sized hunting group from scratch. Suspicious, he demands the auctioneer verify our boy's bank balance. Platinum VIP or not, rules still apply. A brief moment passes. The auctioneer announces that Qing's bid is valid, confirming that his account holds substantial funds. The crowd erupts in disbelief. People shout that the man's net worth exceeds 10 million yuan. He's no ordinary hunter. Xiaofeng clenches his fists. He refuses to be humiliated. As a representative of the Tattoos group, he can't allow a free hunter to upstage him. Determined, he throws down a 10.5 million yuan bid. Before anyone can react, our boy shatters expectations again. He bids 100 million yuan without flinching. He muses that even if this ring turns out to be worthless, he can always forge more gear and return to auction another day. The auctioneer prepares to begin the countdown. Meanwhile, our boy taunts Xiaofeng, grinning as he remarks it seems like he's about to lose to a free hunter. Xiaofeng hesitates, suddenly gripped by doubt. Could the ring truly be a 1 in a million treasure? He recalls Qing's earlier words, that his perception is unlike others, capable of detecting value where none appears. That thought unnerves him. If Qing is right, this ring could be a divine artifact, a symbol powerful enough to represent their entire hunting group. Xiaofeng steels himself and shouts a staggering bid of 200 million yuan just as the auctioneer prepares to call it final. Gasps ripple through the room. Onlookers declare him insane. One man exclaims that such a figure could destroy a mid-tier hunting group financially. Another whispers that Xiaofeng belongs to the Tattoos hunting group, and wonders aloud whether the organization is truly wealthy enough to back this kind of gamble. Xiaofeng leaps onto the table, eyes burning. He dares our boy to keep bidding, insisting he'll show the difference in their financial power. Qing smiles and calmly concedes. He announces that he's lost, and the item now belongs to Xiaofeng. Xiaofeng bursts into laughter, triumphant, but one of his group members nervously steps forward, reminding him they had come here to purchase equipment for their brothers, not to blow 200 million yuan on a ring. He asks how they'll explain this to the boss. Xiaofeng waves him off with confidence, claiming the ring is undoubtedly a divine item and the investment will be worth it. The auctioneer congratulates Xiaofeng on his win and asks the crowd to applaud. Our boy watches, smiling quietly to himself. He reflects on how unidentified items can sometimes turn out to be legendary, just like his forging altar once did. Though it had appeared like junk at first glance, it proved to be a priceless treasure. Perhaps this ring might be similar. He activates his observing eyes and inspects the item. The ring's true name is revealed. Ornate iron ring, a complete piece of trash. He chuckles inwardly. Nothing can deceive his eyes now. He had already identified the ring long ago through appraisal. Meanwhile, Xiaofeng, still standing proudly on stage, declares he's found a divine item and prepares to appraise it. The moment the results appear, his face drops. The crowd watches in anticipation as he realizes the painful truth. The ring is nothing more than an ordinary iron ring. He erupts in fury, yelling at Qing and blaming him for the entire mess. According to him, it was Qing's fault he misjudged a worthless item. He demands a refund from the auctioneer, claiming he had only been joking when he bid 200 million on the ring, and that it should be treated as a harmless mistake. But the auctioneer calmly reminds him that rules are rules. As the representative of the Tattoos hunting group, he will notify the group to settle the full amount within 24 hours. If they fail to pay, not only will the group face severe punishment from the World Guide, but they'll also be disqualified. or outright disbanded. Additionally, the man himself will be charged with disrupting the auction and sentenced to a labor camp to pick up rubbish. The auctioneer then waves to the guards and instructs them to take him away, explaining that since the bid amount is substantial, someone will escort him to the union for payment collection. Xiaofeng continues shouting at our boy over and over, accusing him of being the root of all his troubles. Watching the chaos unfold, one man remarks that this guy just destroyed an entire hunting group without shedding a drop of blood. Another agrees, adding that it seems routine for the man with the platinum VIP status. The auctioneer then resumes the blind bidding session. The next item up is a wild transformation necklace. It grants the wearer immunity to movement control effects, prevents knockbacks, and even bestows a self-healing ability. Our boy immediately recognizes it as a perfect fit for Xiaozhou, feeling as if it were made just for her. He places a bid of 1 yuan, intending to gift it to his sister. Someone mutters that Mr. Platinum is scheming again. Another recalls how he previously played Xiaofeng, tricking him into spending 200 million yuan, restricting his freedom, and now leaving him stuck waiting for his leader to bail him out. They agree there's no point in bidding against him. It would be an idiotic move. The auctioneer playfully asks if anyone wants to challenge his bid, while the crowd begins to suspect that the platinum guy might actually be an inside man hired by the auction house. Smiling, the auctioneer asks again if anyone is willing to place a bid, but no one moves. They're not foolish enough to repeat Xiaofeng's mistake. Qing, watching the silence, wonders if it's his earlier actions that scared off the bidders. He grins, realizing that sometimes being misunderstood has its advantages. With no counterbids, the auctioneer congratulates our boy on winning the necklace. The rest of the bidders are left kicking themselves, realizing they'd spent far more on inferior items. That necklace was actually a unique piece of equipment, and our boy had secured it for just 1 yuan. Shortly after, our boy receives a message notifying him that he's earned 180 million yuan from the auction so far, meaning he now has even more capital to continue bidding. That night, our boy stands beside a woman showing him around various apartments. She explains that the building they're currently in represents the style and quality of homes in their community. It's considered the finest property in all of Shenfeng City, reserved for the wealthy elite. She tells him that the top floor apartment, measuring 1,000 square meters, comes with a price tag of 100 million yuan. Then, almost mockingly, she advises him not to waste time on properties he can't afford. Instead, she offers to show him an 80 square meter unit, something he might manage by taking out a 30-year loan with monthly installments. But he calmly cuts her off, saying there's no need to show any other place, he's buying this one. She raises an eyebrow and informs him that someone with his credit rating isn't eligible for a 100 million yuan loan. Besides, these penthouses are only sold to the rich. He responds coolly, saying he'll pay the full amount in cash, but he wants to move in immediately. She should ensure everything is ready by noon. Later that afternoon, he takes Zhou Tang and Xiaozhou to the newly purchased penthouse. Stunned by the sudden upgrade, Xiaozhou questions what's going on. She hasn't seen him all day, and now they're suddenly standing in a mansion. She demands to know the cost and how he's affording it. He tells her the house is under her name. The ceiling is high enough to accommodate her transformation into a bear, and even if she breaks it, he'll just buy another one for her. Xiaozhou stands speechless, unable to grasp that her brother bought such a grand place in her name. Meanwhile, Zhou Tang dashes through the vast rooms, overjoyed, shouting that the mansion is so massive his voice echoes inside. Our boy and his sister gaze out the window, and he promises her she will never suffer again. The three of them spend the evening playing, singing, and celebrating, both for the new home and for our boy's newly acquired hunter license. Eventually, Zhou Tang slumps on the sofa, while Xiaozhou stretches out across the table, both exhausted from the festivities. On the balcony, our boy stands quietly as Xingran approaches him. She comments that it looks like he's checking the air outside. He replies that despite owning the best house in the best part of the city, the air still feels polluted. She congratulates him on officially becoming a hunter. She's witnessed his relentless effort and insists his achievements are well earned. For now, she tells him to take pride in it. He turns to thank her. Xingran encourages him to lift his spirits since tonight is meant to celebrate his success. She then reveals a gift, pulling out a crystal stone, the same one he had given her years ago when they first met. Seeing it stuns him, his eyes lighting up. She explains that she always wore it whenever she ventured into the abyss. Now she wants to return it to him as a meaningful gift. That crystal reminded her that there are people in the world who refuse to be shackled by status or fate. People who fight to rewrite their destinies, even at the cost of their lives. She says the crystal brought her luck and helped her survive countless dangers. Our boy nods, agreeing with her perspective, saying that life isn't really about luck. She continues, recalling how he once said that rather than convincing others to believe in their relationship, it was easier to prove it through strength. She now understands, escaping unscathed doesn't rely on chance either. Our boy explains that he believes in direct action. Standing alive before others is more powerful than any argument. Xingran smiles and admits that's what she admires about him. Most people, upon discovering her identity, assume her success stems from being the Liu family heiress. Very few acknowledge her hard work. It's always been her dream to earn respect based solely on her abilities, and she's confident that one day, like her siblings, she'll achieve it. She adds that although the crystal isn't valuable in terms of money, she could never measure its worth that way. The same applies to him. He's like that crystal. She tells him it doesn't matter whether he lives in a mansion, a modest apartment, drives a fancy car, or even rides a shared bicycle. She'll still like him just the same, because she likes the super strong scavenger Ye Qing. Our boy chuckles, admitting that suddenly becoming rich isn't as thrilling as people might think. For him, street barbecue and beer will always beat wine and steak. Then he mentions needing money for something she once said. Xingran looks at him intrigued. He explains she once told him he could form his own hunter group if he had enough funds. She begins outlining that building a hunter group from scratch requires a serious investment. As she speaks, he opens a void vortex, retrieving something from it. He says he intends to create a hunter group and explore the most dangerous abyss. Playing solo won't make him stronger anymore, just as she had said. He now holds a golden rune in his hand, stating that he must accept the rules of the world. Then he smirks and declares that he himself will become the rule of this world. MC stands in front of the trash center, noting how, despite this being the most luxurious building around, its waste disposal system is shockingly inconvenient. He complains to himself that not only does he have to come all the way down from his apartment, but he also needs to walk a full 100 meters to reach the nearest trash bin. He wonders aloud if the rich even produce trash, given how little consideration has gone into this setup. A man walks up behind him and questions where he works, pointing out that he's violating the building's regulations. He coldly explains that there's a designated area for servants to dispose of garbage, and that our boy shouldn't wander around so carelessly with filthy items. He warns that outsiders might get the wrong idea and assume the wealthy are mingling with the poor. Our boy calmly replies that he isn't a servant. He's the new owner of one of the apartments, and introduces himself. Without missing a beat, the man hands him the banana peel he's been eating and sneers that in this high-class neighborhood, owners don't handle their own trash. Therefore, our boy must be a servant after all. He then turns and commands our boy to clean up the area as well, adding that he doesn't want to see him around here again. Our boy activates his gravity vortex skill, lifting the man effortlessly into the air. He coolly remarks that since this trash belongs to him, he should take responsibility for it himself, then slams the man down onto the ground in front of him. Furious, the man shouts in disbelief that a servant dares to speak to him this way. Our boy restricts all of the man's battle skills, rendering him unable to use brute force, and shoves him down again, ordering him to pick up the trash. The man continues to yell that no one is allowed to treat him like this. Our boy's system notifies him that the target has activated Titanic Power, a burst skill that grants 10 times the user's normal strength and enables them to break free from body restriction effects. However, our boy counters with his own legendary class body control skill, completely neutralizing the effect of Titanic Power. The man is stunned, unable to grasp how someone who looks like a servant could wield such powerful abilities. Our boy explains that Gravity Vortex is a skill acquired from a legendary monster, naturally making it superior to techniques learned through professional hunter academies. That alone classifies it as a legendary class ability. Even so, the man refuses to accept that our boy could be this strong and starts theorizing that he must be some kind of support-type specialist. He insists that the only reason he lost was because our boy ambushed him. Qing amplifies the pressure from his skill and commands him once again to pick up the trash. Overwhelmed, the man finally begs for mercy and promises to clean it up. After a few moments, our boy leaves him lying there near the trash bin. While checking his phone, our boy sighs that even though he's living in an upscale area now, his problems haven't decreased. He receives a message from Zhou Tang, asking where he is and complaining that he can't find anyone in the house because it's too massive. Our boy replies that he stepped out to throw out the trash, but now plans to visit their old place to settle a few matters. Zhou Tang starts panicking, wondering if the landlord is asking questions about the old house or something else. Our boy reassures him, saying he just left some things behind and is going back to retrieve them, nothing more. Now sitting in his old apartment, our boy murmurs that this place still feels more comfortable. The landlord shows up and informs him that even if he pays the rent, he can't stay here anymore. The entire plot of land has been purchased outright, and the buyer paid in advance for 50 years, meaning the ownership has changed hands permanently. Our boy smirks and replies that this piece of land now belongs to him, which means he's the buyer. Meanwhile, two men sit inside the World Association residence, a formal parliamentary building, discussing how Tattoos has accumulated a debt of 200 million yuan at the recent auction due to a certain buyer. One of the men explains that Tattoos blames Xiaofeng for illegal bidding, citing personal reasons, and has completely distanced himself from the scandal. The first man instructs the other to identify the mysterious buyer. He adds that since Tattoos is a powerful hunting group he had planned to support, he cannot allow any complications to arise around them. The subordinate reports that the buyer also took part in the hunter qualification examinations and was promoted to a full-time licensed hunter afterward. Furthermore, this same individual has ties to the recently dismantled Blood Oath hunting group. He presents a recording of our boy's magical fluctuations, gathered from the test stone. He continues, stating that they compared this magic signature to the traces found at the location where Caesar died, uncovering significant similarities. As he examines our boy's profile on the system, the boss concludes that this must be the special job holder. The subordinate warns that such special professions, those not listed in the official job registry, pose a threat to the current class hierarchy. They could destabilize the game rules that the World Association has established. If this person cannot be brought under control using those rules, he'll eventually become an enemy of the system itself. The boss calmly states that the individual will obey the rules, because they are the gods of this era, and all must follow the laws laid down by the gods. Our boy now stands in front of that very building. He enters the building and presents the golden rune to a girl, stating that it's his token and he wants to create a hunting group. She asks if he's aware of the requirements, explaining that he must pay a one-time founding capital of 50 million yen to the World Guide and possess the operating qualifications of a hunting group, similar to a license. She also clarifies that each hunting group is allowed access only to the abyss areas authorized by the World Guide and must adhere to all established rules. He assures her that funding won't be an issue. He's planning to pay in cash. She gestures toward the other side, pointing out that a number of licensed job holders are waiting in line to submit their applications. She suggests he can recruit team members from among them, as a hunting group must have at least 4 additional members registered by the end of the day. He names his group Scavenger's Home, and she displays it on the screen in front of the job changers. They glance over and react with disbelief, surprised that someone is forming a new group so late in the game. One of them remarks that the name is incredibly lame and scoffs at the idea that anyone would join a startup team consisting of just one person, especially since it's registered as an E-Class business. The girl explains that only E-Class business slots remain in the system, which represent the lowest tier resource recycling category. Because of this, the team won't be able to participate in activities designated for other hunting groups. According to the rules, they'll only be allowed to serve the main hunting groups. The protagonist realizes this means he's being pushed back into a role where he serves others, just like before. The man he defeated earlier that night appears behind him, remarking on the coincidence that he was taking out the trash when they first met, and now he finds him picking it up. He then asks if his name is Ye Qing. Grinning with malice, he says he's going to repay him for what happened last time, claiming he'll make him eat his own filth and wag his tail in front of him today. The protagonist recognizes the man, Fa Xiong, son of Fa Tianlin, a senator who recently formed his own hunting group called Hunting Heart. It becomes clear that Fa Xiong received his hunting group license thanks to his father's backing, and his group now has access to the highest tier abyss zones. Everyone in the hall is listening to their exchange. One person murmurs that nobody has ever survived after offending him, and that this newly formed group already seems doomed. The protagonist responds, stating that he's here to form a group and that this personal grudge has nothing to do with the matter at hand. He suggests they settle things elsewhere, but Xiong refuses to let it go, promising to make things as difficult as possible. He offers a compromise. If the protagonist kowtows to him in front of everyone and agrees to recycle the garbage left by his group in the future, then he'll permit him to recruit members today. Otherwise, he promises to see his group dismantled soon. The protagonist fires back, saying he doesn't even have enough value to be recycled. The insult sends Xiong into a rage as he starts shouting, demanding to know why the protagonist dares act so bold in his territory. Xiong's men quickly step in, urging him to calm down. They point out that a crowd is watching, and that there's no need to cause a scene over someone whose group is bound to fall apart. No one's going to apply anyway. They drag him away while the protagonist and others silently watch them leave. Suddenly, a voice calls out from behind. Jotang rushes over, saying he came as soon as he heard the protagonist was forming his own group. He declares that he wants to join. Xiong and his men hear this too. One of them identifies the boy, stating that he's Jotang, a former member of their group who couldn't buff at all and was considered a complete piece of trash. Qing asks if he passed the exam and if he's still worried no one will recruit him. Zhu explains that he's been with a private group all this time, but due to his poor reputation, no other group is willing to accept him. Then, with a sudden burst of emotion, he says that if his big brother accepts him into his group, he'll do anything for him, even be boiled alive or step into flames. The protagonist remarks that it sounds like no group has taken him in, even after all this time. Zhou admits he's been browsing through recruitment listings and came across the news that the protagonist offended Xiong. Now his group is apparently on the verge of collapse because of it. He also points out that the protagonist's token is a golden rune, indicating a B-level world, yet he's been assigned to E-level. That, he says, can't be a coincidence. It must be Xiong's doing. Our boy remarks that he doesn't mind even if the job involves collecting trash. It still works in their favor, whether it's a B-level task or an E-level one. He explains that it's unfair for the main groups to handle all the monsters while they're left behind to clean up after them. But then, he suddenly points out that all the valuable items will be taken by those groups with the manpower to collect them, leaving only trash behind, which won't benefit them much. Zhu responds by claiming he became wealthy just from picking up trash, clearly implying he has a way to make use of it effectively. Our boy replies that even though Zhou has money, there are still certain problems that money can't solve. the only thing that truly earns people's recognition is strength. Xiong cuts him off, stating there's nothing left to argue because everyone already knows that strength alone is the true symbol of power. He then announces he'll recruit 10 new members and will choose only the best from among them, telling those who aren't up to par to stay behind. Most of the job changers, those at levels 41, 46, 49, and similar, begin rushing toward him in hopes of being selected. Joe comments that everyone's desperate to join Xiong's team because they know his father is the one managing all the hunting groups. Moreover, most of the level 50 candidates aren't actual newcomers, but a bunch of sycophantic veterans. Watching the eager crowd, Xiong praises their good judgment, contrasting them with the garbage, clearly referring to our boy. Just then, a newcomer named Yiling enters the hall, asking if there are only 2 groups available to choose from today. Xiong's men inform him that she's the latest recruit and already highly regarded by many hunting groups. Meanwhile, Ying glances at the display screen and notices a newly formed group named Scavenger's Home, created just today. Zhu recognizes Yiling and mentions they passed the hunter exam together, which means she must be here today to join a group as well. Our boy adds that he knows her too. She's the one who uses instant explosion spells. Joe confirms her strength, recalling how, during the exam, she inflicted the most damage while the rest of them relied heavily on her. He then says he's going to ask her to join their team, and our boy urges him to go quickly. However, Xiong has already reached her and begins explaining that he's the leader of a group named Hunting Heart. He genuinely invites her to join, saying it's a good opportunity to have a talented young woman like her on the team. Then he disparages Scavenger's Home, calling it nothing more than a trash group and warning her not to choose it. Zhou begins panicking, thinking it's all over because Xiong already got to her first. Ling, however, calmly tells Xiong she's already decided to join the scavenger team. Xiong starts yelling, demanding to know why such a brilliant warlock would insist on joining such a low-tier group. He argues that with only E-level qualifications, that group isn't worth her time, and joining them would just waste her talent. But Ying walks over to our boy, extends her hand to Qing, and says she really likes the group's name. From behind, Zhou tries to get her attention, asking if she remembers him since they met recently, but she doesn't respond. She introduces herself as Yiling, a fire elemental sorcerer, and formally asks our boy to let her join his group. Both our boy and Zhou introduce themselves in return, and our boy takes her hand, assuring her that he would never reject someone who truly wants to join. During the handshake, Ling becomes a little shy, so to shift the mood, our boy suggests they go eat something. While they eat, a few other members approach, but Ling politely declines their offer, saying she's not hungry. Our boy asks the receptionist if they can order food there, and the 3 of them settle on the sofa. Our boy browses the menu, thinking everything is ridiculously expensive, while Ling casually orders 1 portion of every item available. As for Zhou Tang, he simply watches both of them in silence. Meanwhile, Fa Xiong fumes with anger over Ling's rejection, and his men try to console him, suggesting there must be something wrong with that woman. They reassure him that they already have enough professionals on the team, so it doesn't really matter whether she joins or not. Just then, someone approaches from behind and tells Xiong and his group to move aside. Everyone in the hall turns to look, including Ling, Zhou, and our boy, who are still eating. All eyes fall on the figure, and they instantly recognize him as Wu Ming, the man rumored to have killed all his teammates. People whisper that he's cursed, and that anyone associated with him ends up with a miserable fate. Ming walks straight up to our boy and says he found out about him at the World Guide residence, and he remembers an unresolved battle still hanging between them. Our boy replies that he's currently recruiting members for his group, and since Ming came to him personally, that must mean he's interested in joining. Ming picks up a piece of Yiling's cake and eats it, replying that although he is interested, it also depends on whether our boy is willing to accept him. After all, he's known to be unlucky, and anyone connected to him will see their fortune decline. Moreover, his curse also affects those who remain near him. This isn't the whole issue. Now even equipment drops have started deteriorating because of him. Ming is sitting with them, while Xiong and his men keep watch from a distance. One of the men remarks that everyone knows Ming hasn't received decent gear in years, all thanks to his horrible luck. As a result, he always ends up with low-quality equipment. Xiong sneers, saying that with luck like that, no one would ever want him on their team. Our boy asks if his bad fortune actually causes loot to degrade in quality. Meanwhile, Ming is reaching out and snatching another piece of cake from Ling, who tries to stop him. Between bites, Ming asks why he's being interrogated like this, and admits he isn't sure, but maybe our boy is right. He casually explains that he earns a living by completing commissions for clients. As long as the rewards are generous, he doesn't even glance at the equipment, and even when he does, it's always junk to him. So it really doesn't matter. Ling, now fuming because of the stolen cake, grows visibly irritated, while Zhou steps in to calm her down. As Ming continues talking, our boy suddenly lights up and cuts in, excitedly saying he wants Ming to join his team. He insists that Ming is exactly the kind of special talent they've been missing. To our boy, worthless equipment is like buried treasure, and Ming, with his curse, can degrade equipment quality to the lowest possible tier. That means they'll have a higher chance of scoring top-tier loot. With that, our boy extends his hand for a handshake, formally inviting Ming to join the team. Xiong and his men burst into laughter, mocking our boy for being so desperate that he's recruiting someone who'll only drag their luck down further. Xiong adds that the name Scavenger fits him perfectly, since all he does is pick up unwanted trash. Ming warns our boy that his entire team might get wiped out in the abyss. However, when it comes to Ye Qing, he declares he'll be the one to personally kill him. That said, he's still accepting the offer to join. The protagonist, however, calmly replies that our boy will be disappointed because he'll never let any of his members die on his watch. Around them, people begin whispering about Wu Ming, saying he's incredibly strong. One person notes that he's known as a cursed man. Every time he enters the abyss with a team, he always comes out alone, the rest wiped out completely. His record is flawless in that regard, 100% survival, for himself. Xiong shakes his head in disbelief that our boy would hire someone so unlucky. He scoffs that no one else will dare join the team now. He either brings on idiots or walking disasters. Meanwhile, our boy reviews the application requirements. So far, he's recruited 3 members, and just needs 1 more to meet the basic quota in time to receive the hunting group license. But it's been a while, and still no one else has approached them. Shu remarks that it seems they're just not that popular. Ling blames it entirely on him and Ming. Then Faxiong walks over and informs them that time is running out. If they fail to recruit a final member, their hunting group application will expire. On top of that, he's personally instructed the review team to reject the application, citing reasons like poor leadership traits, failure to organize a stable group, and other disqualifications. From this point forward, not only will our boy be barred from becoming a leader, but if he attempts to use his hunter license, it'll be restricted. That's his punishment for daring to insult him. He asks if our boy regrets anything. Qing replies that his team already has the required number of members. But Xiong challenges that, pointing out they only have 5, then starts counting them out. First, the weakling Zhou Tang. Second, the brainless woman Yiling. Third, the walking disaster Wu Ming. That's only 3 members besides our boy. 1 is still missing. But our boy confidently says no, they aren't 4. They're 5. Just then, a girl rushes in, apologizing for being late. She explains she was trapped in the abyss and nearly died. It was Qing's fault, she adds, for rushing through the explanation. The girl is Xingran, and she tells them to skip the drama and officially count her as a team member. Everyone in the room instantly recognizes her as Xingran, the heiress of the Liu family, one of the sponsors of the World Guide. Even though she's the lowest ranked among her siblings, her status is still highly prestigious. Xiong can't believe she's joined this team. Normally, people like her get scouted by top-tier hunting groups. Even though she rejected her family's elite training plan and isn't receiving any special resources, joining such a third-rate group still makes no sense, unless Ye Qing is genuinely capable. But Faxiong scoffs, calling it nonsense. According to him, Qing has no real skill, he just relies on dirty tricks. If he hadn't pulled a sneak attack last night, Faxiong says, he would have been the one sending Qing to the hospital. One of his men asks whether they're still going to wait, since the scavengers assigned by the guild haven't arrived. Xiong explains that their mission is classified as A-level, and only high-grade loot drops here. There's nothing but trash left behind, so scavengers won't be of any use. Meanwhile, the receptionist congratulates them on successfully forming their group. She records all relevant details, total members, their levels, current status, and names, and tells them they're now eligible to accept E-class teamwork missions. Xiong, walking away with his team, hears our boy announce that they'll be joining the Hunter Heart's A-class Abyss expedition and that he'll take full responsibility for cleanup. Outraged, Xiong yells that with an E-class status, our boy has no right to touch his A-class mission. Our boy calmly explains that E-class only refers to business scope, and there's no restriction on the level of the abyss they can enter. Since the team has available slots, they're allowed to apply. The receptionist hands over the authorization card, confirming they've been granted permission to participate in the Hunter Heart's Abyss Hunt. Xiong furiously accuses our boy of exploiting loopholes in the rules. Our boy extends his hand for a handshake and says they should put their grudges aside and work together. After all, they're heading into a rich, A-class abyss. Xiong snaps that he'd never work with him, but if he insists on picking up his trash, fine. He'll leave him a pile to dig through. With that, he storms off, hurling insults at our boy. Qing smirks and reminds him that he must obey the orders of the Hunter Heart team's leader. Zhou asks if he's really okay working under someone like that. Our boy replies no, he doesn't want to. But with scavenger status, they can enter any abyss level without restrictions. Even those with the worst qualifications can access the highest level hunts. That's the real advantage. Zhou Tang becomes visibly shaken. Our boy continues, saying that becoming a scavenger was entirely intentional, but teaming up with the Hunter Heart group happened by chance. This mission, however, contains the key to the Black Tower, and that key is the Black Keystone. The others ask what the Black Tower key is. Our boy explains that according to reports, one of the Abyss missions contains the key to the Black Tower. He's certain Hunter Hart received special privileges to be assigned such a high-profile mission. Ming elaborates that the Black Tower key is a ticket to the Tower Challenge, where all participants receive rewards based on how many floors they ascend. Some of those rewards include curse removal or healing incurable diseases. Ling adds that many groups around the world have tried to find the key through various abyss gates, but only a few succeeded. Those who did entered the Black Tower, and today they stand among the strongest, including her own siblings. Ju interrupts, admitting he's clueless about this key, and wonders aloud if it might turn him into a superstar. But everyone immediately responds in unison that he needs real strength to claim it. Joe sighs, resigned to the fact that he'll have to grow stronger to earn respect. Our boy tells his teammates that they now have a shot at finding the key, and if luck's on their side, they might even get to it before anyone else. Plus, since the Hunter Hart will be leading the way, they'll have extra time to locate the hidden room. The whole group stares at him, stunned. Shinran mutters that this must have been his plan from the start, but our boy shakes his head. It wasn't. He genuinely thought he could easily gather enough team members, but things didn't turn out as expected. Above all, he insists, this is pure coincidence. The day of the A-Class Abyss mission had finally arrived, and they entered the Abyss through its gate. Faxiong and his team took the lead, while Scavenger's Home followed at the rear. As they stepped into the Abyss, Jotang lit up with excitement. He could see the sky above, even inside this place, completely different from previous dungeons, which were always enclosed. The main character explained that some abysses were open-world types like this one. These lacked the traditional room-based layout and also had no directional markers. Anyone who couldn't find their way back would be hopelessly lost. Because of this, such abysses were inevitably dangerous. Ling and Xingran entered after the others, their entire bodies concealed beneath protective clothing and dark glasses. The main character asked if they intended to stay like that the whole time. Ling responded that they were protecting themselves from the sun's harmful effects. The group pressed deeper into the abyss. Jotang remained the only one visibly thrilled, singing loudly out of pure excitement. Faxiong, on the other hand, grumbled in frustration, complaining that he hated abysses like this, ones that required endless walking just to locate the mission target. A girl from his team studied the reports and noted that an oasis fortress was situated at the center of the abyss. Xiong glanced around, wondering aloud if this really qualified as an A-class abyss. So far, they hadn't seen any greenery, nor had they encountered a single monster. Another man added that he also found it strange, especially since a flock of birds had been circling above them the entire time, as though waiting for the right moment to strike. Hearing this, another team member glanced upward and shouted for everyone to stay alert. They weren't ordinary birds. They were harpies. Chaos erupted as everyone darted about, searching for cover. But the open terrain gave the creatures the advantage, offering nowhere to hide. One of them shouted at Scavenger's Home, accusing them of failing to find a safe location and suggesting they were practically asking to die at the hands of the monsters. The main character calmly explained that there was no need to fear the birdmen. Their only threat lay in picking people up and dropping them from high altitudes. Ling scoffed and said that if anyone got caught, it was proof their positioning was awful. One member of Xiong's team lashed out, snapping that she had no right to mock the main force of Hunting Heart, especially as auxiliary staff. He added that they should be grateful Faxiong even allowed them to tag along and pick up the leftovers. The Harpies launched another wave of attacks, swooping down repeatedly. One member of Hunting Heart got grabbed and lifted into the air. His teammate rushed to help, but before he could do anything, the Harpy suddenly burst into flames and released the man. Ling had cast a fire explosion and sent the creature crashing to the ground. She sneered again, remarking that she had assumed the members of Hunting Heart were elites, but clearly, some were just there to make up the numbers. The man attempted to defend himself, insisting he'd only been distracted by her presence. Otherwise, he would have handled the situation. Watching him, the main character wondered if this was how the main force behaved, failing at positioning and constantly blaming others for their own mistakes. As the Harpies shifted their focus toward the main character and Ming, the same man taunted them, claiming it was now their turn to show their skill. Just as the birdmen closed in, the main character drew his sword and felled one with a single slash. The surrounding men stared in disbelief. One of them scoffed that it was just luck, that he had probably hit the bird's weak point by accident, and claimed he could have done the same. The Harpy's body landed near the boastful man, but suddenly twitched and sprang back to life, growling viciously. The man shrieked, calling for help. The main character calmly placed a foot on the creature's face, and told him that harpies were highly sensitive to sound. If he wanted to avoid more trouble, he needed to move in complete silence. Meanwhile, Xiong and his team continued battling the monsters. Ling unleashed electric shocks that sent the remaining harpies fleeing. Enraged, Faxiong ordered his men to kick out 2 of the team members, declaring them useless and insisting that Hunting Heart had no place for such incompetence. Jotang scanned the horizon, trying to determine if the area was finally safe. The main character explained that the harpies had attacked in response to the noise caused by the ranger, which was also why he had been their first target. Xingran elaborated, saying that although these creatures were weak, they prioritized attacking job holders like mages and bards who needed time to chant their spells. Jotang's face turned pale as he realized this made him their enemy. Xingran continued, pointing out that harpies easily broke through shield defenses to strike the back row. This meant that support classes positioned in the rear were at significantly higher risk when fighting them. Now visibly shaken, Jotang muttered that he should have shut his mouth earlier. A member of Hunting Heart claimed that the monsters wouldn't be returning anytime soon after getting driven off like that. But just then, the ground began to tremble. Xingran's expression turned grim. She said the harpies hadn't retreated out of fear of them. They were fleeing from something even more powerful, lurking nearby. Meanwhile, Jotang crouched to hide again, and Ling yanked him by the ear in irritation. They spot an entire crowd of ogres charging toward them. Faxiong immediately takes command, directing the healers to retreat to the back line and instructing the tanks to form a front line just behind him. He then signals the rogues to move into position and eliminate every enemy in sight. Glancing at our boy's team, Xiong smirks and comments that he's a true professional leader, capable of commanding more than 20 men. He adds that it's time to show the power of Hunting Heart to the trash-picking team, who are standing on a cliff like spectators, silently observing the battle below. Xiong charges ahead, harnessing his titanic strength as he barrels into the ogres, taking them down one by one. The rest of his team follows closely behind, and he urges them to wipe out the enemies in a single sweep. The battle officially erupts. The protagonist notes that Hunting Heart should have no trouble handling the fight, as the ogres appear rather weak. Ling turns to ask when they're going to join the battle, but Zhou nervously admits he wants to retreat. He's too scared. Our boy suggests they simply observe, explaining that Faxiong clearly intended to show off his strength. Besides, they're only here to collect the leftovers. Suddenly an ogre appears in front of them. Our boy lands a solid punch to its face and immediately senses this isn't random. It feels deliberate, as if Xiong had orchestrated it. Meanwhile, Xiong laughs at them for getting dragged into the fight and mocks them by saying they should go ahead and pick up the trash they came for. Looking down at the discarded gear, our boy comments that these weapons resemble a royal parade of garbage. They glance at Ming, who just received a message stating his luck attribute is extremely low. Zhu examines one of the weapons and remarks that Hunting Heart would toss this kind of gear without hesitation. They only collect purple grade or higher, and these are so worthless they're not even white tier, they're gray. Our boy points out that these gray tier items are precisely what they're after, as they hold particular value for him. Strangely, none of the monsters are dropping blue grade or higher gear, and no critical hits are occurring, which results in only gray equipment. Xiong inspects one of the drops and scoffs that it's not even worth picking up. One of his members comments that something feels off. Not only are the ogres holding back, but even their own side can't seem to land any critical strikes. Xiong grumbles that today is unusually unlucky, and complains that his lucky equipment, which cost him a fortune, isn't working. Our boy also finds it odd, the monster's main force doesn't seem to be going all out. Xingran agrees, noting that monsters typically lack strategy and simply rush anyone who invades their territory. King recalls facing the King Elves during his hunter test, and how something felt off back then as well. He explains that certain monsters might actually be capable of communicating in their own language. He points toward the ogres. It genuinely looks like they're coordinating during the fight. On the other side of the battlefield, Xiong shouts for the healers to restore the tank's HP. The weaker job changers are fighting at the rear, including a fragile ranger who's managed to kill a few monsters. Then, a new threat emerges. Several ogres breach their rear guard. Cries erupt from the back line, warning that enemies have broken through and pleading for assistance. One of the members asks Xiong if they should clear a path back, since the rear is now in jeopardy. But Xiong continues charging forward, striking down ogres at the front, and replies that they should be advancing, not retreating. When asked about the endangered backline, he coldly orders them to expose the trash collector's location to the ogres, drawing their aggro, and keep pressing the attack. A smoke bomb is launched into the air. Moments later, the system announces that the ogre's aggro has been reset. Now, all eyes shift to our boy's team standing on the cliff, targeted and moments away from being attacked. Ming stiffens and announces something is barreling toward them. Jotang shouts that monsters are closing in for an attack. Ling shakes his head, insisting the creatures aren't acting randomly. They've been deliberately sent their way. Xingran's eyes light up with anticipation. They haven't had a proper fight since entering the abyss, and now it's their chance to unleash their strength. But the protagonist steps forward, raising a hand to stop them. He warns against wasting magic and health on a meaningless skirmish, urging them to reserve their energy for real threats. Ling glances at him, puzzled, and asks why they still can't use magic now. The protagonist narrows his eyes, explaining it feels like the ogres are herding them into a trap. He proposes testing the theory against the main force first, and as for these ogres, he can handle them alone. Without hesitation, he hurls himself off the cliff. The ogres below scramble to form a web, ready to catch him, but confusion spreads when he doesn't land on it. They scan the area, searching frantically. King now stands silently behind them. The moment they sense him, the ogres whirl around and lunge at him. He meets their assault head-on, dispatching them with effortless precision. Xingran cheers from above, grinning wide. It's clear the protagonist has grown much stronger in recent days. His speed is staggering, even the blur of his blades can barely be followed. He slices through one ogre after another, moving too quickly for them to retaliate. The remaining monsters falter, then bolt in fear, leaving the protagonist momentarily confused by their retreat. Meanwhile, the Hunting Heart members exchange smug glances, assuming the scavenger team must be struggling hard against the monsters. They believe the scavenger's sacrifice has made their own fight far easier. But then, the very group of ogres they had sent toward the scavenger team suddenly reappears, charging straight at them. Panic erupts as the Hunting Heart members cry out for help. The protagonist watches it unfold and speaks calmly, confirming what he suspected. These monsters target weaker prey. When confronted with a stronger enemy, they retreat. That kind of behavior proves the ogres are highly intelligent. Without warning, a massive ogre barrels into the front line and crushes the main tanker with a single blow. Ming's eyes widen in disbelief. He can't accept how quickly the tank was killed. Xiong turns to the healers and roars, demanding to know why they hadn't kept track of the tank's health. One healer stammers that he didn't see any drop in health. One hit was all it took, and the tank vanished in an instant. Through the swirling sand, a towering ogre emerges, lumbering straight toward them. Xiong steadies himself and mutters that these elite ogre warriors are far beyond the raiders in strength. The gap in difficulty is undeniable. He shouts for the team to regroup and hold formation. Another member rushes in, breathless, and reports that the backline has been overrun. The ogre raiders have cut off their escape, and now they're surrounded. The protagonist steps forward and states what's already clear: the ogre raiders were nothing but bait. Xiong unleashes his titanic strength, cutting down monsters one after another with his dual swords. He declares that large monsters don't intimidate him. In fact, they're nothing but trash compared to his power. Charging forward again, he roars that every one of them deserves to die. But this particular monster stands out. It moves with uncanny speed, dodging Xiong's strike with ease. The ogre counters with a powerful kick, slamming Xiong to the ground. Blood trickles from his nose and mouth as he lies sprawled on the floor. His team members scream his name, panicked to see their leader down. Fueled by desperation, they launch a furious assault on the monster, shouting that they must protect their commander. Xiong pushes himself up, wiping the blood from his mouth as his comrades clash with the ogres. Just then, a creature with an arrow embedded in its skull lunges at one of the members. Its body radiates a glowing red light. Shock spreads through the group. It was supposed to be dead, yet it's still moving and attacking. A girl in the squad shouts for everyone to back away, warning that necromancy magic has been cast on the corpse. Suddenly, all the ogres begin exploding like bombs. One member rushes over to report to Xiong that they can no longer heal anyone. Xiong quickly commands a retreat and orders them to deploy a smokescreen to break the monster's aggro. Our boy watches the chaos unfold, noting aloud that necromancy spells have likely been used to turn the corpses into living bombs. He instructs his own group to stay clear of the bodies, just as he notices a monster crawling toward him. Without hesitation, he orders the recycling of all corpses. Moments later, Ling reports that every body has been completely absorbed. Zhou Tang cheers, praising our boy for his brilliance. Ming observes that his ability seems remarkably unique. Our boy says there's no time for explanations. They need to dispose of the remaining corpses quickly before the shamans can revive them. He reflects on how he originally thought he'd have ample time to examine the trash, but now he's forced to rush the recycling process. Xiong and his team sprint toward our boy's group. He announces that he's willing to offer them a chance, if they're interested. Our boy replies that he wants to hear the offer first. Xiong explains that if they agree to fight monsters in their place, he'll make sure to write a report after the mission stating that our boy's team contributed greatly to the A-rank operation alongside Hunting Heart. This could potentially raise their group's grade as well. Our boy responds that he's perfectly fine being a trash collector. Besides, if he ever shifts into another line of work, their team would just end up getting reported by him again. Zhou Tang cuts in, asking why he's even bringing that up. Wasn't he the one who insisted on keeping personal matters separate from work? Xiong calmly replies that this time, he's inviting him to join forces and merge with their Hunting Heart group as one. A few minutes earlier, Xiong realized one of the monsters wasn't easy to handle, prompting one of his team members to suggest they didn't need to engage the high-level beasts since this was an open abyss, meaning they could move forward without defeating the leader. Xiong confirmed this, stating they could avoid the fight entirely by circling around and heading straight to their objective. But maneuvering past them wouldn't be easy, as the monsters wouldn't stop pursuing. That same man mentioned his hatred for the scavenger team and offered to lure the beast toward them. Another member volunteered instead, adding that his father held a top position, so no one would hold him accountable for the deaths of those trash pickers. In the present, Xiong offers a genuine proposal to fight alongside them as a united group. Zhou tells Cheng it's just a ploy to use them as cannon fodder. Even Xingran agrees, pointing out they nearly got wiped out fighting these monsters and now want to drag them into a trap. Still, it's a valuable opportunity, and they have no choice but to take it. Xiong promises that if they accept the offer, they'll be treated like an A-level hunting group and receive an additional share in the final settlement. Our boy agrees to join, but Zhou immediately yells for him not to go through with it. Faxiong responds with a proud grin, claiming our boy is worthy of being chosen and declaring that they'll now charge together as a testament to their friendship. Xingran says she doesn't care either way, she just wants to carve up some monsters, and Ling shares her excitement. Our boy asks for a brief delay, saying they need to hold an internal meeting. Zhou continues insisting that Faxiong has had malicious intent from the start and only wants to get rid of them. Our boy summons a shield artifact and hands it to Zhou, instructing him to use it at a critical moment. It's actually a legendary class shield. Ling, amazed, says it's her first time seeing a legendary item and asks to touch it for a while. But Zhou refuses, saying he wouldn't be able to repair damage to a legendary shield. Our boy simply tells him not to worry. If it breaks, just throw it away, and he'll replace it with a new one. Our boy then turns to Xingran and asks if she has any medical proficiency, as it's part of a knight's core talent. She admits that while healing spells are standard for knights, she's not very good at using them. Our boy tells her that still qualifies her as their designated healer. She explains she usually ventures into the abyss alone, and doesn't really know how to fill that role. Watching Zhou and Ling bicker over the shield, our boy says she just needs to stay in the rear and protect them. After all, she's the only job changer among them with healing abilities, so her main task is ensuring they all make it out of the abyss alive. Zhou grumbles that this means his life is now in her hands, but Ling objects, saying she's not so weak that she needs protection. Qing places a hand on her shoulder and tells Xingran he's entrusting them to her, so she must keep them safe. He then turns to Ling and reminds her that since her skill involves fire, she needs to target any monsters that get too close, and not let them die nearby, as necromancer spells can turn their corpses into bombs. She assures him she'll incinerate the monsters into charcoal before they even get the chance to explode. Our boy glances at Ming and asks why he's staring at him like that, adding that he's not planning to die anyway. He tells him to do whatever he wants. Right now their primary objective is simple: eliminate Ogma and Ogtella without relying on the Hunting Heart group. Xiong announces that his team will handle the other monsters, they just need to distract the large one. He also warns them to watch out for the small monster riding it, as that one has the power to detonate the others. Our boy and his team advance toward the monsters. Xiong scoffs, asking if they're stupid. They didn't even buff themselves or power up before heading in. As they disappear into the smoke, Xiong shouts for his team to retreat as fast as possible. Otherwise, once these newcomers are killed, the monsters' aggro will fall back on them. As soon as our boy steps into enemy territory, two monsters charge at him. He slaughters them instantly, and then requests the system to allow him to understand their language. A moment later, the system grants his request. The small monster speaks, claiming they are the Ogre clan, divinely assigned to guard the valley where the Emperor rests, and anyone who dares enter must die. Zhou shouts that they need to kill that little one. It's clearly the shaman and the mastermind. If it dies, the entire force will fall apart. All the ogres hand massive cleavers to the towering ogre, while the shaman starts restoring their health. Zhu panics, pointing out that with this much health, thick armor, and that massive axe, one hit from the monster will kill him. He urges our boy to wait for the Hunting Heart group. But when he looks back, he realizes they've already been abandoned. The others have used them as cannon fodder and fled. Zhou says even if they're treated that way, they shouldn't think of themselves as disposable. Ming asks what they're supposed to do now. Our boy says the undead shaman is trying to turn corpses into more cannon fodder, creating a cycle where even the dead become bombs that continue inflicting damage. His plan is simple: he'll handle the beheadings, while Ming clears the area. Ming nods and charges toward the monsters, but our boy yells that he hasn't even finished explaining yet. He then commands the rest of the team not to let a single one survive. Xingran confidently assures him he can rely on her to cover the rear, while Ling declares she'll reduce the monsters to ashes. Ming rushes into battle, and Zhou, gripping his weapon, says he'll give it his all too. Ming tears through the ogres, cleaving their limbs and bodies with clean, powerful swings of his sword. The main character advances toward the massive one ahead, calling out that he's leaving the smaller ones for Ming to handle. He readies himself to face the towering brute while Zhou, Xingran, and Ling remain behind, watching the battle unfold. Zhou shouts encouragement to both our boy and Ming, while Ling and Xingran complain that they want to fight the monsters too. Zhou Tang catches sight of several creatures approaching from the side, and quickly responds by casting buffs and ensnaring them with chains. Relief and pride wash over him. He didn't mess up this time, a clear sign that his control and precision have improved. Ling lifts her hand to summon fire magic and throws him a backhanded compliment, saying that at least he's not being a burden. She then hurls a barrage of fire spells at the monsters, igniting them in flames while Zhou Tang still stands dangerously close. She yells at him to get out of the way. He fires back, pointing out that she clearly missed the fact he was standing right there. She retorts that, according to the boss's orders, they must finish the monsters quickly. If not, their bodies will explode. Meanwhile, she mutters internally that he kind of deserved it for not letting her touch the shield. The ogres surge toward them again. Shu remarks that they're digging holes everywhere, acting more like moles than monsters. Ling peers at the terrain and observes that the holes appear to be connected. She casts another wave of fire into one, and the flames ripple outward through the entire tunnel system thanks to the interlinked passages. Joe quips that instead of being called an ogre slayer, Ling should be labeled a live bomb. From a little distance away, Xingran praises their efforts, telling them they've done a great job and advising them to stay behind her. She offers to hold the monsters back and heal them if needed. Ling suddenly shouts a warning, monsters are closing in from behind. Without hesitation, Xingran freezes them solid, reasoning that frozen bodies shouldn't explode. Ling and Zhotang cheer her on, impressed by her quick thinking and calling her a genius. Now Xingran scans the battlefield, searching for our boy. He's locked in combat with a monster that charges at him in a full-blown rampage. Qing, observing calmly, states that even if the creature pushes its power level to 100, it won't deal any damage, unless it manages to land a hit. That same little shaman from before uses necromancy again, summoning the corpses of dead ogres from the holes to attack our boy. In response, Qing activates the recycle skill and taunts the shaman, declaring that he's about to return all the trash that was thrown at him, recycling return. The summoned ogres get sucked into a portal, drawn in for recycling. Meanwhile, outside the labyrinth, Faxiong and his team observe from a distance, convinced that the scavenger team must have perished by now. Suddenly, the massive monster grabs the smaller one perched on its head and devours it. Our boy watches grimly and concludes that, in order to survive and grow stronger, the creature is consuming its own kin. In that moment, the monstrous figure, Ogma, undergoes a terrifying transformation. Our boy realizes the truth. Ogtella hadn't been controlling Ogma, but had actually been suppressing its full strength. Now, with Ogtella gone, Ogma reverts to its original form, a skeletal monstrosity, radiating overwhelming power. Yiling has incinerated all the ogres, and Xingran tends to her wounds, explaining that the healing touch will not only restore her overall health, but also soothe the minor burns. Zhotang battles the monsters nearby while calling out to Ming for support. He exclaims that it feels like Ming has died since there's no trace of him anywhere. Wuming strides toward Zhou, a trail of dead ogres marking his path, and asks if Zhou is cursing him. Ling shouts at Zhou not to worry, he's still alive. Chu erupts in frustration, demanding why Wuming never backs them up or offers any real help despite being part of the same team. Wuming responds that he is helping, by keeping his distance. His curse, he explains, turns even a single scratch into a fatal wound that not even Xingran's healing powers could mend. Xingran dryly adds that it wouldn't matter anyway, since she has no intention of acting like a babysitter. Ming chimes in, stating he only joined the group because they were short-handed. Besides, he reminds them, he's a professional mercenary. At that moment, a monster charges him from behind, but he instantly eliminates it with a single strike. He casually notes that each monster kill is being charged separately. Meanwhile, Ogma clashes with the main character, and Qing quickly realizes the sand beneath them is hampering movement, meaning the massive monster is even manipulating the terrain. To counter this, Qing decides to activate the gravity vortex skill to boost his displacement ability. Ogma presses the attack relentlessly, prompting the protagonist to scale the cliff for better evasion. Staying off the ground will make dodging easier. Sensing the shift in tempo, the protagonist unleashes frenzy mode, embracing a more aggressive approach. He launches himself toward Ogma and both strike simultaneously. Then, the protagonist lands a decisive blow that slices through Ogma's body. Enraged, the monster retaliates with brutal force. The system warns that a full dodge is impossible, he'll sustain at least 30% damage. He crashes to the ground, inflicted with the imprisoned debuff, which disables his emergency evasion and movement skills. Facing imminent recycling, he orders a tactical retreat, prioritizing treatment for the blood loss. As both his gear and body undergo recycling, Ogma charges again, determined to finish the fight. To counter the assault, the protagonist activates the cut hamstring effect, sharply reducing Ogma's mobility and turning speed. The impact is immediate. Ogma's health drops to 75%. The protagonist declares that this is how he'll take the monster down. Ogma activates its sand trampling skill and charges at the protagonist with such overwhelming force that he's hurled across the battlefield, crashing through the floor right in front of his group members. This fight is clearly no walk in the park. Zhotang grows increasingly anxious about his elder brother. Meanwhile, the system announces that Ogma has triggered its super recovery, removing the effects of the cut hamstring skill, and its health surges back, first to 83%, then 93%, and finally it's fully restored to 100%. Our boy explains that Ogma's super recovery will automatically regenerate its health unless it takes damage within a 3-second window. Wuming comments that Faxiong made a smart move. There's no need to force this battle, and they can still retreat to catch up with the Hunting Heart team. Our boy responds that he has already figured out the monster's combat mechanism. Besides, if he walks away without claiming the reward, he knows he'll be filled with regret and unable to sleep tonight. Wuming presses further, asking how they're supposed to kill something that recovers instantly after 3 seconds of no damage. Our boy admits he can't handle it alone, but if everyone contributes, then it's doable. He elaborates that Agma's aggro doesn't work like traditional monsters, it only targets the last person who struck it. So the plan is to take turns hitting Agma and keep rotating aggro until they wear down its will to fight. At the same time, they must ensure Agma doesn't activate its super recovery again. He states that Wuming, Xingran, and he will take turns engaging the monster to shift its focus, while Yiling will be responsible for preventing any health regeneration during combat. If they all follow the plan precisely, they can take it down. Zhou Tang then asks what he's supposed to do. Our boy answers that for now his only job is to stay alive. Zhou adds that since Qing can detect a target's hidden strength, he just wants to know their odds of beating this monster. Our boy replies that, by his estimate, their chances stand at 20%. That number terrifies Zhou, who realizes they're gambling their lives on a 1 in 5 shot. He proposes abandoning the fight and joining Faxiong's team instead. Ling teases him, saying that a 20% chance doesn't sound all that bad. Our boy outlines the rest of the strategy. They only have one shot at this. If Agma's health returns to full again, they must immediately retreat. He'll shoulder the aggro most of the time to protect the others, and if things turn critical, he'll be the one risking everything. While healing him, Xingran says she'll give him a better shot at winning, and that she believes in him, which is why she refuses to back down. Zhou says he believes in his big brother too, so he's also staying. Even Ling steps up, saying to count her in, she still has plenty of mana to spare. Seeing this, Wuming calls them all fools for charging headfirst into certain death. Thanks to a combination of Xingran's healing spells and his own health regeneration, our boy's body fully recovers. Even the double violet bleeding effect is gone. Xingran beams with pride, satisfied that she's helped him in a meaningful way. Our boy tells her she's done more than she thinks, because now, with the healing complete, he can activate his triple berserk ability. Shocked by this revelation, Xingran stares at him wide-eyed. Wuming quickly explains that the effects of berserk stack with each level it's applied. Although our boy can now balance the blood loss with recovery, reaching the 3rd stage of berserk still carries a real risk of death. Our boy acknowledges the danger, but insists that if he wants to defeat the monster, he has no choice but to grow stronger, even if it's a gamble. With everyone prepared for the next round, Yiling activates her flame form, which boosts all fire spell damage at the cost of reduced health. She tells them to leave all long-range firepower to her. Now she hurls powerful fireballs at Agma, stronger than before. Xingran says she'll be supporting from the backline. When Agma focuses its aggro on Ling and charges at her, Zhou leaps in front, shield raised, and blocks the incoming strike. Our boy instructs Xingran to use her ice attribute to reinforce the ground, while he pulls aggro to relieve pressure on the rear guard. He sprints toward Agma, leaping from one frozen platform to the next as Xingran constructs an icy path beneath his feet. Meanwhile, Ling continues bombarding the monster with unrelenting fireballs. Our boy closes the distance to Agma's head just as it shifts its attention toward Xingran, who braces to counter with her ice ability. Xingran yells at Zhou Tang to find cover, warning she can't hold out much longer. The system alerts them that the monster's aggro has locked onto her, but Wuming charges in from behind, urging her to step aside as he parries Agma's strike with his sword. He tells her to advance since her speed gives her the edge, assuring her he'll watch her back and handle any threats that arise. Their entire group relentlessly bombards the monster, and the system updates the freezing accumulation value at 15%. Wuming calls out to Yiling, telling her to strike immediately as she gulps down a health potion to recover. Without hesitation, she hurls another barrage of fireballs at Agma. The monster's aggro shifts again, targeting her with a furious onslaught, leaving Wuming no chance to recover his own health. His HP plummets rapidly, and just as the protagonist reaches Agma to land a blow, the monster grabs him in its massive hand. Wuming charges in and slices through the monster's grip with his blade, freeing the protagonist from its hold. The protagonist praises him for the timely rescue. The damage interval remains under 2 seconds, and Agma still hasn't triggered its super recovery phase. Confident, the protagonist declares that victory is within reach and urges everyone to keep pressing the attack. The team rallies, fully committed to slaying the monster. Xingran promises to suppress its offense while Ling downs another energy potion. She then unleashes a renewed volley of fireballs, forcing a pained scream from Agma. Smirking, she mocks it, telling it to stop whining because it's irritating. The system flashes another notification. The aggro has switched to Yiling. The monster hurls its axe toward her, and the protagonist shouts at Xingran to intercept it. She summons her ice abilities to form a barrier but struggles, admitting it's slipping beyond her control. Watching from a distance, Zhou Tang recalls Qing's words, that they would handle the monster while he only needed to stay alive. When he asked about their odds of survival, Qing had estimated a mere 20%. Gripping his shield tightly, Zhou Tang sprints toward Yiling, positioning himself in front of her and raising the shield just in time to block the axe's path. He then urges her to shift course so they can dodge the next attack. The scene shifts to Zhou Tang's past. He sits on the floor, thinking he only wanted to become a celebrity and make a lot of money. But the truth is, he isn't worthy of it at all. He's nothing more than a piece of trash. He can't even sing properly because of his tongue, poor articulation, and a pitch he can't control. He gets up and moves toward the mic, but just as he reaches for it, The evil Jotang materializes in front of him and snatches it away, declaring he isn't made for singing and that kind of stuff. Jotang agrees with him. He admits he's not meant to be a musician or even some background character. He needs to understand that when he steps onto a stage or a battlefield, he belongs in the spotlight. The evil version of him asks whether he knows what the spotlight actually is, then vanishes. Jotang recalls hearing people say that those in the spotlight are the real stars and heroes, but he always questioned what the spotlight really meant, whether it was talent, a dream, courage, or maybe just an enlarged shadow. He used to believe that simply standing on stage with a mic meant the spotlight would choose him, but everyone insisted he wasn't made for it, because the truth is, he's just trash. Jotang says that even though he never managed to stand in the spotlight in front of an audience, he still can't bear watching others shine while he isn't even considered worthy of standing near it. He runs toward the spotlight, shouting that even if it's just for a little while, he wants to get close to it, or at least touch it. But doubts press down on him. Why is he even trying this hard? Isn't trash supposed to stay trash? Still, his desperation pushes him forward. It doesn't matter to him anymore if he never becomes a rap star on stage again. On the battlefield, he can shine like the main hero for once. These thoughts consume him, and in the present, he's sprinting to save Yiling. He knows the spotlight belongs to him. Then he takes the hit meant for Yiling and crashes to the floor. Seeing this, our boy erupts in fury and counters Ogma's axe strike with the gravity vortex. Consumed by rage, he ascends to the 3rd level of Berserk and declares he's going to crush every bone. Shinran tends to Jotang, explaining that those aren't crystals. They're glass formed by melting sand at extremely high temperatures and are incredibly strong. The monster hurls the glass shards toward him, but he dodges and snatches one midair, then drives it straight into Ogma's head. The monster flinches in pain, distracted, and Wu Ming seizes the moment to attack, slicing off one of its arms. Xingran freezes its lower body, leaving it no chance to activate its super healing skill. The monster's health drops significantly to 10%. Our boy pours all his power into the embedded crystal, which pierces through the monster's head and bursts out the other side, creating a gaping hole. He hurls gravity vortex magic into it and declares it'll be crushed into sand completely. Finally, the monster's health plummets to 0. After successfully killing the monster, our boy asks Xingran about Jotang's condition. She explains that he still has a chance to survive, and it's only because of the short-term invincibility effect from the shield our boy had given him. For now, all she can do is keep him alive. Her healing ability is too weak to do much more. Our boy shoulders the blame, insisting it's his fault. He should have known the rules of survival in the abyss better than anyone. He shouldn't have taken such a reckless risk. Jotang, however, smiles faintly, expressing that he's just happy to have helped in some way, that now, finally, he stood at the center of the stage. Our boy turns away, voice firm, stating that their mission is cancelled. For the time being, they should head back to the Abyss Gate with Jotang. He'll go into the abyss alone. Xingran reacts immediately, protesting, demanding to know what he means by that. He can't just go alone into the abyss. Our boy walks toward the spot where the monster had fallen. Every moment of that battle had felt like balancing on the edge of a knife, his heartbeat pounding like a war drum. If not for his resolute heart, he would have already fallen. Though he continues to grow stronger, he has silently lost many things along the way. As he stares into the abyss, it seems to stare right back, almost mocking his desperation and powerlessness. Meanwhile, he retrieves the bone meal amulet. Behind him, Jotang sobs quietly, thinking that even though he tried to help, he still ended up becoming a burden. Just like before, still useless. Our boy wrestles with his thoughts, wondering why he's hesitating. Why can't he even speak a few encouraging words to Jotang? Is it because he doesn't know if those words would truly motivate him? Or would they push him to risk his life again by diving deeper into the abyss? He can't tell anymore. The abyss, after all, shows no mercy to anyone. At the same time, he recycles the corpses of the ogres, silently collecting resources. He moves on, stepping through another gate, still thinking to himself that he can't bring himself to say those kinds of words to them. As he enters the next area, he encounters a field of corpses. It's clear that even after fleeing from the ogres, the Heart Hunters still ran into numerous monsters. Yet, he sees no sign of any fallen Heart Hunters, which means they're making steady progress. The system pings a notification. A smoke bomb had been used here. He holds the used device in his hand and remarks that the king's cannon is shaped like a pass. If anyone wants to go deeper into the abyss, it's impossible without being noticed by other creatures. Judging by the spent smoke bombs, it's evident they had no intention of engaging in battles. They'd come prepared, relying solely on stealth to bypass the monsters, and head straight for the final room of the abyss to claim the reward. He activates his observation eye, scanning the area. The enemies ahead aren't just raiders, they're high-level ogre berserkers. Their attack speed is slow, but their power is overwhelming. A single strike could instantly kill any warrior on their level. However, he has no intention of fighting them, at least not now. He stands before the ogres, tension thick in the air, as though a battle could erupt at any moment. Elsewhere, Zhong and his team stand before what appears to be a cave entrance. Xiong slams his fist against the stone door, but it doesn't budge. He mutters whether they've reached the end, then adds that the treasure must be inside. For now, though, They need to figure out how to open the door. One of his members steps up and points out a clue etched into the stone. According to the inscription, they need a guardian's amulet to unlock the door. Xiong scoffs, demanding to know what he's talking about. They haven't seen any amulet along the way. The man explains that since they avoided fighting any of the monsters, they never received the amulet, which should have dropped from one of them. Based on the description, the amulet must have been held by the ogre patrolling outside the canyon. Xiong shouts in frustration, realizing that the ogre they asked those trash pickers to distract was the one holding the key. That means they have to go back and kill it if they want to open the door. The man confirms, yes, they'll have to fight it. Xiong quickly asks his team how many smoke bombs they have left and how much inventory they'll need to sneak back. The team responds, all the smoke bombs and inventory have already been used. That means fighting through all kinds of monsters just to return. The same man adds that they're missing several key roles in their team. There's no way they can defeat that ogre now. Their main tank died early. The warlock and ranger are both gone. Only one healer remains and she's barely hanging on. Xiong erupts with rage, grabbing one of his men by the collar and shouting that all of this is because of that cursed guy. His luck has taken a nosedive. Suddenly our boy appears out of nowhere. He announces that the amulet they're desperately looking for is in his possession. Xiong stares in disbelief. He can't believe our boy is still alive. Our boy replies that it's thanks to Xiong that not only is he alive, but in good condition. Xiong scoffs again, pointing out that he's alone now. That must mean he survived by abandoning his team. Maybe the rest of them are already wiped out. Our boy's tone hardens. He tells Xiong not to act self-righteous. He's not like him. He doesn't leave his teammates to die. For their safety, he ordered them to retreat first. Then, without waiting for a reply, he places the amulet into the slot. The stone door rumbles and slowly it opens. They enter the place, and Xiong immediately questions the protagonist, asking if he stole the amulet from that boss. He remarks that even though his job is scavenging, and he might accept it as some kind of legendary trash collecting ability, it still qualifies as stealing, doesn't it? One of his own team members chimes in, pointing out that the legendary stealing skill tied to the job class allows them to obtain materials without needing to kill the target. The protagonist replies, there's no need to overanalyze it, he simply killed Ogma and took the amulet. Xiong grips his shoulder from behind and demands to know how he managed to kill the boss when his own team couldn't even come close. In response, the protagonist slams his fist into the dungeon wall, cracking it. He asks if Xiong can do that. Xiong stares in disbelief before acknowledging that the protagonist is far stronger than he imagined. Xiong then asks if they're still in a cooperative alliance. He explains that he already has enough team members and suggests they continue working together, since he might need extra hands later to solve some kind of puzzle. The protagonist shrugs and says they can do whatever they want. Now trying to flatter him, Xiong says that in the abyss, the protagonist clearly calls the shots because he's the strongest one. But once they leave, he'll need an identity to boost his hunter group's ranking. So for now, they'll act like partners. According to Abyss tradition, all treasure will be split evenly among the group, meaning a 5-to-1 split, since Xiong's team has 5 members, and the protagonist stands alone. Suddenly, Xiong steps on a trap. The protagonist shouts for everyone to spread out, warning that the stairs are rigged. The trap activates, slicing one of the Hunting Heart members to pieces. The protagonist comments that it looks like the split is now 4-to-1. They all sit down for a break, and Xiong notes that it seems the traps have stopped, but admits they're getting extremely nervous. The protagonist scans the surroundings with sharp, calculating eyes and quickly realizes the place is still loaded with traps. He punches one of the dungeon walls, triggering all of them at once. Xiong and his team scramble in panic while the protagonist activates his gravity vortex skill to neutralize every single trap. Once the area is clear, he tells them they can move on. He's destroyed all the traps. Stunned, they struggle to comprehend what he just did. One of them asks what kind of skill he used. They continue following behind him, and Xiong begins to wonder what kind of monster this guy is to dismantle all the traps so effortlessly. But one of his men advises him to drop the topic. They might need to rely on him again later. Xiong scoffs, asking why they're acting so afraid. After all, he's just one man, and they're a team of 5. Another member quickly reminds him there are only 4 of them now. At that moment, the protagonist halts, prompting them to ask what's wrong. He silently steps aside, revealing a pile of treasure scattered across the floor ahead. Without hesitation, they all rush toward it. Xiong picks up one of the crystals, marveling that he's never seen such high-purity gems before. His teammates exclaim that if they haul all this treasure back, they'll never need to scavenge again. Xiong orders them to empty their bags and fill them immediately, confident that this haul will make them the center of attention once they return. But the protagonist senses something off. The system pings a warning. It has detected a dragon, an extraordinarily rare creature in the abyss. Records indicate they only appear in S-level abysses, and only 5 have ever surfaced worldwide. The monster is a woman, and they've just disturbed her slumber. She demands they put everything back and leave quietly. If they comply, she'll pretend she never saw them. Xiong stares, stunned that a demon beast is capable of speaking a human language. She jolts awake, muttering that she nearly fell asleep, then glares at them, demanding why they're still here. The The stench of their greed, she says, is so thick in the air it's making her nauseous. Rising to her feet, she sneers, questioning how they dared to trespass into her abyss and sully her golden floor. Xiong mutters that she's a humanoid monster, an extremely rare occurrence in the abyss. On top of that, she's so stunning that killing her feels like a waste. One of his teammates warns they should probably hear her out, as she doesn't seem ordinary, maybe even a real boss. But Xiong dismisses the concern, insisting there's no need to fear her. To him, she's just a beautiful monster guarding treasure. Besides, she appears to be focused on our boy, which means they might be able to land a surprise attack. Before they can move, she lashes out at Xiong and his squad without warning. Then she launches into the air and glides toward our boy. Hovering before him, she peers down and asks what it is he wants. Gold coins, crystals, something else perhaps. Surely there must be something he can offer in return. Xiong scoffs that she's clearly driven by greed. Meanwhile, she pulls the crystal rune from our boy's neck, the one Xingran had given him earlier. But our boy quickly snatches it back, warning her not to lay a hand on his belongings. She scoffs, wondering why he's making such a fuss over what she calls a worthless trinket. Our boy studies her carefully, eyes narrowing. Every monster has a weakness, and she must have one too. All he needs now is to trigger her health bar. But without warning, she tears out our boy's eye. The technique won't work on her, she declares, and she'll take his gaze as an offering. With that, she tosses the eye into her mouth. My guy activates his double frenzy skill, launching an attack, but she effortlessly sidesteps it. With a flick of her finger, she sends him flying across the chamber. Sprawled on the ground, our boy groans that she might actually be a true god. He can't even begin to gauge her real power. Xiong shaken barks that they can't win this fight. He orders his men to grab as much treasure as they can and get out. He hurls a smoke bomb at her while his teammates scramble to lift a massive crystal chunk. One of them hesitates, asking how they're supposed to carry something so huge. Xiong growls for them to hurry. Before they can escape, flames erupt as she attacks. Xiong is blasted backward and crashes to the floor, scattering the crystals from his arms. Groaning, he mutters that they should have just escaped with whatever they had. He picks up a single piece and mutters that he'll settle for just this one. She appears before him, eyes gleaming, and demands how he dares to touch her treasure. Apparently, he has more nerve than she expected.